Dates. Harry Crow. And thanks to all who took the time to help with my question, Victor's sorting will be dealt with in this chapter. Chapter 94. While those who had arrived in Hogwarts by portkey left by same means, the room was able to provide a bank of a dozen flues which enabled witches and wizards who were connected to the system a rapid method of returning home. Arthur had barely stepped from the burrow's fireplace when Molly started in on him. I'm their mother, is it wrong for me to want what's best for my children? Knowing this was coming had allowed Arthur time to prepare his arguments, something he was getting rather good at since taking up his new ministerial post. Molly, every parent wants nothing but the best for their children. When those children are young, it's also every parent's duty to decide what's best for them. As those children get older, however, the parents have to learn when it's the children's turn to make their own decisions. Only Bill can decide what's best for him, that right passed from us to him years ago. She tried to reason with her husband, why was she the only one who could see this? You know I have nothing against muggles, Arthur, but a wizard marrying one will seriously hurt their career. He will be looked down upon and sneered at behind his back. Bill has been doing so well too. We can't let him throw all those years of hard work away. Molly, who does Bill work for? Arthur had confused Molly by completely changing tact. She stopped and answered her husband. He works for Gringotts, YR. Arthur quickly cut her off. Yes, more specifically, he works for Ambassador Barchoke. His boss is the person who already counts Hermione Granger as his daughter, and her muggle parents as close family. Ewan is a Potter scholar, that makes him and his mother, Jenny, family too. Now, do you think Barchoke would see a relationship between our Bill and Jenny as a bad thing? Even in the ministry now, anyone displaying bigotry like that would be severely frowned upon, if not actually jumped upon from on high. Not to be dissuaded, Molly offered another reason to be against this match. She's older than our Bill, and already has a child at Hogwarts. Quote ellipsis. And what a delightful boy he is too, a credit to the mother who brought him up. She is also a beautiful woman who makes our son light up when she's next to him. Like Charlie, I've noticed the positive change in Bill. I just didn't know Jenny was responsible for that. She was left clutching at straws now. But Arthur, just because she had one magical child doesn't mean her next one will be too. What if we have muggle grandchildren? He was trying desperately not to lose his temper here, but Molly was making that harder and harder. We have 7 children, Molly, the odds were high that one of them might have been a squib. Would that have made any difference to you? This finally hit home to Molly. Her hand was over her mouth and it took a minute before she could even answer. Arthur, how can you ask me that? They're my babies, I carried each of them for 9 months, I would have loved them no matter what. That question had knocked all the fight out of her. Molly was now in tears. Arthur pulled his crying wife into an embrace. I know you would have, love, just as I know you will love any grandchildren the same way. If Bill's relationship with Jenny reaches that point and if their union is blessed with children, I know my Molly will be counting the days and knitting like mad to ensure that baby wants for nothing, whether they are magical or not. He lovingly kissed the top of her head before continuing. I also know a little of Jenny's history. Her parents practically threw her out when they discovered she was pregnant. She will not be rejected by the Weasley family, rather welcomed as a friend who might one day be so much more. I hope you can support this, Molly, because I won't have it any other way. She was crying into his robes and nodded her acceptance. It took a moment before she remembered their other problem. What about Ron? Now that is a totally different case. We've both been worried about him, and let's not forget we actually came within a whisker of withdrawing Ron from Hogwarts. He's finally starting to mature and I don't want anything to interfere with that process. Lavender is a young witch who would appear to have developed physically without the rest of her faculties yet catching up. Yes, she's made a couple of incredibly stupid decisions, but thankfully there has been no permanent harm done. Neither have yet reached 15, and she's Ron's first girlfriend. I think we let Ron deal with it, only becoming involved if he comes to us for advice. He's far more likely to talk to Bill or the twins though, we know they won't steer him wrong. He could see Molly getting ready to offer objections, so Arthur played his ace. Ginny told me Ron was heartbroken. She said he wouldn't have been at the task today if the twins hadn't pulled him aside for a chat. Judging by what Ron said today, the twins must have approached Harry for information. That he's willing to sit down and discuss his problem with Lavender is a big step forward for Ron. We need to let him do this. The girl might not even make it back to Hogwarts, so let's not cross any bridges before we have to. Molly didn't answer, so Arthur took that as a good sign. You have a seat, love, and I'll make us some cocoa before we head off to bed. She had one last question though. Arthur, were any of our children in danger today? Here was one he could answer with some degree of certainty. If Voldemort and his 2 followers had turned up today, they wouldn't have gotten a spell off before they were no more. Just precautions, love, nothing more. Arthur escaped to make the cocoa. Breakfast was interrupted by Augustus standing to make an announcement. Since Mr. Krum asked to become a Hogwarts student yesterday, he and I had a discussion and we reached this decision. While Mr. Krum stayed in guest quarters last night, he himself was very keen to undergo the full Hogwarts experience for his last year of schooling. That means we have a sorting to do. As McGonagall came forward with the hat and stool, there was much good-natured ribbing for Victor as he walked toward her. He looked comical sitting on the stool designed for first years with the hat on his head. The joking slowly died down as the hall waited to see where he would be going. There was rather a long wait before the hat finally spoke. Well, if you're sure, better be. Hufflepuff. The badges went crazy as a high-profile student was sorted into their house. In an unprecedented move, the other 3 tables stood and applauded Victor as he joined his new housemates. Cedric made a place beside him, a place Victor gratefully accepted. Madame Longbottom too was applauding, however she had more to say. Now, while Mr. Krum is a member of Hufflepuff House, he will still represent Durmstrang in the Tri-Wizard tournament. And the Quidditch competition. That last comment drew some playful boos from the Gryffindor table, mainly because they were next to play Durmstrang. Without Victor playing, they would have been confident of victory. Now they had to do an Ireland, score so many points that the Seeker's contribution couldn't win Durmstrang the match. Something that was easier said than done. The Bloody Baron inviting Severus to Madame Longbottom's office that evening intrigued the potions master. Discovering his godson and Pansy had been invited too really piqued his interest. On entering her office, the gang's all here, was the first thing that went through Severus's mind. Longbottoms, Blacks, Grangers, Patels, Barchoke, Tonks and Amelia Bones. Only Lupin was missing, but he had the first-year marauders at the moment. It was actually Barchoke who started things off. You four have been invited here tonight for different reasons. Parvati, we know what Padma keeping secrets from you caused last time. We trust you won't talk to anyone not currently in this room about this matter. Draco and Pansy, I'm told you practically guessed what was going on. Insight like that we can certainly use. Potions Master Snape, you are here for the exact same reason. You have unique insights to the people that we hope to defeat. I can't emphasize enough though that secrecy is paramount. People's lives are literally at stake here. That Barchoke's eyes quickly shifted to Hermione and Harry, sitting holding their baby brother, was not lost on any of them. Augusta then took over. We now know who originally entered Harry's name in that cup. It was Dolores Umbridge. She did so under Voldemort's orders. They have been using a dead drop when she visits Hogsmeade on a Saturday, receiving and sending information to Voldemort. Bellatrix Lestrange has been observed collecting the information. This news seems to take the breath from Parvati. It didn't take her long to recover though. You knew this, and still let Harry go out there to compete. Neville quickly talked her down from the funk she was rapidly approaching. Harry was covered at all times. 3 of our fathers were in the stadium roof with rifles. Nothing was getting near him. There were auras, warriors and members of the audience all ready to pounce. Instead of reassuring Parvati, this just agitated her more. I thought we were safe behind these wards. Can he get through them? It was then Padma's turn to try. Parv, he was after a sample of Harry's blood. We want this to end, so we gave him it. Once more this had the opposite effect. Looking at the 4 people involved, Parvati instantly reached what to her was an obvious conclusion. None of you would chance Harry facing this alone. He's got all 4 of your blood, hasn't he? We've done all right so far by sticking together, sis, we weren't about to break that up. Parvati finally ran out of things to say. She just sat quietly with tears in her eyes until her mother's arms gently snaked around her. Amelia now took the discussion forward. Another complication though is that Dumbledore is somehow involved. He's been observed on a few occasions meeting with Umbridge in Hogsmeade. We just don't know what his angle is yet. Figuring he wasn't here to be part of the furniture, Severus added his 2 nuts worth. Like most people I suppose, I just assumed Albus had entered Harry's name. Umbridge probably counted on that too, forgetting one thing, he would know that wasn't true. I'm almost certain Albus would approach Umbridge and now she's his spy. Anything that the Dark Lord sends to Umbridge, he will know about it. I'll bet he's also helping Umbridge decide what information gets passed through Bellatrix. With Victor now friends with Harry, and himself sitting on the judging panel, Albus must have thought he controlled it all. This actually drew a chuckle from Harry. Victor standing up and calling him for cheating must have really upset the old man's plans. Amelia didn't think this was funny though. It also blew a big hole in our plans too. Cornelius had to contact the Bulgarian Minister of Magic and inform him what was going on, otherwise Dumbledore would have been dragged back to Bulgaria to be sacked. Borislaw is not happy that one of his country's most prominent citizens is essentially being used as bait, without that citizen's prior knowledge or compliance. Harry knows what he's letting himself in for, neither Victor nor Fleur have any idea what could happen. If Voldemort appeared, they could easily find themselves in the middle of a battlefield. I don't think Voldemort will come anywhere near Hogwarts. This comment silenced everyone, and drew all eyes onto Severus. For the Dark Lord to appear here would mean he had already accepted defeat, and wanted to go down in a blaze of glory. The Dark Lord will never accept defeat and has no intention of going down, ever. That was why he created Horcruxes, he wants to be immortal. He's spent decades trying to achieve that status, he's not about to throw his life away on a futile grand gesture. That would support the information Gringotts has. Barchoke again glanced at his son and daughter before saying the next part. That's also why Harry wants to end this. The smart thing for Riddle to do would be to retreat to the continent and take a number of years building up another army of like-minded followers. We're hoping his pride won't let him do that. This is the weakest he's ever been, and our best chance to finish this once and for all. The nightmare would be for him to disappear, returning as an even greater threat when this lot all have small children of their own to care for. That scenario sent shivers down more than one spine. Severus though was confident that wouldn't happen. His pride won't let him retreat, not without a victory. He needs to dispose of the reason for his original downfall first, he needs to kill Harry. I've come to realize Dumbledore and the Dark Lord actually share quite a few personality traits. Neither will admit to their mistakes and both are supremely confident of their own abilities, and that those abilities will allow them to achieve whatever task they set themselves. Both also want things in Britain to go back to the way they were before Crow here took a hand. They want to rule the country, and see only one obstacle standing in the way of them achieving that. It was Alice who asked Severus to clarify his last point. Do you think Dumbledore would actually kill Harry? No, not personally. Now, if you'd asked whether I thought he'd let someone else do it, you would have gotten a different answer. Like a shroud being lifted from his eyes, Sirius could see it all laid out before him. Dumbledore's playing all sides, pulling the strings to get the result he wants. Sets up the confrontation and then rushes in to save the day, but too late to save Harry. It's Halloween 1981 all over again, this time though he's not getting away with it. That was a sentiment they all agreed with. Dumbledore is far too wily a character to put under any kind of sustained surveillance. He'll expect his every move inside the castle to be watched, and it will be. Harry nodded in agreement with his father, letting Barchoke know that was already being taken care of. Dolores Umbridge however is another matter entirely. She is the weak link in this entire conspiracy. It is only because we in Gringotts think she is too stupid to pull it off that we aren't recommending the ministry arrest her, and then force Madame Umbridge to work for our side. Dumbledore would spot the difference the first time they met. Amelia agreed with Barchoke's assessment, it still left the ministry hanging though. What do we tell the Bulgarian minister? Is there anyone here who trusts Victor and Fleur enough to let them in on the secret? Since it was his life that was potentially on the line, Harry felt he needed to answer that. While I like them both, this is just too big to drop on anyone's shoulders. Everyone in this room has earned the right to be here, they haven't. I also don't see how you could include Fleur without bringing Madame Maxime on board too. If we are now saying that the most likely attack will come in the form of a blood-bonded Portkey, that should take the other two champions out of any danger. Tonks was basically thinking out loud, but the rest of the company appeared more than prepared to let her. If we then arranged the second task so each champion would have to fight their way through to reach volunteers, we would be drastically reducing the opportunity to introduce a Portkey into the task. Smiling at her auror, Amelia nodded her agreement. I think that is something Cornelius could sell to Borislaw. Inviting him to the task might just swing the deal. We might even want to include him when we get down to discussing how we handle the third task. Just hold on a minute, are we suggesting allowing these four to take a strange Portkey to God knows where? That is not something Dan and I are ready to put our names to. Emma, you are certainly not alone in that opinion. We need to come up with different methods of tracking them, methods that mean we can be right behind them with warriors and auras. They have trained for years to acquire the skills needed to survive. The four of them arriving will also be a surprise that should buy them a few seconds too. We have to be sure we can be mere seconds behind them Portkeying out, or I will vote no to this plan too. Barchoke's view was instantly supported by the Longbottoms and Pattles as well, leaving the 14s with no option but to accept it. Dan had another suggestion to throw in. Our government has ways of electronically tracking people. Could the ministry approach them for assistance? I'm sure they want to see an end to the Potter killers, almost as much as we do. That was something none of them had thought of. Amelia agreed to take that idea to Cornelius, pretty sure Arthur would be approaching the Muggle government soon. With magical, goblin and perhaps Muggle tracking locked onto them, surely one of those methods would slip past whatever defenses Voldemort was setting up. They only needed one to work, then this would be all over. Harry pulled Hermione to a quiet sofa in the Ravensclaw common room. They obviously needed to talk. It was now late and they would neither be disturbed or overheard. You were far too quiet in there tonight. Just what is going through the pretty little head of yours? I'm really frightened, Harry. He pulled her even closer and tried to offer some reassurance. We're all frightened, Hermione, we'd be fools not to be. No, Harry, it's not that. You want to know what really frightens me? Being left standing there while you are portkeyed to wherever Voldemort and his cronies are waiting for you. That's what will give me nightmares, Harry, not being with you when the time comes. Of course I'm frightened of facing him, but I am absolutely bloody terrified of not being there to have your back. You are mine, Harry, and I am yours, for the rest of our lives. There will never be anyone else for me. That means you can't leave me, ever. Harry could feel his mate's tears dampening his shirt but was at a loss of what to say to reassure her. Hermione, we're doing everything we can. She cut him off right away. No, we're not, Harry. Our mixture of blood on that towel is at best a gamble. It might not work as we hope. Suppose they have a means to separate it out. I can't lose you, not when we have a foolproof method that would ensure at least I would be there too available to us. This puzzled Harry before realization struck like a lightning bolt. Surely you don't mean. Yes, Harry, I do. I'm kicking myself for not thinking of it before Padma mentioned it. I've been thinking about it a lot since. Completing our bond would guarantee any blood bond Portkey would accept me too. Harry's mouth was making shapes but there was no sound coming out. The longer this went on, the more upset Hermione was becoming. Don't you want to bond with me? There was only one way for Harry to answer that. He lifted Hermione's chin and put all the love he had for her into their kiss. This certainly kissed goodbye to her doubts. I hope I'm on safe ground saying I dream of completing our bond, quite a lot actually. In my defense I would like to say that my mate is the most beautiful girl in the world, and I love her with all my heart. How could I then deprive this girl of her dream, completing our bond on our wedding night? It was then Hermione's turn. She kissed Harry with all the tenderness she possessed. My real dream is having you beside me for the rest of my life. Going to university, forging careers, raising our children and watching our parents spoil them. That's my dream, Harry, one I'll fight anyone for. It all comes crashing down though if you're not there to share it with me. I need to be with you when you face him, Harry. Completing our bond will ensure that I am. Hermione, completing our bond would automatically change your status in the nation. That means Father would know. If only you and I Portkey out, everyone inside the stadium, the entire bloody country, would know what we'd done. I don't think I could do that to you. This did not sit well with Miss Granger. You would rather chance leaving me standing there than risk embarrassing me. We're mates, Harry, with our wedding date already planned. We need to face him together to double our chances of us both making that date at the altar. I need to be there when you face him, and only you can ensure that I am. Realizing this was one argument with Hermione he wasn't going to win, and a large part of his teenage psyche was also screaming for an immediate and unconditional surrender, Harry tried a different approach. Let's try and look at this logically, love. For the second task, we'll still prepare a welcome for him and try to eliminate the possibility of any Portkeys. Getting you involved in the task too will certainly help keep me safe. With all those precautions in place, I don't think we need to complete our bond before the second task, agreed. Somewhat reluctantly, Hermione nodded in agreement. She hated when Harry used logic against her, leaving Hermione no room to argue. Now wearing a smile, Harry continued. The third task is traditionally held nearer the end of summer term. That gives us until then to consider all our options. That's what your suggestion is, love, an option. An unbelievably mind-blowing, wonderful, beautiful, self-sacrificing option that will provide me with many pleasant dreams for months to come. The look of bliss Harry was now wearing would, at any other time, have had Hermione in fits of giggles. She was still waiting on her answer though. Harry understood and then got straight to the point. We'll wait until nearer the third task before making any final decision, but I'll make you a promise right now. For the rest of our lives you'll always be at my side, and never left behind. The relief appearing on Hermione's face was instantaneous. That's all I ask, Harry, that's all I'll ever want. The two kissed and cuddled for some time after that, talking well into the night. Betsy woke them in the morning, having covered the sleeping couple with a blanket late last night. They awoke in each other's arms, happy and content. Both knew they had to move though, Padma discovering them like this would lead to endless teasing. Wearing wide smiles, both headed up to their rooms to prepare for their morning training. Arthur Weasley found himself having a strange morning, one to match the evening he'd just spent with Molly. He'd hardly arrived at his office when he had a visitor, Adam Brown. The man sat and rambled, leaving Arthur with no clue to the reason behind this unexpected visit. At one point Arthur felt his stomach clench in fear. Adam was mentioning his daughter and Ron, and children. While his youngest son was finally maturing, it would be a good few years yet before Ron was able to handle that step. If Ron had somehow gotten Lavender pregnant, Molly would flay him alive. It was finally with some relief that Arthur deciphered the real reason why this wizard was in his office. Mr. Brown, can I stop you there? You seem to be laboring under a misconception. While we Weasleys are an old pure blood family, there are certain traditions that we just don't hold with. Betrothal contracts are certainly one of those. Finding their wife or husband will be solely my children's responsibility. While he had known exactly what to do last night when Molly burst into tears, Arthur was completely lost on how to deal with a crying wizard. Even so, he had no intention of offering Adam Brown a hug and a kiss. Adam would just have to make do with a cup of tea and a biscuit. As the tea worked its magic, Adam even munched on a biscuit as he regained his composure. He tried to apologize. I'm sorry, Arthur. I just want to see my little girl settled, and she is sweet on your youngest boy. She's not a bad girl. Lavender doesn't have a bad bone in her body. She's just not wise to the ways of the real world. We both know the terrible world our children were born into. My wife and I have tried our best to shelter Lavender from that. Once he'd started unburdening his soul, Adam couldn't seem to stop. Lavender's head is full of fashion, shopping and boys, but not in the way that we know the world really is. She's spent years reading her mother's harmless romance novels. At least we thought they were harmless, until we discovered Lavender thinks that's how the world really is. Thinking back to Ginny with her Harry Potter book, and the damage that had done, Arthur could understand where Adam was coming from. The next part drew even eerier parallels between the daughters. Lavender then goes to Hogwarts and meets Harry Crow, a boy who is the walking embodiment of everything she believes to be true. Heroic, honorable, and unfortunately already taken. She becomes his friend though and her world changes. Shopping, parties, fabulous holidays, her mum and I were really happy for her. That all changed at the summer. After that, we were delighted to hear she had a boyfriend, one both my wife and I approved of. Now, I don't know what to do. At last, Arthur felt he could offer the clearly desperate wizard some advice. If you intend for Lavender to return to Hogwarts, I would suggest contacting the school and thanking Harry for saving your daughter, twice. Hogwarts is a different school now. Your daughter won't have to suffer the kind of reaction to this that went on in our day. Adam then asked the question that was at the forefront of his mind. Quote ellipsis. And what of her relationship with your Ron? The worried father had since discovered his attitude after the fair incident had left his daughter isolated in Hogwarts. She may not have been bullied, but loneliness could be just as bad for Lavender. Her relationship with this young wizard would be the deciding factor on whether Lavender actually wanted to return to Hogwarts. I won't lie, Adam, Ron was deeply hurt by this. He's decided though to wait and talk with Lavender before saying or doing anything more. His mother and I support his decision, and will also support the outcome. Should Lavender turn up at our house as Ron's girlfriend, she will be made most welcome. Arthur knew he was stretching the truth a bit with his last comment, but he would have until at least Christmas to work on Molly if that outcome actually happened. A relieved Adam was on his feet, hand outstretched to Arthur. That's more than I could have hoped for, more than we probably deserve. You're a good wizard, Arthur, and I would be a proud father if my daughter one day joined our two families. He may have been smiling, but inside Arthur was trying to come up with any excuse not to tell Molly about this conversation, and failing miserably. He could see them having another argument tonight. Dolores Umbridge was also having relationship problems. She was howling up a storm too. This had nothing to do with a wizard gazing on her bare breasts for the first time in many, many years. It was more about what his girlfriend was currently doing to those breasts. I know you would love to accept our master's mark, Dolores, but that wouldn't help us. Our master very graciously allowed me to mark you in a way these goblin wards won't detect. You are to be the first of many given this great honor, so hold still and let me work. The silencing charms on her bedroom were being sorely tested. It seemed an age before Bella stood back to admire her handiwork. Well, my big strong wizard, what do you think? I think my little Bella enjoyed that far too much. It is very effective though, and certainly won't trigger any wards. Dolores would really need to be getting to know someone a lot better before your work could be spotted. Dolores was too far gone for modesty to even enter her head. She lay there exhausted, drenched in sweat and blood, her bare breasts now sporting an A, V, on their underside, carved there by Bellatrix Lestrange's blade. If I ever get my hands on Crow's tramp, I'll carve, mudblood, across her chest, and then kill her very slowly. As Bella's blade delicately carved letters in the air, she was happily imagining torturing Crow's mate. Augustus gave Dolores her instructions. He'd also brought a written set, anticipating Bella's ministrations producing this reaction in Dolores. Umbridge gave Augustus the impression of a witch who would enjoy inflicting pain onto others. Receiving it though was an entirely different matter. Only his Bella seemed to appreciate both equally, the giving and the receiving. As the two left, the bug hiding behind the curtain thought that would be a good thing to do too. Only knowing she had an emergency portkey had kept Rita there. Using it though would have meant blowing her surveillance, and ending Dolores' usefulness to Voldemort. Peeking around the corner of the curtain, Rita could see she was in no danger of discovery. A troll could have entered the bedroom and Dolores wouldn't have noticed. The witch appeared almost comatose as she lay spread-eagled on her own bed. Rita still kept low though as she scuttled under the door to make her escape. She had a report to make to Barchoke. It was well known Harry only had one free period a week. He was somewhat surprised then to find himself being asked to visit Madame Longbottom's office during it. Knowing Augusta knew they had no secrets from each other, Harry didn't think she would mind if Hermione came along too. Their surprise jumped a few notches when spotting Adam Brown waiting there too. There was no surprise that McGonagall appeared ready to rearrange his facial features without using her wand. Augusta was doing her best to see things didn't get out of hand, though she clearly held similar thoughts to her deputy headmistress. Centurion, Mr. Brown asked to speak with you. After demanding to know why, I decided to give him this opportunity. Clearly reading the undercurrents here, Adam got right to the matter in hand. Centurion, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for saving my daughter, and apologize for my behavior at the summer. Harry just stared coldly at the wizard before giving his answer. No. The 3 adult blank stares that answer produced meant Harry had to explain. He let Brown sweat it out for a minute or two first. I didn't know Lavender was in that cupboard, just that someone needed help. Help will always be given at Hogwarts to those who ask for it. As to your apology, no, I don't accept it. Adam Brown then got to see up close just what a dangerous individual Centurion Crow really was. Your behavior over that matter hurt someone very close to us, that might still have been forgivable. That your actions then deliberately targeted this person, all in an attempt to protect your daughter, cannot. You, sir, tried to besmirch the name of a young witch who is family to me, not a good idea. Parvati admitted that she had done wrong, accepted her not inconsiderable punishment, and has also learned from her mistake. Lavender clearly didn't and hasn't, you must take some of the blame for that too. Harry then respectfully bowed to Augusta and Minerva, before offering Hermione his arm as they left the office. It was a shell-shocked Adam who stood there watching as he had just been dismissed, by a student too. Augusta came out of her stupor and made after them, there was something else she wanted to discuss. Seeing Adam Brown's condition, Minerva then added her 2 nuts worth. Every few years, Hogwarts will get a witch who is an accident waiting to happen. Thankfully most see how the older witches behave and grow out of it. Your Lavender fell squarely into the first category, she's yet to reach the second. You can't just keep depending on that young goblin to save her, Harry might not be here the next time. He normally spends the Halloween weekend outside the castle, what would have happened then? If Lavender is to return to Hogwarts, I'll need to see a whole different attitude from her. Minerva would also place Romilda Vane in that first category. Thankfully, Lavender's behavior had Miss Vane shooting straight into category 2. At least some good had come of this. They had barely reached the bottom of the stairs when Hermione pounced on her mate. After a passionate kiss, a smug Harry thought she agreed with him. Oh, it wasn't that, Harry. When you let your inner goblin out to play, it does funny things to my insides. They were about to begin kissing again when a throat being theatrically cleared behind them gave warning they weren't alone. Augusta was standing on the spiral moving staircase that delivered her to the corridor. I wanted a word with you two about a different matter, a Yule ball. Harry was about to immediately object when Augusta held her hand up. I hope to spend Christmas Day with our families, maybe even in Kingusi. I just want you to listen to my proposal first. The express leaves on the 19th, and I know you both intend to be on it. How would you feel about returning here on Christmas Eve for a Yule ball? It would start at 8 and finish at 12, allowing everyone to portkey or flew back home for Christmas. She could see Harry wasn't convinced, so then dangled her carrot. I understand you wanting to spend your holiday at Kingusi, but I'm hoping a few hours isn't too much to ask. I also know when striking a bargain with a goblin, it's customary to offer something in return. You do this for the tournament, then I will guarantee the second task will be held on the 29th of January. An excited Hermione squeezed him tight while trying not to squeal with joy. Say yes, Harry, please. He though was staring straight at Augusta. You clearly know the significance of that date. Do you also know the year? Since I consider this person a very dear friend, of course I do. Augusta was using all her experience not to smirk at him, it was just too funny watching Harry struggle though. Desperately wanting to say yes but, at the same time, not lose face. Hermione had no such qualms and was practically jumping up and down beside him. You drive a hard bargain, Madam Longbottom, how could I not accept? They were all wearing wide smiles now as everyone got what they wanted. I shall need to check with my fellow judges that this date is acceptable, but don't foresee any problems, do you? With Tonks and Cedric's father there, none at all. Even Madame Maxime got a ball out of this, at no cost to Beauxbatons whatsoever. None of them could see any problems with this. The date of the second task will need to be kept secret until nearer the time. Me announcing the ball though will also signal the date has been confirmed. The respect Harry had for the grand old witch was oozing out of every pore as he bowed deeply to her. Madam Longbottom, a goblin would be proud to strike a bargain like that. A very happy Augusta took the stairs back up to her office, hoping Minerva hadn't spilled Brown's blood on her carpet. An ecstatic Hermione was holding on to Harry and jumping up and down in a way that felt wonderful to him. Oh Harry, we're going to get to see father on his birthday, his 60th birthday too. I've never been able to celebrate it with him before, he always says it's not a good enough reason for us to leave Hogwarts. This year, he'll be coming to us. We need to throw a party. A kiss from Harry silenced her. That was to say thanks, Hermione, for being so understanding. You've accepted me as I am, and love father for who he is too. I remember a boy on a train, trying desperately to work out whether I was pranking him after saying my parents were healers who worked on people's teeth. You accepted me as I am, and my entire family too. Just one of the many things I love about you. They headed back to the hall to collect Padma and Neville. It was nearly time to head for defense. They may have just lost their only free period, but neither was complaining. Lavender's return that Friday morning was news only until Madame Longbottom stood and made her announcement. A Christmas Eve ball was far more interesting than a student's return, especially at the Ravenclaw table. All eyes might have been on Harry, but it was Padma who beat everyone to the question. Roger was too busy congratulating himself for already having asked Fleur to be his date for any ball. So, the mystery of why you and Hermione have been walking around with smiles on your faces is finally solved. You were dead set against this ball, what changed? Let's just say we were made an offer we couldn't refuse. Your gran is some negotiator, Neville. Quote ellipsis. And you're not going to tell us anything about these negotiations. Well, there will be a Yule ball held on Christmas Eve. Padma playfully cuffing the back of Harry's head for simply parroting what Neville's gran had just announced. This saw Hermione jokingly getting ready to defend her mate from attack as the table laughed along with them. Feeling a hand on his shoulder, Harry turned his head to see Victor standing there. Can I have a word with you, Harry? Standing, both walked to the main doors. Harry could see this was something Victor didn't want to say in public. After hearing what he had to ask, Harry couldn't blame him. Harry, I would like your permission to escort Sapphire to the Yule ball. A.N. Thanks for reading. A New Apprentice. Harry Crow. Disclaimer, Harry Crow might be my invention, Harry Potter is not. On hearing Joe was publishing new editions of HP on the 1st of September, I was rather disappointed to read it was only the covers that were being updated. After her recent revelations, it offered up some hope of an alternative version of the Deathly Hallows. Now that would be a book I would buy. Chapter 95. I would like your permission to escort Sapphire to the Yule ball. Victor thought he'd made a terrible mistake, a mistake that could be his last. A pair of cold green eyes were suddenly focused on him with a frightening intensity. This was not his friend, Harry, facing him. Here was Centurion Crow, someone Victor just decided he never wanted as an enemy. There was also no disguising the threat in Harry's reply. I'm going to need to hear your reasons for asking Sapphire, Victor, and I'd better like them. Taking a deep breath, Victor proceeded to do just that. All over Europe, Durmstrang has a dark reputation. Grindelwald is a former student, our current headmaster is a Death Eater, and now VE find Dumbledore is, how you say, exposing himself as not light. I am a proud Bulgarian but ashamed of how VE are seen. I asked the hat to put me in Hufflepuff, I want to show that all of us from Durmstrang is not like that. Sapphire going to the ball with me would do the same, and she is nice company I think. Your friend, Daphne, told me VE go to these balls to dance all night and have fun, that is my intentions. I am not Marco, Harry, your friend will be treated with the respect and honor she deserves. It was now Harry's turn to let out the breath he hadn't even realized he'd been holding. It also took him a moment to regain his focus, and notice a very worried Victor still waiting on an answer. Sorry about that, Victor, I am rather protective of Sapphire, especially when she is in the magical community. I know you're nothing like Marco, and don't forget, Durmstrang is not alone in having infamous former students. At least Durmstrang expelled your wannabe Dark Lord, the so-called Lord Voldemort is a Hogwarts former head boy, he even won a special award from the school. I'll need to contact Sapphire and see what she thinks of this. I would advise keeping this matter a secret though, let them all wait until the ball before discovering who your date is. A much relieved Victor quickly agreed with that. The warning bell sounding for classes saw Cedric looking for Victor and of course a trio of friends searching for Harry. Later, though, was all he would say on the matter as they headed off to ancient runes. It wasn't until much later that day they discovered what had transpired as Harry held them back when Master Pitsley's potions class ended. Master Pitsley, I have an urgent message I would like you to pass on to my father. It has been announced there will be a Tri-Wizard Ball in Hogwarts on the 24th of December. This morning I was approached by the Durmstrang champion, Victor Krum, seeking my permission to ask Sapphire to this ball, as his date for the evening. This not only surprised the Goblin Potions Master, Hermione, Padma and Neville were all pretty stunned by that news too. Master Pitsley was left shaking his head, trying to clear it rather than indicating a no. This may be a step too far for her father, it may be a step too far for the nation too. Victor's intentions are entirely honorable, otherwise I wouldn't even have considered this request. He is a Quidditch star in his country and admired by many. Victor walking into that ball with Sapphire on his arm sends out a very powerful message. Sapphire will arrive in Hogwarts with the four of us, and leave with us too. There won't be a single minute of the entire evening where she will not be under my care. I would take my blades to anyone who behaved inappropriately toward her. Hermione's hand slid into his. We all know that, Harry. What we don't know are Victor's intentions toward Sapphire. What is he expecting of her, and how do you think she will respond to this? Victor is hoping for a night of dancing and fun, with someone he's hoping will become a friend, nothing more. Sapphire is a goblin, she will be expecting nothing else, until the day she meets her mate. She already told you this. Goblins don't date in a way that you three would recognize, they just socialize with a wide group of friends until they meet their mate. Sapphire just has a wider group of friends than most young goblins. It was Padma who brought another point up for consideration. Harry, Victor escorting Sapphire to what is a prestigious event won't just be big news in Britain, it will go international. Remember how the witches reacted to Hermione being alongside you all the time. The reactions to this could be a lot worse, and would all be aimed at Sapphire. It will be kept quiet before the event. Do you think anyone in the castle will say anything on the night of the ball? When the story hits the press, Sapphire will be staying in Kingusi with us until we need to return to Hogwarts. The only way to get at her would be by post, and our wards will redirect anything sinister straight to Gringotts. The sender might just get a surprise. We'll be there to deal with any hate mail. There's sure to be a fireplace nearby to put it into. When the political side gets sorted, it will then be Sapphire's decision whether she wants to attend as Victor's date. This drew a chuckle from Hermione. She already has his autograph. Harry, I don't think Sapphire will be saying no. The quiet man of the quartet then spoke his mind. Master Pitsley, Sapphire is not just our friend, there will be many more in the castle who consider her their friend too. She will be surrounded by friends the entire evening and perfectly safe. If, for whatever reason, she can't accept Victor's offer, I have a spare arm she would be welcome to. Harry needs to sit at the top table, but we would be honored if she chose to spend the evening with Padma and me. This received a deep bow from Master Pitsley. Well spoken, friend Longbottom. Young Sapphire is indeed fortunate to have friends such as you four. I fear though your mate is right, such an occurrence would become international news. We'll have to involve the director in this decision, before going anywhere near Sapphire with it. Knowing she is still welcome to attend the ball means that a no is not the end of the matter for her. The four then went for dinner, and it was left to Hermione to bring another subject up. How did you react when Victor asked you that? Not well. I had to fight my inner goblin not to draw my blade there and then. Only hearing what Victor intended allowed me to calm down. I think I may have given Victor a fright. If he's taking our friend to the ball, that's maybe not a bad thing. Padma's smirk told Harry there was more to come. At least you missed Colin asking Luna to be his date for the ball. He dashed over the minute you left with Victor. He'd been caught out already today, so Harry wasn't rising to that bait. Is there any of you who think I need to have a quiet word with Colin? The four walked into the great hall, all with smiles on their faces. It was at their run the following morning before Fleur got a chance to speak with Harry. I want to thank you for saying yes to this ball, Harry. Our Christmas would, haven't you been dull without it? This puzzled the 4 Hogwarts students exercising until Fleur explained further. We knew when we volunteered for this, we would be spending Christmas in Scotland. Without the ball zoo, we would, haven't you nothing to look forward to? Harry had actually stopped running to stare at the French champion. You're not going home for the holidays. I thought Christmas was all about family. He looked toward Hermione for help with this. This will only be the 4th year Harry has celebrated Christmas. It's not part of a goblin's calendar. He doesn't go in for the religious side of the holiday but just loves the idea that entire families get together to celebrate. That certainly appeals to his inner goblin. Nothing is more important to them than family. This was something that certainly resonated with a certain Bulgarian. As I am now a Hogwarts student, I could possibly go home. That would not be fair to other Durmstrang people, so Cedric invited me to his house for holidays. It was like a light going on behind Harry's eyes as he turned to Fleur. You could spend Christmas with us, in Kingusi. Harry, no. If you are going to do this then Fleur needs to know. He just smiled at his mate, leaving Hermione to do the explaining and asking. I know him very well, Fleur, and can see what he's up to. We have a rather peculiar family. That had Padma laughing. Peculiar doesn't even begin to describe it, Hermione. We Pattles are Indian, the Grangers are Muggles and then we have Crow's goblin father and friends. Throw in a werewolf and a couple of Swedish Fila for good measure and you have quite the mixture. Thank you, Padma. Now Fleur, how would your parents react to a mixture like that? She'd been confused before but now Fleur was totally flummoxed. My parents are very, how you say, open-minded. So you would not object to me being in that company. That's not what I asked Fleur. How would they adapt to being in that company? I know my Harry, he's intending asking them to visit Kingusi too. You just can't go dropping our family on strangers however. Just because it's normal to us, others might think different. She was now focused solely on Harry. Fleur struggled to find any words. You would do that. I'm supposed to be an inscrutable goblin, yet Hermione reads me like an open book. She's also right, our family is rather a strange lot. Why don't you write home and invite your family on my behalf, mentioning how weird we all are? If they still want to chance it, we can then sit down and work out the details. She simply couldn't help it. Fleur just launched herself at Harry and hugged him for all she was worth, before regaining her senses. She jumped back and started apologizing. Oh, Hermione, I am so sorry. He just made me so happy. Non, that did not sound right. She was stopped from saying any more by Hermione and Padma bursting into laughter. It's fine, Fleur. My Harry has a habit of doing things that sees girls just wanting to hug him in thanks. That's how we got together in the first place. Yes, Hermione got me addicted to her hugs. Now I can't do without them. He's not joking, they even spend their nights on a Ravenclaw sofa, hugging until the morning. Padma Patil, how do you know about that? Oh, Parv and I had sat up late chatting. I popped my head into your room to see if you were asleep, and you weren't there. I came down the stairs just as Betsy was putting a blanket on you too, you looked so sweet together. Quote ellipsis. And why wait until now to mention it? Hermione, I was saving it until it would be funny. Well, I don't think it's funny. She was forced to smile though as both Neville and Harry were chuckling away. It's his fault, I'm just so comfortable in Harry's arms I never want to leave. How many times now is that you've spent the night together? Now Padma, your jealousy is showing. Are we counting that time I was 12 and our fathers put a blanket over us? They had started running again as the two best friends continued the teasing, Harry and Neville learning long ago not to get involved as these two tried to get one over on the other. It always ended with them both in fits of laughter, the one who succumbed first being adjudged the loser. As the teasing got more outlandish, Fleur's jaw was hanging open and even Victor appeared perplexed. Padma did say our family is nuts, didn't she? Neville, I think your family is fantastic. I shall be writing home as soon as we finish, This certainly drew a smile from Harry. We will be trying to spend Christmas Day and New Year together. There will also be a wedding at Kingusi over the holidays. The Diggories will be invited, and that invitation will include any guests they have staying too. Her Christmas had just shifted from dull to spectacular. Fleur though was curious about how this came about. If Madame Longbottom did not tell you about us not going home, how did she get you to agree to the ball? Oh, good luck with that one, Fleur. He hasn't even told Padma or I how Gran managed it. Hermione buckling with laughter was immediately followed by Padma doing the same. They literally were holding each other up while they laughed. Both Harry and Neville just split either side of the laughing obstruction on the track and continued running. Harry offered his reassurance to the other two champions. Don't worry, they'll catch up. This is just their way of letting off some steam. I don't think those two could be angry with each other if they tried. That found agreement from Neville. Padma's now like a triplet. She has two sisters. It was another sister who was being discussed inside Gringotts. I'm very worried about this. It is one thing for my daughter to attend these functions as the Centurion's guest, quite another to be on the arm of a famous wizard, who's also an international sports star. My guarantee still stands, Goldskin. My son would gut anyone who attempted to harm your daughter, be they wizard or goblin. The director then said his piece. Your Sapphire will attend with my blessing, and my public support. As well as Centurion Crow, there will be another 3 friends of the nation in attendance too, all of whom are very fond of your daughter. With the Centurion taking responsibility for her safety, and the nation publicly supporting Sapphire, I think we can all agree no harm will befall her. Barchoke could just imagine this story whizzing around the magical world. A goblin on the arm of Victor Krum in little backward Britain would shock many and surprise most. It certainly surprised him. I realize the position this puts you in as a father, Goldskin, but please believe me when I say Sapphire has many friends at Hogwarts. She will dance and have fun, returning to Kingusi along with my son and daughter. With the director pushing for this too, Goldskin was helpless to resist. He did have one condition though, one he would not be shifted from. If I agree to this, the final decision must still lie with Sapphire. Absolutely. Please tell her also friend Longbottom has offered that Sapphire can accompany him and his mate to the ball. Centurion Crow has some official duties as champion that prevents him making the same offer. I wouldn't want her thinking this Bulgarian was her only option for attending the ball. The decision will then be hers to make. With that assurance from the director, Sapphire was escorted into the director's office. Both father and daughter had been summoned, but Sapphire had been asked to wait outside. Goldskin watched as his daughter confidently walked into Ragnarok's office, her face lighting up when she spotted Barchok's presence. Any other teenager would have been terrified in this situation. It just showed the confident female his daughter was becoming. He laid the current situation out for his daughter. Sapphire, your friend Harry was approached by someone who wanted to invite you to a ball in Hogwarts over the December holidays. It was the Bulgarian Quidditch player. Victor, oh dear. She then turned slightly apprehensively, but still excitedly to Barchok. I hope Harry didn't frighten him too much. Harry's very protective of me, all my magical friends are. What made Harry change his mind? Did Colin ask Luna to the ball? She would be hoping he would. Sapphire. She returned her attention to her father and demurely bowed her head. Sapphire, though, had noticed her outburst had caused wide grins from Barchok and the director. Sorry father, it's just a lot to take in. I will of course abide by your decision on this matter. I'm assuming Victor is trying to make a statement by asking me, since I've barely spoken to him. Yes, and the Centurion has guaranteed your safety. Sapphire tried not to roll her eyes at that statement from her father. Like most teenagers though, she didn't quite manage it, and it widened the grins of other two goblins watching this discussion between father and daughter. You can refuse and still attend the ball, with friend Longbottom and his mate. We have all agreed the final decision will be yours. There was no need even to think about it as far as Sapphire was concerned. Being seen and photographed in Harry's company is helping the nation become more accepted in Britain. I think me doing this could only help that effort. Harry might be leading the fight, but I'm more than willing to play any part one can. This drew a deep chuckle from Ragnik. Well said, young Sapphire. You are a credit to your family and friends. I fully support your decision, and the jewelry you wear to this ball will publicly say so. Sapphire found herself kneeling alongside her father, facing the director, both overwhelmed at the honor they were being shown here. She couldn't leave it at that though. I am honored, director. With respect though, I would still like to wear my necklace Harry and Hermione gave me. I never take it off. While her father stiffened at his daughter's perceived cheek, Ragnik chuckled heartily. Nor should you. The protections on that sapphire are second only to those on Miss Granger's bracelet, and then only because there was less material to work with. The director's words had Sapphire's hand reaching to her favorite thing in the world. She should have guessed Harry would have done something like that. Her father though appeared totally gobsmacked at that news, already having thought the gift was too much before he knew it was enchanted. He would also be shocked to discover his reactions were exactly the same as a Muggle father, placed in the same position a few years earlier. I told you, Goldskin. My son looks after his friends, and your Sapphire is his oldest friend. As to your questions, Sapphire, all I know is that Augustus somehow convinced him, and that Colin is probably the only person Harry would approve of to ask Luna to the ball. Sapphire was leaving the director's office, chuckling to herself at the truth behind Barchok's words. She would need to write to Luna and find that news out for herself. Her father was at her side, proud at how well she'd handled herself but dumbfounded at where this confidence was coming from. He had of course noticed his daughter was growing up. Like fathers the world over, he'd just never realized how much she'd grown. Both were stopped by Barchok reaching a snap decision. Goldskin, I would like to offer your daughter an apprenticeship, working with my department. She already knows more about the world outside Gringotts than most goblins, and seems keen to learn more. She could start immediately as we would need to tailor her education to her new position. That would also make this ball an official function, meaning any expense would be picked up by my department. Barchok was always intending to pay for anything Sapphire needed, but this way it gave her family honor too. The ambassador was basically just thinking out loud, yet the more he said, the more Barchok liked what he was saying. When my son completes his education, he will work at my side before eventually becoming the nation's ambassador. At that time he will need someone at his side that he trusts implicitly to be his assistant ambassador. Your daughter could one day be that person. Ragnik got very excited at that idea. This is not just a tremendous opportunity for your daughter, it's a marvelous opportunity for the nation too. Young Sapphire here has done exactly the same as the Centurion and the three friends, openly embraced all three cultures that touch our lives. I can't think of anyone more suited to this role, and not just because she has the Centurion's complete trust. Understand though, Barchok here is a hard taskmaster. He's giving you a glimpse of what your future could hold. You will then have to do all the years of hard work necessary to achieve that future. Goldskin looked at his daughter and saw her eyes sparkling to match that sapphire around her neck she was so fond of. The director was right. This was a tremendous opportunity for his daughter and her family. If things worked out as Barchok suggested, Sapphire could eventually be one of the highest-ranking females in the nation. His decision though was the same as earlier. While I acknowledge the great honor and tremendous opportunity this offer bestows on my family, the final decision must be my daughter's to make. Sapphire after all would be the one then facing years of hard work. All three goblins knew what her answer was going to be. Sapphire though still managed to surprise them. She shot back and hugged Barchok for all she was worth. Having grown accustomed to this greeting from his daughter, the goblin knew exactly how to respond. Thank you for this. Sapphire, all I'm giving you is a chance. Anything else you will earn yourself. None of us were joking about the years of hard work part. She stood back and, with a very wide grin on her face, bowed deeply. Ambassador Barchok, I would be honored to accept this opportunity. Good, now this news does not reach Hogwarts until after the ball. My son's reasons for changing his mind are mystifying. I suspect he and Madame Longbottom are up to something. Your first task will be to see if you can find out what that is. Barchok's wink informed Sapphire he wasn't seriously worried about this, just curious as to what Harry was up to. She would still do her best to find out the reason behind it. A seriously happy Sapphire almost skipped away, her bewildered father following on behind. His daughter was now apprenticed to Ambassador Barchok's department, and attending a prestigious wizarding ball on the arm of an international Quidditch player. How it had happened was still a shock to him. As they left, Ragnik couldn't help but say what was on his mind to his friend. Goldskin must be wondering what would have happened had he not dragged Sapphire away from Britain. Barcho couldn't quite mask the bitterness he still felt over the matter. Let the bastard wonder, his actions broke my young son's heart. I couldn't be happier with Harry's choice of mate and truly love my wonderful daughter. I see no reason though to let how Goldscan acted affect Sapphire. My entire family is very fond of her. I have to admit to being surprised at how well your daughter accepted Sapphire. Hermione just sees Sapphire as Harry's oldest friend. My children are true mates in every way we understand the relationship to be. Both are more goblin than we thought possible. Dumbledore was left bemoaning the quality of people he was reduced to working with. Dolores Umbridge was an emotional wreck. Her current state threatened all his plans, but he had no one else. He tried to appease her. As leader of the Durmstrang contingent, I will still be informed when the next task is, as well as what it entails. I just won't have any input into what those tasks will be, or any influence in choosing the dates. You will still have your information to send to Tom. Rather than showing relief, this just sent cold shivers down the witch. I have a list of books to acquire, and no idea how to go about tracking down some of these titles. My job at the ministry won't last long if it gets out I've been strolling down Nocturne Alley. I don't know how long I can do this, Albus. That Lestrange bitch is the craziest person I have ever met. With either a wand or a knife in her hand, she terrifies me. I'm wondering if perhaps I would be better off going to Bones. They could set something up to catch those two, and then protect me from Voldemort. Knowing that Dolores would be forced to reveal his part in all this, Albus had to prevent that disaster at all costs. Bellatrix is deadly, but not as crazy as everyone believes. It's mostly an act to terrify her opponents, a very convincing act one have to say. They won't dare harm you as long as you are still useful to them. As for the ministry, they would certainly keep you safe. Voldemort wouldn't be able to get to you in Azkaban. Having crushed her moment of rebellion, it was time to build Dolores back up again. I know someone who can help with getting what Voldemort wants. He was even sitting at the bar when I came up here. Albus had indeed spotted Fletcher leaning on what passed for a bar in the Hog's Head. Albus was currently talking with Dolores in a private room upstairs. For a few pieces of gold, Mundungus would soon track down what they needed. Her fears somewhat sated, Dolores handed over the list and gold she'd lifted to purchase the items. Albus would arrange with Dung to get the stuff as quickly as possible, giving him time to study the materials before handing them over to Dolores. She didn't know when her visitors would return. That was probably deliberate to keep Dolores on her toes. Even if they returned before Albus handed everything over, it couldn't be helped. It was imperative he figured out exactly what Tom was up to. What was a little torture of Dolores when compared to that? None of the conspirators knew the goblins already had teams working at doing exactly that, determining just what Voldemort's scheme was, having obtained the necessary information from Rita. Rita herself was keeping a low profile at the moment, staying well away from Dumbledore too. When Dolores had headed for Hogsmeade, Rita wasn't tempted to try and hear any conversations. Just seeing Dumbledore enter the same building was all the confirmation she needed. Luna needed some confirmation, and knew just where to go to get it. She plonked herself down beside Harry for lunch, asking her question right away before the other Potter scholars arrived. Harry, I received a letter this morning from Sapphire. Sapphire says she's going to the Yule ball, as Victor Krum's date. We're trying to keep that quiet at the moment, Luna. No problem, Harry. I guess the mystery of why you agreed to ball has now been solved. Not even close, Luna. Victor thought that one up all on his own. I hear you have a date for this ball too. I'm assuming that Sapphire was asking you that question as well. The little blonde now had a smile on her face. Colin asked me as soon as the ball was announced. I think Ginny and Lyra were disappointed at that. As long as you're happy, Luna, and your date behaves himself. Harry's voice had risen slightly. It was certainly loud enough for a now red-faced Colin to hear as he sat down at the table. This earned Harry a hug, followed by a kiss on the cheek. You know he will, Harry, and thanks. I see what you mean about Zay, UGS and kisses, Hermione. You're, Harry, as a way with Zay witches. Oh, it's not just witches, Fleur, my mum's been hugging and kissing him since the first time they met. This drew a fair bit of laughter from the Potter scholars gathered to have lunch together, a ritual that had just grown into an everyday occurrence. They all knew Emma Granger, and the fact she considered Harry her son too. Well, he can expect to be hugged by my mother and sister too. I heard back from them. They want to come whenever they can. We finish up on the 19th, returning on the 3rd. Your family are welcome to stay in Kingusi for as much, or as little, of that as they want. The chalet is being fitted out as guest accommodation and we're hoping to avoid needing wizarding tents in our training room. This saw Dennis and Ewan interrupting. Those tents were great, Harry. Me and my mum loved them. Our dad wanted to buy one for going camping over the summer. We couldn't really take it onto a camping site though. 5 creevies getting out of something that size would be sure to cause questions. Natalie agreed with that too. My dad said Professor McGonagall should take one of them when she tells Muggle-born they're witches or wizards. He thought his back was going to suffer that weekend, until he went inside. 3 furnished bedrooms, a bathroom and even a working kitchen, all in that little space. The McDonalds would certainly be happy staying in one of those tents again. This left Hermione shaking her head. We thought we were putting our guests at an imposition, asking them to stay in tents. It never occurred to us that they see so little magic, this would appeal to them. It's a bit like me, Hermione. I've only celebrated 3 Christmases. The first was with you and Harry in Crawley, the next at Grimmauld with Sirius and last year with the Longbottoms. I don't really care too much where this year's is, just as long as we're all together. A tropical beach might make a nice change. No point in hinting, Padma, I've already given Remus and Tonks use of the island for their honeymoon. Harry then turned to all the Potter scholars. We haven't got our plans finalized for the holidays yet, but we hope to see all of you at Kingusi for at least part of the holidays. That led to a load of yeses, and all are walking about with a beaming smile on her face for the rest of the day. By dinner time, the rumor sweeping the castle was that Lavender Brown was going to the Yule ball, on the arm of Ronald Weasley. Ginny confirmed this news in her own inimitable style. If that bitch cheats on Ron again, after him giving her another chance, I swear I'll scalp her. The little firebrand calmed down somewhat when Dean Thomas approached and asked her to the ball. Dates were being arranged up and down the hall. Victor found himself having to fend off a few pushy Beauxbatons students. I have already asked someone to the ball. They said yes. He then found one of the benefits of being in Hufflepuff as his new housemates rallied round to offer him protection. Even so, some of the witches were dying to know just who the lucky girl was. All Victor was saying on the matter was that a gentleman never tells. They would all see his date at the ball. Arthur was having a ball. The Muggle government had offered him anything they wanted for the chance to catch the Potter killers, even military assistance. That was why Arthur and Bill found themselves in a special government electronics lab, one that had a clearance so secret the people they were working with could certainly be trusted with the knowledge magic exists. The 3 people they were currently working with were really skeptical, but their orders had come from the very top. When Bill disapparated right in front of them, all that skepticism vanished with him. They were now every bit as excited as Arthur. This was as new to them as all the gadgets and equipment were to the ministry official. That same ministry official was astonished as the large screen was suddenly zooming in on an aerial picture of Ottery Street catchpole. The flashing dot he was told indicated Bill was walking alongside an area of the map that appeared not quite as sharp as the rest. After the previously agreed upon 5 minutes, Bill entered the Burrows wards, and the signal disappeared. That's roughly what we would have expected to happen. Wards disrupt signals for electronic equipment. There are a few charms some witches and wizards born to non-magical parents have come up with, specifically to allow television and radio signals through. The people we need these devices for though would need to be tracked to an area that will be deliberately masking any and all signals. We have our own way of placing tracking charms, those however will certainly be targeted too. While Arthur was now fairly knowledgeable on the Muggle world, the conversations he was listening to here were way above his head. After a while, Arthur really had to say something. Let me see if I've got the gist of this. It should be easier because only the transmitter, and not the detection equipment, will come into contact with shields and magic. Also that there might be 4 sources helps, and yes, I think they will be able to activate their transmitters just before the event. Good, that means we can have them cycling through multiple frequencies and methods, something that is murder on power requirements. That they can switch them on, and we don't have to make them minute, will help with that problem too. A returning Bill had a set of ward stones from Gringotts. Both Weasleys marked an area of floor in a nearby cleared room before placing the stones on the floor and activating them, giving the technicians a defined warded area to work with. Arthur and Bill then left to report to their bosses on what was a very productive meeting. The usual meeting with the Blacks that Saturday took a very unusual twist. All their parents and Amelia were present for a start. After all the greetings, and sending for Parvati, it was time to get down to business. It was a rather somber Barchoke who started them off. We've hit a problem, a very big problem. When the Muggle government discovered the 4 people who might be facing the Potter killers were all under 16, well they hit the roof. They are pulling all their cooperation and making threatening noises against the ministry for even contemplating such a thing. We really don't know what to do next. Their trackers were showing the best promise. There's certainly something Riddle won't deliberately shield against. The group assembled had gotten so used to treating their children as adults, their actual ages were sometimes forgotten. Dan at least could see how his government could reach the decision to support the use of what they see as children being used as soldiers could easily bring down any Westminster government. It's something that's really hard to argue against, especially since none of us in this room are happy or even comfortable with the situation either. It was left to Harry to try and put things into perspective. With or without their help, Voldemort is going to make his play. Knowing this could be our best chance to end the war, I'm still going to take that chance. I'm an adult in 2 of the 3 societies that affect our lives. The Muggle government are not going to be able to stop me doing this. What if we set up some kind of meeting, on our terms though? If they tried to take us 4 into protective custody, or something silly like that, things could go bad so quickly. Hermione liked that idea, already knowing she would be facing Voldemort at Harry's side. Who are we dealing with? Could we invite them to Kingusi for the weekend? This drew a groan from Emma. What happened to the girl who got her knickers in a twist because Harry asked the Minister of Magic to his birthday party? Now that same girl wants to invite the Prime Minister of Britain to stay for the weekend. Harry was off his seat and hugging Emma. Mum, that's bloody brilliant. Let's invite the Minister and the Director too. The 3 heads of government can share their views on the matter. This also sparked something in Padma. Why don't we invite Borislaw as well? The Bulgarians certainly want Voldemort's head on a stick after what happened at the World Cup. If the British government refused to help us, Borislaw could approach the Bulgarian one for help. This had serious beaming. I've taught them well. I also remember Minister Murphy vowing to help. That means we have the Irish as an option too. Meeting this lot, talking with their parents and then discovering that there are other governments willing to help should put enough pressure on this Prime Minister to see him cave. What about inviting Professor Snape too? Neville's words silenced everyone, all knew though he wouldn't have mentioned this without a good reason. Who knows more about Death Eaters, and what they're capable of, than a former Death Eater? Mum and Dad can share some of their experiences but they're my parents, we need someone impartial to give that kind of information. Why don't you just go the whole hog and invite the Queen too? This focused all eyes on Emma again. It was a joke, people. No, it was just a joke. Please, don't take that serious. A.N. Thanks for reading. A.N. to the school where I have worked for the last 32 years has just been threatened with closure. Needless to say, I am heavily involved with the fight against the bulldozers. I currently have no way of knowing how much of my time this will take up. I'll do my best to retain my posting schedule. As usual though, I have not one word of the next chapter written. Vignettes. Harry Crow. A.N. Thanks for the offers of support regarding my job prospects. I'm in no danger of having to find another one right away. We're just at the proposal stage of this merger but it's here we need to stop it. If passed, it becomes almost impossible to get that decision reversed at a later date. They want to merge 2 very good schools into one large new one. Disregarding all the other issues that action throws up, they want to build this school for almost 1,600 students right alongside a toxic waste containment facility. This facility consists of nothing more than a giant hole they poured tens of thousands of tons of toxic waste into, and then stuck a hill on top. All this is being done in the name of saving money, since no one else would be stupid enough to live on this piece of land. I know it sounds like a plot for mutant children or the X-Men, but even fanfiction authors aren't crazy enough to come up with something like that. Needless to say, we're busy getting organized to try and stop this madness. Chapter 96. As Emma's voice slowly became a whine of protest, she was soon drowned out with the family's laughter at her self-induced predicament. The laughter had barely died before Padma kicked it off again. She was sitting with her godson on her lap, a godson who had apparently just filled his nappy. Wrinkling her nose, Padma's comic timing was superb. Emma, even Jamie has managed to show what he thought of that idea. It stinks. The laughter resumed, but Dobby soon had Jamie popped away and changed. It only took a moment before the now fresh baby was back in Padma's arms. It was a moment though that changed more than Jamie. Hermione was first to notice Harry staring into space as if he'd just had an epiphany. This had her worried. Harry, you don't really think the Queen could help us, do you? Without breaking his focus, Harry issued an instruction. Call for Betsy. The little elf appeared the instant Harry mentioned her name, and well before Hermione had time to call her. Harry knelt beside Betsy, looking right into the elf's large eyes. Betsy, can you find Hermione, no matter where she is? Betsy always knows where Mistress is, and if she needs her Betsy. Now was the million-galleon question. The entire extended family had gone silent. Realization of where Harry was going with this began to permeate the room. Betsy, could you take someone to help Hermione if a bad wizard stole her away? The little elf was soon clinging to Hermione. Someone is trying to steal Betsy's mistress. Who would do such a terrible thing? The Dark One is going to try and steal me, and Hermione will be by my side. Could you bring Father or Dan to wherever he takes us? Dobby popped into the room at hearing that. You is family, Dobby can find you too. Dobby can take Master Dan and his guns to wherever the evil one takes Dobby's family. Two more elves popped in, one proudly wearing the Potter crest while the other was clearly from the castle. The Potter elves will be able to find their lord and lady, and able to take help to them, if that is what Master wants. The Hogwarts elf was not about to be outdone. You are Hogwarts champion, the castle elves stand ready to help its champion any way elves can. We can find our champion, Hogwarts champion is our family. It was Amelia who broke the silence that followed these revelations. The answer was right in front of us all this time. We ignored it because we ignore the elves, until we want something. Hermione was trying to comfort and upset Betsy. He only thinks he's stealing us, Betsy. We know what he's up to and, with all your help, we can beat him. Betsy will bring Father as soon as she can. Evil one took Mistress Lily, he's not getting you. She was clinging to Hermione as if that would stop the entire incident happening. Dobby and Master Dan will be there also. Evil one will not harm Dobby's family. It was Alice who saw the possibilities. Getting an advanced squad there as quickly as possible would also allow us to put trackers on them. We could have 100 warriors and auras there within a minute. A smiling Harry thanked the elves before turning his attention to Barchoke. Father, I think we should tell the Muggle government we respect their customs, and ask that they respect ours. We four are considered adults in our own societies, and are clearly doing this of our own free will. Harry's gaze shifted to Hermione, still trying to comfort and upset Betsy. No offense to your queen, Emma. With Hermione's life at stake, I'd far rather put my trust in someone who loves her as much as we do. We've come this far relying on our family, that same family can now take us all the way. Harry now had the bit between his teeth as he addressed the room. This bastard almost wiped out the Potters, Bones, Longbottoms and had a damned good try at eradicating all the Muggle-borns too. My brother and my goddaughter would be killed without mercy or remorse. It's time to stop this, and that time is now. Even Dan and Emma could feel the power radiating off Harry as he declared his intentions. Hermione of course was now at his side, but Neville had moved to stand behind the couple, being joined by Padma cradling Jamie in her arms. It was a powerful scene. Neville's words then added to the visual effect. I remember Hermione once asking Harry why it was always him who had to do what he did. Harry replied that it was because only he could. Only the four of us can do this, and that's the way it has to be. Tonks wasn't buying that. She had an idea. Harry, Hermione and I have blood-bonded linked portkeys. Could that be used to get me in there too? My job is to guard his back, and I'm not happy about them leaving without me. This led to a question from Ramrau. If that can be done for Tonks, couldn't we add more linked portkeys to theirs? These questions snapped Barchoke out of the stupor he'd drifted into. Like everyone else, he'd been focused on the Muggle tracking systems as their best option for finding their children. From the feedback they were getting from Arthur and Bill, a weekend in Kingusi wasn't going to change any Muggle minds over this matter. They were horrified at the ages of the four who would face Voldemort, and there really was nothing to be done about that. Now his son had just come up with a tracking method that was practically foolproof, and something the Dark One wouldn't even think to guard against. He was sometimes in awe of the way the youngsters saw things their elders missed, simply because they had a different view of what was all around them. It was time to get back to business though. Ramrau, this type of portkey normally only work in pairs. It took a lot of effort to get that number up to 3. Adding even one more would severely weaken what was already there, weakened to the point it no longer worked. Tonks, that's a brilliant idea, but I don't know the answer. You can bet we'll be looking into it though. At the moment, our best guess is this blood-bound portkey will take its victim to an area that's heavily warded. These wards will be key to the sample of blood they already have, and even the elves won't be able to get us past them. This had Harry worried, though not for himself. It took Voldemort and 24 of his Death Eaters at least a couple of minutes to pull the wards on Amelia's property down. That might be how long we'll need to fight before you can get through to us. A strong hand clamped on his shoulder at that. We can do this, Harry, don't even think about leaving us behind. I'll set Padma on you. Her betrothed's argument found total agreement from the witch in question. It's time to see if all this exercise has been worth it. Hit and keep moving. They won't be expecting 4 of us. We can hopefully use that surprise to take one of them out. Then it will be 4 against 2. We might even have the job finished before Amelia gets those wards down. I will be there with every wand I can muster. No wards will last 2 minutes against that amount of firepower. Then you drop to the ground and we'll do the rest. Your job is not to be hit by any of the Death Eaters while we're ripping those wards down. You don't have to win the war on your own. Amelia was trying to smile as she said that, inside though her heart was breaking at sending these 4 teenagers up against Voldemort. Those wards would be down in under a minute, she wouldn't accept even 1 second over that from her people. It was Alice who brought up a distasteful subject. Whatever we may think, no one here can deny that Albus Dumbledore is a powerful wizard. That power could help bring those wards down faster. As Amelia just mentioned, we will be in a situation where every single second will count for our children. That idea hung in the room like a bad smell, one that was a lot worse than Jamie's nappy. Though they could see her point, no one was quite sure what to make of Alice's suggestion. Amelia was the one who finally tackled the problem. Yes, Dumbledore is powerful, but can we really trust him in what would certainly be a critical situation? If I have to assign 3 auras to watch him, that's 3 less ones that could be attacking those wards. Frank then surprised everyone by speaking out. We could do it. Shoot the BB bastard if he tried anything. Oh, how Barchoke liked that idea. I could also have some warriors there to support Frank and Alice, with their blades poking into Dumbledore's ribs. Let Dumbledore think he can redeem himself by helping us bring down those wards, and then we can arrest him as soon as Voldemort is dealt with. A final manipulation of the wizard who considers himself the great puppet master. The family liked that idea, Augusta, Tonks, Harry and Hermione knowing they had until the end of January to refine any plans further. While all expected the third task would be Voldemort's targeted event, they would be taking every precaution for the second task too. It would be foolish not to do so. Recognizing they'd done all they could for the moment, they broke into smaller groups as the family caught up on just what had been happening since they last all got together. Tonks was discussing her idea with Barchoke while Remus' arm slipped around his fiancée. Tonks leaned into him as she spoke. You know I've got to try this, love. Even if there's a small chance of me getting in this fight with them, I've got to take it. Remus leaned in and tenderly kissed her worries away. That's what I get for asking an Auror to marry me. I'll be outside those wards, pouring everything I have into bringing them down. They were joined by Sirius who confirmed the Blacks would be doing the same. You better keep a place there for the Hobsons too, both are very fond of those 4. Lucas will rip Voldemort in half with his bare hands if he harms any of them. Since we have some idea of the ward structure they're working on, and access to the blood they'll use to bind them, the nation's warders are working on a different way to make their wards fail. I'm with Amelia on this, there is no way our children will be in there with Voldemort for 2 minutes. The director has decreed this task is the nation's top priority, from now until we end this. He will be delighted to know we now have a reliable way to track them. The Granger females were watching their men, both Harry and Dan looking extremely comfortable, chatting to each other with a baby in their arms. I can't believe how big Jamie is getting, he seems to be growing by leaps and bounds. Emma though was concentrating on Dan, standing with Astrid cradled in his arms. I remember when your father held another little girl in his arms like that, and it doesn't seem so long ago either. You're one to talk about leaps and bounds, love. You've been growing and blooming ever since we took you to King's Cross that first time when you were 11. Now you're ready to go off and fight a war. Mum, Harry is my future, my life. I couldn't stand there and let him go off to fight without me, no matter how much you, Dad, or even Harry himself wants me to. It would destroy me, I need to be there. I'll be fighting at his side, doing my very best to ensure both of us return. I know you will, Hermione, I just hope your idea of sharing blood works. Her daughter's deep blush at that comment told its own story to her mother, but Hermione held her head high as Emma probed for more. I take it you have decided on other methods to ensure you're accepted by this Portkey, and any wards. Harry is going to be my husband, Mum, the date is already set. Completing our bond before the third task ensures I'll be at his side for this fight, how could I not choose to do that? Emma's arm was now supportively around her daughter. I said you were growing up fast. I'm sorry that the circumstances make you feel you have no other choice in this matter, but you must know that your young man treasures you for the wonderful young witch that you are. This saw Hermione return her mother's hug. Thanks, Mum, for being so understanding. You were much easier to convince than Harry was. She had always been open with Hermione, they had a bond of trust where her daughter knew she could come to her about anything. Emma thought Hermione had luckily missed out on all the potential pitfalls that was teenage dating, but that wasn't strictly true. Her daughter simply had an entirely different set of pitfalls to navigate. Emma though managed to surprise herself. Here they were, talking about Hermione's first foray into actual sex, and her mother had an uncontrollable urge to laugh. Hermione's pout at having to convince Harry to take that final step just finished Emma off. She was holding on to her daughter and giggling with laughter. Newham, it's not funny. Her laughter had their 2 menfolk looking over to see what was going on. Emma whispering to Hermione, just as well they don't know what I'm laughing at, set Hermione off too. The more perplexed Dan and Harry were at this, the more Hermione and Emma laughed. Sapphire found herself working alongside Penny and Percy, with Bill supervising all of their training. The wizarding couple had both been raised in pureblood environments, while Sapphire of course had a goblin upbringing. Percy and Penny had been working using Henrika's book on goblins as the guide. Having Sapphire added to the group certainly increased their learning curve. For Sapphire, having a witch and wizard she could ask questions of was a great help. All 3 though were lacking on any muggle background, Bill was now able to help with that. He'd been seeing a lot of Jenny and had no intention of letting any cultural differences scupper the growing relationship. Barchoke had immediately given his approval for Jenny to be in Gringotts 1 day a week as a muggle consultant to their department. She refused all payment for this, citing she was already indebted to them for Ewins and her scholarships. Barchoke though ensured his assistant ambassador took Jenny for a nice lunch, and then dinner after work. Since he stipulated that at least one of these meals should be in the muggle world, and the rest of the department were required to attend, he easily justified the expense involved as training. By wearing a hat to cover her ears, Sapphire was able to blend in enough so as not to draw any unwanted attention. The streets of Muggle London were full of the weird and wonderful, one of the reasons purebloods could get away with their outlandish attempts at Muggle dress. In London, where there was a new version of odd around every corner, it was rather hard to stand out. Sapphire was loving her apprenticeship, even more so since Barchoke decreed that time spent at Kingusi would be considered work. Just by hanging out with her friends and having fun, Sapphire would still be learning about the different cultures. That would mean Sapphire could still join her friends during their holidays in Kingusi, and of course she was looking forward to this ball. There were goblin teenagers who had once taunted Sapphire because she was friends with Harry when they were youngsters. Those same teenagers were now intensely jealous as Sapphire appeared fast-tracked for success. That was revenge worthy of a goblin. Even some of her own family were now looking at her in awe. Sapphire could hardly wait to see their faces when she was pictured on the arm of Victor Krum. Fleur Delacour was another young lady whose outlook had changed since meeting a certain goblin. The Beauxbatons champion couldn't remember a time when she had been happier. Not only was she making friends at Hogwarts, she would be spending the Christmas holidays with those friends and her family. After their training one morning, while Harry and Neville were showing Victor the basic positions for wielding a sword, she heard from Hermione and Padma why Kingusi was so important to them. It's not the biggest house Harry owns, but it's the one that feels most like home to us. Last summer, it felt as if half the country visited our home over the weekend of the fair. We have goblin families living and working in Kingusi now too. Our brother was christened there and the four of us are getting married in Kingusi the summer after next. Our family and friends know they're welcome anytime, and tend to drop by more often than not. Harry appears happiest when the house is bursting at the seams, which again it is more often than not. Quote ellipsis. And poor Hermione never seems to get any alone time with Harry because of it. Padma was chuckling as she teased her best friend. Don't let her fool you, Fleur. Hermione is very much the lady of the manor and loves the company as much as Harry. The first birthday party she threw had the Minister of Magic and the Director of the Nation in attendance, as well as a few hundred other guests she invited. Hey, Harry invited both of them. He didn't even tell me about it, till the night before. This drew a loud, what, from Fleur, causing the three guys to look over. She lowered her voice before asking the question she really wanted answered. How did you cope with that? Oh, I was angry, but it's hard to stay angry at Harry for long. He was actually right not to be worried about it, and I learned a valuable lesson. Kingusi is our home. Crow's Nest is the way it is, and we are the way we are. Other people might find it strange, even unusual. It's our home though, and we wouldn't change anything. Well, perhaps a few more rooms for all the guests your mate keeps inviting. Padma, it could be the size of Buckingham Palace and Harry would still somehow manage to fill it. Receiving a pair of blank looks forced Hermione to explain. Buckingham Palace is the official London residence of the Queen. I seem to remember it has over 250 bedrooms, though a lot of them are set aside for servants. Next time we're in London I'll take you to see it. It's just along the Mall from Trafalgar Square. This at least gave Padma some sort of reference, having visited the square before. It also led to another question. Will we be visiting London to do any shopping before Christmas? Oh, I dare say we could convince these two to take us. Padma then had another idea. What about a day in Harrods? We could invite everyone. I'd love to see Pansy's face when she walks in those doors. Hey, Patil, I still remember your first trip into Muggle London. You were pretty starry-eyed yourself. I can't believe you remember that. You were far too busy holding Harry's hand and staring into those green eyes you love so much. Fleur was now getting used to these two and wanted to get her question in before this escalated. Go back to where you mentioned a shopping trip. This had both girls laughing. Don't worry, Fleur, you'll love it. Do you think you can swing it past the parents, Hermione? I've just had a wonderful idea exactly how we can do that. Involve the Potter scholars. The Creeveys, McDonald's and Jenny Abercrombie would love to show their children's magical friends some of their world. Little Maggie would certainly love that idea. Maggie Creevey is Colin's young sister. She's 9 and besotted with Harry. Now, Padma, we don't want to start mentioning Creevey crushes, do we? That Padma actually looked embarrassed meant it was Hermione's turn to laugh, and explain why to Fleur. Colin actually had quite the crush on Padma here. She broke his heart by becoming betrothed to Neville. Isn't Colin Luna's boyfriend? Fleur's question silenced both girls. He's just asked her to the ball. Don't even joke about that. Hermione was nodding her agreement. There isn't a word in the goblin language for protective. They don't need one. Goblin females are prohibited from working on the main bank floor. That's because any customer giving a female teller abuse would quickly find themselves acquainted with goblin steel. Harry likened his centurion position to that of a knight of old. Honor, chivalry and courage are all things he lives his life by. Now add in that he certainly considers Luna part of our family, and you can see there is a recipe there for a disaster. Goblins don't date as we would consider it. They just hang out with friends until they find their mate. That's almost exactly what happened between Neville and me, so Harry was fine with it. There is also the fact he trusts my Neville with Hermione's life. Harry's trying to learn, but inside he'll always be a goblin. First boy who hurts one of the girls is going to find Harry waiting on them. If either of those girls is Luna or Sapphire, we're going to have to try and stop him committing a murder. He likes Colin though. Harry might actually approve of that, eventually. Hermione saw Fleur staring at her and tried to justify what she'd just said. Harry is a wonderful person. Like the rest of us though, he has his faults, and then there's the cultural differences. In his culture that way of acting is not only right, it's positively expected. She found herself being interrupted by the Vila. Hermione, I think it is wonderful. I am trying to convince my parents. Hogwarts might be a better school for Gabrielle. Beauxbatons has been a lonely place for me. Harry's influence certainly makes the castle safer for a young Vila. Hermione was also thinking a Potter scholarship could go a very long way to easing Gabrielle's journey through Hogwarts. That was something though she would bring up with Harry in private. Their earlier talk of the Christmas holidays had Padma far too excited to let that conversation drop. This is far too serious. Let's go and tell our other halves about Hermione's wonderful shopping idea. My idea. It was you who suggested it. I just improved on that suggestion. Fleur was now looking forward to the holidays even more, and knew Gabrielle would love it too. What Fleur didn't know was that both these girls understood the final conflict would soon be upon them. Hermione and Padma had more steam to let off than usual. They also certainly intended to live life to the full until then. Luna well remembered this lesson. She'd experienced it firsthand. Last year Harry had asked her and Colin to put on a display of what they'd learned to the newest marauders. The four assistants were helping Susan and Blaise offer comfort to the latest marauders while Hannah and Terry set out a dueling area. The introduction of Natalie and Pauline certainly cheered Ewan, Dennis and Orla up. Watching the 2 second years go at each other meant the pain of those stinging curses would soon be forgotten. Here's what was achievable if they just worked hard. There were loud cheers for the 2 girls after Susan called time on their fight, meaning it was a happy bunch of marauders who then left the room at the end of the meeting. It took a few moments before Luna noticed Colin appeared to deliberately delay the departure, until it was just the 2 of them left. This made her slightly nervous and more than a little excited. Luna, you know I like you, and I'm really looking forward to us going to the ball together. Thing is, there is something I've been meaning to ask you. Would you like to go to that ball with me, as my girlfriend? She didn't really trust her voice at that moment, so Luna just nodded. A much relieved Colin then asked a follow-on question. Would it be okay if I kissed my girlfriend? Again, she could only nod, though considerably quicker this time. Colin leant in and, a gentle kiss later, both had a wide smile on their faces. Taking her hand, Colin led his new girlfriend out of the room to escort Luna back to Ravenclaw. Now all I've got to do is tell Harry. Colin, will you deliberately hurt me? What, never, you know that, Luna. I know, so leave Harry to me. I'll have a chat with him. They walked hand in hand to the Ravenclaw dorm where another gentle kiss was exchanged as the new couple said goodnight. Luna practically bounced into the Ravenclaw common room, drawing attention from all who were there. She made straight for Harry, he was of course sitting beside Hermione. Deciding to take the bull by the horns, Luna skipped right over and plonked herself down on Harry's lap. Noticing Hermione biting her lip to stop laughing helped Luna say what she needed to. Harry, after tonight's meeting, Colin asked me to be his girlfriend. It's something I'm very happy about, and we both know he'll never deliberately hurt me. We've been friends so long that, if this doesn't work out, we could still be friends afterwards. Are you going to be okay with that? Are we still okay? At that, Harry's arms snaked around Luna. He pulled her closer and kissed her forehead. As long as you're happy, that's the main thing for me, Luna. Luna's arms were around him at that and squeezed tightly. You're the best brother in the whole world, was whispered in his ear. Luna kissed his cheek and then shot off to tell the rest of her friends the good news. There was also a letter she needed to write to Sapphire. As he watched her go, Harry found himself the recipient of another kiss. You handled that well, love. Luna's happiness is the important thing here, and it's easy to see she's happy. I want her to know I'll always be there if she ever needs me, but not intrude to the point where it stops her leading the life she wants to lead. Does that make sense, or do I sound like some nutter? He found himself being answered by another kiss. That's perfect, Harry. I'm anything but perfect, Hermione. If that was anyone else but Colin, my reaction might have been different. If I thought some wizard was trying to take advantage of her. Hermione's kiss this time was more to take Harry's mind away from the direction it had been wandering. Just by you being you, the wrong type of wizard wouldn't go anywhere near Luna, or any of our close friends. It seems the hat was right to put Colin into Gryffindor. This drew a smile from Harry, as did watching a happy Luna with her friends. This is why we train, Hermione, why we're ready to fight. Look how happy Luna is, and not one person has mentioned the fact she's a pure-blood yet Colin is a muggle born. It doesn't matter to us, and it shouldn't matter to anyone else. This is worth fighting for. Harry found himself being kissed again as Hermione showed she agreed with that. Draco and Pansy were sitting in the Slytherin common room, like Harry and Hermione, just enjoying some alone time together. Are you looking forward to going home for the holidays? This saw Draco's brows furrowing. I don't know how Harry puts up with it. I certainly miss the peace and quiet since our home is full all the time. There are so many people staying at the manor now, our mothers are forced to share a room. The bright blush this induced in Pansy told Draco he was missing something here. He waited on his betrothed telling him just what that something was. I don't think the people taking refuge in Malfoy Manor have anything to do with our mothers sharing a bedroom. What else would it be? Oh. With his eyes almost popping out of his head, Draco looked to his betrothed for confirmation. The slight nod of Pansy's head then had Draco spinning. A very anxious Pansy tried to wait on Draco giving some indication of his thoughts on this. Pure-blood society, especially pure-blood wizards, really frowned on this type of relationship. That it was both their mothers just added further levels of complexity to the problem. The tension as she waited on Draco saying anything at all was getting to her, so Pansy began to babble. I don't know what things were like in your home. With the Parkinsons my father's word was law. My mother's opinion on anything was neither asked for nor would be listened to. She was the lady of the house but there was no power behind the position. They may have loved each other when they were younger but that love was long gone by the time I came along. I can't even remember seeing my parents kiss. Draco ended her panic with a kiss of his own, before reassuring his betrothed. We are not our parents. You will be the Lady Malfoy, someone who will be at my side for the rest of our lives. My father curtailed everything my mother could do, including her access to the Malfoy vaults. She was limited to what she could withdraw, and then the ministry took that when she tried to use it to get my father out of the ministry cells. The more he thought about the situation, the more Draco's mind was made up. My father would have left us in Hogwarts, knowing we were in great danger from the Horcrux he sent here. It was my mother who drew her wand before rushing to the castle to get me home. If being together makes our mothers happy, then I don't see it being anyone's business but their own. My mother certainly deserves some happiness in her life. It sounds like your mother is the same. Pansy was so proud of Draco, she almost jumped on him at that point. There was no further talking for a while. Padma and Neville were also talking about the relationships of others. You must have noticed the change in Hermione, she seems much more self-assured now. The only thing I can think of to do that was if she and Harry had decided to complete their bond. I'm certain they haven't yet, I'm sure I would know. It was with a fair degree of dryness in his mouth that Neville asked Padma what she thought about that. Trying to hide her blush, Padma answered as honestly as she could. If I was in Hermione's position, it's something I would definitely do. You are mine and no Dark Lord is going to take you from me. Completing their bond means any Portkey or wards will accept Hermione too. Struggling to get the words out, Neville finally managed to say what he wanted to. Where does that leave us? Padma snuggled into him, hiding her face so Neville couldn't see how much she was blushing. I think it's something we should consider too. When Neville tensed up in her arms, a now emotional Padma gave her reason behind that last remark. Down in the Chamber of Secrets, all of us carried an amazing amount of luck. That luck has to run out sometime, love, and I have a bad feeling about this. We can't let them face this alone, but the chances of all of us getting through this in one piece are not great. I want you to know what's waiting for you after this battle. If it makes you fight just that little bit harder, then it will be worth it. I love you, Neville Longbottom, there is no plan B. I am yours and you are mine, that's the way it's got to be. I need you right where you are now, and you need to be there for me. Neville lifted her face to his, gently wiped away the tears that were forming in the corners of her beautiful eyes, before kissing Padma with all the tenderness he possessed. You're right, there's no way we could let Harry and Hermione face this without us. I can also assure my beautiful mate I will be hitting them with everything I have. You don't need to do this, Padma, I'm more than willing to wait until you're ready. Basking in the love her mate was showing her, Padma only had one answer to that. Neville, I think I'm ready now. I know you're a Ravenclaw, and this is a quiet table, but really, here in the library. This put a smile on Padma's face. Mr. Longbottom, you know fine well I didn't mean right this very minute, you could get me barred from the library if we got caught. This started both of them chuckling, quietly of course. If you want to take that step, love, then I will certainly go along with you. I think it has to be a decision taken for the right reasons though. Neville, facing up to a Dark Lord and his minions seems like a bloody good reason to me. What's so funny? Oh, just the thought of Lestrange being described as a minion. Only you, Padma, only you. Another kiss followed before they decided to leave the library. There would be no more studying done today, and they needed somewhere a little more private to continue this discussion. After poring over the books Dung had managed to acquire, Dumbledore was coming to the same conclusions as the nation. He was also faced with the same problem, how to track the boy once he had left. Albus had an advantage though because Dolores was surely going to be tasked with planting this portkey. She would then certainly bring it to him for his assistance with this matter. That would give Albus some time to try and decipher the coordinates the portkey was set to deliver the boy to. There were spells for deciphering where a portkey had gone. They were extremely complex to cast, required a load of magical power and needed to be cast directly after the portkey had activated. In the confusion that would follow Harry being abducted, he could easily make a show of casting this spell. Albus would then lead the rescue party to the location he'd already predetermined. The mistake Tom was making with these wards was an obvious one. Tying them to a person's blood certainly increased the power of those wards, right up until that person died. When Tom completed the prophecy, those wards would come crashing down, and Albus would be on him. The remaining rescuers could bear witness that they had been helpless to save the boy, yet Albus Dumbledore avenged Harry by banishing his second Dark Lord. That should see his waning star shoot straight back to its former stellar orbit. Thanks for reading. I would also like to mention the reader who took the time to nominate me for the latest round of fan fiction awards. While flattering, ever since I started writing my answer has always been the same. After receiving news of my nomination from the organizers, I asked for that nomination to be removed. I write purely for my own enjoyment and am constantly amazed that others actually like what I do. That is better than any award to me. Balls. Harry Crow. Disclaimer, while Harry Crow might be my own invention, Harry Potter belongs to JKR. Chapter 97. Fleur had heard talk all week of this event, now she was seeing it for herself. The wondrous room that they trained in every morning, and had hosted the Merlin Ball, now contained a fabulously festive ice rink. Her date was chuckling at her side. We're getting used to this room, if that's at all possible. This is our third Christmas having a party in here, our reactions were pretty similar to yours the first time we saw it. Roger took Fleur over to the tables where the skates were waiting on them, holding hands while skating around the massive Christmas tree would never get old. There were a few staff members proving that point by skating alongside their students. The French champion made another discovery when they eventually sat down to eat. Fred and George introducing the girlfriends made Fleur realize she knew far more members of the lower years than she did tonight's crowd, which was reserved for the 6th and 7th years. What was strange though was none of the group that had Harry at its center acted younger than the people here tonight, quite the opposite. Alicia and Angelina seemed far more interested that their boyfriends knew Victor than that they took lessons with Avila every Sunday, a refreshing change for Fleur. It would also be a change to board the Hogwarts Express tomorrow, heading home with Harry and Hermione for the holidays. Her family would arrive a day later and she was really looking forward to that. Gliding along the ice with Roger at her side was also very pleasant, and boded well for the ball next week. She had dreaded going with someone who would have drooled all over her for the entire evening, the Gryffindor boy McLaggen coming to mind. She would be there with Roger, Harry and Hermione, Victor and of course his mysterious date. The girls here tonight were all watching the Bulgarian champion like hawks, each hoping for some clue as to who he was taking to the ball. If his date was here tonight, she was a superb actress. Neither she nor Victor were giving anything away. Hermione still had her planner out as the express sped toward London. Okay, the Delacours are arriving tomorrow. The Creeveys, McDonald's and Abercrombie's on the 23rd, then it's just family until the evening of Christmas Day. After that party, we have Tonks and Remus getting married on the 27th and New Year will be celebrated at Kingusi too. That's a lot of work, Hermione. I know my parents offered to host New Year. It was Harry who quickly cut her off. No, Padma, until this is over we need to keep our families close. Your home may have the same wards as Crow's Nest but it doesn't have squads of goblin warriors based there. We're getting so near to a final solution, now is not the time to be taking the slightest chance. Harry stopped as they were interrupted again by people popping in to wish them a Merry Christmas. When it was once more just the four of them, he continued. We know this is going to be over soon. Until it is, let's keep everyone together as much as possible. I want this to be our best Christmas ever. None of them mentioned it might be their last, the thought was there in the back of all their minds though. Platform 9 3/4 was a happy place as families were once more reunited. Harry couldn't help but notice Orla's accent slipping right back to where it originally was the instant she started talking with her parents. Harry wanted to make sure the Quirks understood they were welcome at both the Christmas and New Year events being held in Kingusi. He was promised Orla's owl would let them know the decision beforehand. Tonks was waiting for them on the platform. Her portkey would take all of them to Kingusi where their families were waiting. Hermione and Padma were left chuckling at Harry, who was trying to ignore Luna kissing Colin goodbye. Bill was standing beside a very happy mother and son, his gaze though still picked up Ginny watching Luna with her boyfriend. How's my favorite sister? Those Marauder trainer robes look good on you, Ginny. Just remember what I said, no dating until you're 26. Rolling her eyes at her brother's old joke, Ginny told Bill how things really were. Chance would be a fine thing. All the good wizards seem to be getting snapped up. Dean Thomas invited me to the Yule ball yet has hardly spoken another word to me since asking. Even Ron's got a girlfriend, and he's invited Lavender to Christmas dinner with us. That should be loads of fun. You'll need to tell me about it, I'm having Christmas dinner in Kingusi. Ouch, I bet that news went down well with Mum. About as well as Percy telling her they were spending this Christmas with Penny's family. They intend to do it year about with each family. Not a bad idea, though Mum didn't seem to agree. Is Charlie coming home? Not this year. Oh great, I'm beginning to wish I'd stayed in Hogwarts, it would certainly be more peaceful. At least tell me Dad's not having to work during the holidays. He couldn't help but smile at his sister. After all their initial worries, she was growing into a fine witch. Like teenagers the world over though, Ginny was in such a hurry to grow up. We're not working on anything at the moment that has the potential to see Dad missing the holidays. That's at least something. You here to take us home? Sorry Ginny, Percy's here for that. I'm taking Jenny, Ewan and the McDonalds home. I will be at the Burrow during the holidays though. Ginny found herself hugging her favorite brother, not missing that Bill had said the Burrow rather than home. She wondered if there had been words between Bill and Mum over his choice of girlfriend. Ginny hadn't spoken to Ron's girlfriend since warning Lavender what would happen if she cheated on her brother, again. Now Ginny was going to have to spend Christmas Day in Lavender's company, and that, combined with her 3 missing sons, would put her mum in a very bad mood too. Ginny couldn't see Christmas in the Burrow being very merry this year. The situation in Kingusi couldn't have been more different. The joy was evident the instant they portkeyed into the training room. They might have been keeping up with some of the family during Hogwarts meetings, but this was the first time since Jamie's christening they'd seen Sapphire, Lucas, Moa and Zeno. It is a bit much to take in, but it will calm down a bit once everyone gets reacquainted. Oh, hello Mrs. Granger. Hermione warned me but that did not prepare me for this. I would like to thank you for inviting me, and my family. Fleur, it's just Emma, and the Grangers are guests in this house too. It belongs to the Baron of Kingusi, and his mate, Hermione, of course. They are the ones that invited you, the rest of us are just happy you could make it. How did your schoolmates react to you being able to leave Hogwarts? To be honest, Emma, I think I Avenue made more friends in my short time at Hogwarts than I Avenue in my years at Beauxbatons. Anna's which was favorite to represent our school, she has not taken me being chosen champion very well. That I am currently in Zay lead has stopped the critique for a while, but we will just Avenue to see how that goes after Zay's second task. Thankfully Z, Avenue becomes so obsessed with, Victor is taking to the balls that I, Avenue been getting peace, it will not last so. Her laughter may have surprised Fleur but Emma just couldn't help it. I think Victor's date will still have them talking well after the second task. It was clear Emma knew who Victor's date was, that she was looking at the group of girls just confused Fleur more. All of those girls already, Avenue dates for Zayball, Zere is no way, Harry would let, Hermione go with someone else. Oh, you're right about that, you just missed one of the girls. It hit Fleur like a sledgehammer. Sacré bleu, Sapphire. That stopped all conversation and saw everyone looking toward the French champion, leaving Fleur no choice but to ask the question that was already on her lips. Sapphire is Victor's date for the ball. This saw the goblin in question laughing. That was supposed to be kept quiet, Emma. Not even 10 minutes. No one here is going to spoil your big entrance, Sapphire. Fleur really needed to know though. With Harry, Hermione, Roger and Victor already at the top table, adding Fleur will give you total support amongst the champions. Ooh, I know Roger already counts you as a friend, I hope I can be one too. It was a smiling Harry who settled the matter. Fleur, you're in Kingusi now. We're all friends or family here. The girl in question couldn't help but notice that fact later at dinner. Outside her home, Fleur was struggling to remember when she'd eaten a meal in friendlier company. Harry was having a wonderful dream where he and Hermione were getting really friendly, only to discover he wasn't dreaming. His voice was barely above a whisper as he asked the first question that came into his newly awakened brain. Hermione, what are you doing? I would have thought that was obvious, Harry. Okay, why are you in my bed and doing what you're doing? Don't you want me to be doing this? Hermione, I'm holding on to my remaining senses here by a thread. You never do anything without a reason though, and I want to hear that reason before I don't care anymore. Hermione snuggled in close, her whispering in his ear wreaking further havoc to Harry's already weakened defenses. We agreed to finalize our bond before the third task. I don't really want my first time to be in Hogwarts. This means so much more to us, it will make us husband and wife. We shouldn't be sneaking about the castle's corridors looking for a quiet room to do that. The reason why the Blacks, Hobsons and Delacours are all sleeping in the new chalet accommodation begin to make sense. You have no idea how difficult it was to organize everyone so not to have others sharing our bedrooms. I'm almost frightened to ask, is that why Neville has a room to himself too? When no answer came, Harry just held her closer. I know how important this is for us, we were never going to be sneaking about Hogwarts in the middle of the night. Nor are we going to do this while sneaking around Crow's Nest. This is our family home, and it just wouldn't feel right with all our family here. How are we supposed to face them in the morning? He could practically feel the confusion and disappointment radiate from his mate, not a situation he would ever tolerate. Harry quickly banished both conditions. The weekend before the third task, we will leave Hogwarts after our potions class on Friday. That weekend will be spent on the island where, if my beautiful mate still wants to, we will finalize our bond. It took Hermione a moment to answer, and even then she was barely coherent. Really? Really, love. This way I know I won't be worrying about the final task, and what we think that will bring with it. I'll be far too busy looking forward to that special weekend. I hope this will give you something to look forward to as well. Hermione's passionate kiss was all the answer he needed, and almost destroyed his resolve to wait there and then. That sounds absolutely wonderful, Harry. I wasn't really happy sneaking about to do this either, I just couldn't think of any other way. I'm certainly looking forward to that weekend now, and the island will be the absolutely perfect location to finalize our bond. This seems to be something you and Padma have discussed. Should we make this weekend open to them as well? The Patil Beach Chalet is at the other end of the row to the one Father and I use. We can have all the privacy we want. Glad it was dark to hide her blushes. Hermione thought that would be a good idea too. Padma approached me, guessing I'd want to complete our bond to make sure I'd be at your side. She and Neville are considering doing the same. None of us know how this fight is going to turn out. She wants to go into it though as Neville's wife. Having something to look forward to is also a wonderful idea. Sometimes I wish I'd never included you three in this. Harry had to put his hand over Hermione's mouth as she was ready to tear strips off him, and they still needed to be quiet. Then I think of all the things I would have missed out on. Having you here in my arms, our two best friends and their families staying in our home. I'm sorry, Hermione, I might be being selfish here but I wouldn't change a thing. He replaced his hand with his mouth and demonstrated the love he had for his mate with that kiss. It was some time later, and a rather breathless Hermione who eventually answered him. Sometimes, Harry, we have to be selfish. You go right on being so because I'm not going anywhere. Hermione didn't go anywhere, at least not until Betsy woke her in the morning before the house began stirring. It was cold that first morning in Kingusi but Fleur was getting used to her morning workout. The five ran around the estate, wherever possible using the landscape as shelter from the biting wind. When they reached the growing goblin village, they were practically ordered into one of the houses for a warm drink. Sitting sipping hot goblin ale, and surrounded by the children who were all delighted to see them, Harry was pleased to observe the French champion just accepting the goblin hospitality in her stride. Living in the southern part of France hadn't prepared Fleur for December's weather in the Scottish Highlands. Out of the five of them, she was the one most in need of the hot drink. Harry was also pleased none of the children asked why they weren't flying today. That was something he wanted to keep up his sleeve for the moment. There was no escaping though from the children dragging their new friend, Fleur, off to see their favorite exhibit in the Gringotts building. The children got the reaction they were looking for, all were chuckling away as Fleur's chin practically hit the floor. While Harry and Hermione made a point of speaking with the goldsmith and armorer who now had businesses in the building, Padma and Neville were at a still shocked Fleur's side. No matter how many times I see it, I still get shivers right down my spine. Since the goblins rendered the basilisk, and their tailors make most of Neville and my formal clothes, it's about as accurate a portrayal of the situation as it's possible to make. Neville had his arm around Padma to help his mate with those shivers, it certainly helped him too. I prefer to think of my happy memory from that incident. I was scared witless, then Padma grabbed me and kissed those fears away. I was still scared but knew I would do my best to help us all get out of there. All our lives changed that day. Whatever trouble Harry or Hermione get into, the Longbottoms will be there to cover their backs. This earned him a kiss from his mate who then tried to explain further to Fleur. We know beyond question both of them would do the same for us. We're tentatively related because we're Jamie's godparents, but there were much stronger bonds forged that day, bonds forged never to be broken. I'm as close to Hermione now as I am to Parvati, considering Parvati's my twin that should tell you something of our relationship. Harry is the reason I'm spending Christmas with my parents. They were as lost to me as his mum and dad are to him, yet he brought them back. He refuses even to recognize a debt exists, since my mum is also his godmother, the Longbottoms all know differently though. The end of the war is coming and we'll once more have to fight a deadly foe. Harry will be in the middle of it, Hermione right at his side and we'll have their backs. I just hope we're as lucky again as we were that day. Fleur could see the emotions running through the couple. She put it down to an understandable reaction to what was currently right in front of them. There were so many stories about Harry and his friends circulating Hogwarts that Fleur had fallen into the trap of believing they couldn't possibly all be true. The swords these four always wore were certainly real enough, they were currently strapped to their backs. She'd also seen the medals they wore for the Merlin Ball, those were definitely real too. That they received one of those medals for bringing down the creature currently in front of them was absolutely earning an Order of Merlin the hard way. I haven't you never seen anything like this, and hope I never do. A chuckling Hermione confirmed they never wanted to see another basilisk either. It was because of this that Harry Crow was made Baron of Kingusi, and wizarding law was changed to allow goblins to live outside Gringotts. That's why the director wanted a permanent monument to this in Kingusi. It will always have a special place in the nation's heart. Just like you, love. One visit to the goldsmith and he's offering to make our wedding rings. A goblin-made wedding ring. Oh Hermione, I'm so jealous. Her best friend though had some good news for Padma. Well, there's no need to be, he offered to make yours too. It would have taken him another 20 or 30 years to acquire his own business inside Gringotts. Here he has wonderful facilities and a home for him and his family. There are also a queue of young goblins now applying to apprenticeship under him. Kingusi has changed his life too, and he wants to thank the people who made it possible. Since he has to walk past this every day, he knows exactly who that is. A quick confirmation from Neville saw a now excited Padma hug everyone in range. Our rings will obviously feature my family design. We could see about having a Longbottom family design commissioned and registered. Harry, could ours be your family design too? This request seemed to floor Harry for a moment before a wide smile told Neville he hadn't just put his foot in it. That would be wonderful, Neville. What do you think, ladies? A pair of kisses later told both guys their mates thought that was a wonderful idea too. Fleur was now beginning to get some idea of what Hermione had tried to tell her. This was home for so many reasons other than that they happened to have a house here. It was also staring to realize there was more going on here than was being said. She thought of a few questions on the run home, but they left her head the instant Fleur entered Crow's Nest and discovered her family had arrived in Kingusi. Apolline Delacour was so far out of her comfort zone it was scaring her. The atmosphere in Kingusi was like nothing she'd felt before. Henrika and Moa were helping the Delacour family quickly fit right in. This today, however, was simply beyond her comprehension. There were young witches and wizards of every blood status shopping in this massive Muggle store. Add in both her Vila daughters, a goblin female wearing a hat, the entire group were being supervised by some Muggle parents, and Apolline felt her mental shutdown was not only justifiable but inevitable. Then there was the Weasley wizard to simply confuse her even more. He came from an old pureblood family, yet was assistant ambassador to the Goblin Nation. He was here with his Muggle girlfriend and her magical son, but had also brought his young sister along, a day's shopping as a present for her Christmas. This was certainly not the Britain the Delacours had been expecting. Fleur had written home about some of the changes, but this beggared belief. It had started with a portkey to Gringotts. Watching as goblins saluted and bowed to Harry and Hermione was mind-blowing. A walk through Diagon Alley showed changes too. Practically everyone knew who they were and called greetings. They picked the rest of their party up in the leaky cauldron before a fleet of taxis ferried them to this department store. Gabrielle had been introduced to some of the Hogwarts students after the first task. Those same students had quickly struck up friendships with her youngest daughter when they arrived in Kingusi early this morning. Maggie Creevy was firmly stuck to Gabrielle's side, apparently appreciating having someone nearer her own age, and a girl, to talk with. Apolline was beginning to decipher the hierarchy amongst the group. Dennis, Ewan and Orla were all keeping a close eye on the two younger girls. They in turn were being watched over by Natalie and Pauline. Even though Luna and Colin were walking about holding hands, it was clear they too were acting in a supervisory capacity too. Then there was Harry. He seemed to miss absolutely nothing. Her husband was most impressed with Harry Crow, and he was not an easy man to impress. She was drawn out of her musings by the woman appearing at her side. Are you all right, Apolline? You seemed as if you were in another world there. This drew a small chuckle. Mary, I feel as if I am. Oh good, Roy and I get that quite often. I'm glad it's not just us. Your world can be a confusing place for those of us not raised in it. Funnily, it is my world I find strange. I see Gabrielle, having fun, and Fleur, appears and I, haven't you seen her? It is also hard to miss your Natalie making sure they younger ones are fine. This drew a smile from Mary. When Natalie was offered a Potter scholarship, Roy asked Harry straight off what he expected in return. His answer was very simple. He expected Natalie to do her best at her lessons and look after the younger years who would come behind her. None of the Potter scholars would even dream of letting Harry down, and I'm also pleased to say it's been the making of our daughter. She now has so many friends. Even during the holidays she's writing, phoning or with Ewan. Fleur, as suggested Gabrielle might like Hogwarts better, Weasley she was making joke. Now I see this I am not sure. It was a decision we certainly agonized over. I'm pretty sure we got it right. Harry said he wanted the Potter scholars to be like a family, and that's just how he treats them. Roy and I are getting on in years, and no one knows what the future will bring. We now know that, should anything happen to us, our Natalie will have another family who will step in and look after her. I can't tell you what a comfort that is. Apolline had her hand on Mary's arm. You, haven't you raised a fine daughter, one to be proud of. Let us now do what we came here for and shop. I think our menfolk will need Zere Brandy to do this shooting with Dan in Kingusi. Oh no, Dan has strict safety protocols. Dobby would never hand a gun to someone with alcohol in them. My husband is going to be so disappointed. Apolline was laughing as she and Mary started browsing for things that held their interest. In Harrods, that was many, many things. Bill entered the burrow with a nervous Jenny on his arm. Ginny shouting the names soon alerted the entire house they were there. Molly arrived to see her daughter hugging her favorite brother. It wasn't lost on the mother that Ginny then hugged Jenny just as enthusiastically. Ginny dear, you look beautiful. We thought you would have left by now. Thanks Jenny, we would have if Ronald didn't take so long getting himself ready for his date. If he makes us late. The noise generated by someone thundering down the stairs halted Ginny's rant. Right, keep your hair on, I'm here. All that time, and this is the result. Right, we need to leave, now. Ron was left following behind his sister and waiting twin brothers. The argument hadn't stopped though. Hey Ginny, what's the matter with how I look? I thought I looked good. Dream on, Ron, that was Ginny's final comment as she used their flu to take them directly to the Hogwarts ballroom. Oh dear, Ewan and the group from Kingusi left nearly an hour ago. Bill quickly answered his girlfriend, not wanting either Jenny or his mum to get upset over this. They had to leave early so Harry could open the room. Without that, those four wouldn't have been able to flew there. Arthur was making the couple welcome while Molly busied herself making tea. Soon the four of them were seated and Arthur got the conversation ball rolling. So, how are you enjoying working for Gringotts? I don't really work for the bank, Arthur. I just go in one day a week to try and help Barchoke's department understand a bit more about the non-magical world. He and Harry have done so much for me, I simply had to help out any way I could. This was the first Molly was hearing of this. So you work with Bill, Percy and Penny. Oh yes, and Sapphire too. Oops, that last bit is supposed to be a secret for now. Bill could only smile at that. It's only a secret because Barchoke wants to surprise Harry with it, and he wants to know why his son changed his mind over tonight's ball. It's not a state secret love, more like a joke between father and son. That's a relief. I don't think I'd be very good at keeping secrets. You won't have to worry with these two, they won't tell you any. Will you and your father be going for a walk in the orchard tonight? Bill felt Jenny react at his side. He wanted to kill that idea stone dead. There was no way he would be leaving Jenny alone with his mum. No business tonight, Mum, strictly pleasure. I brought gifts to place under the tree. An excited Arthur tried to move the conversation along. Ginny loved her adventure in Muggle London yesterday. I want to thank you both so much for that. Ginny was even more excited when she came home than she was before she left, something I didn't think was possible. It was no trouble at all, Arthur, she really is a lovely girl. Bill tells us you're studying. Molly tried to keep the interrogation tone out of her voice, but it didn't fool the two Weasley wizards in the room. Yes, I plan to go to university next year and I'm studying for the entry qualifications to do so. I always thought I would study law, but now I'm not so sure. My age would be against me getting a job in that field, and I've also discovered I like teaching. Bill didn't want to influence her decision but highlighted an option Jenny had probably overlooked. I know a certain goblin who would just love to have someone working for him who understood Muggle law. I think that's what Hermione wants to do too, and she's the smartest witch to enter Hogwarts for many a year. Arthur again tried to get into the conversation before his wife fired off more questions. Well, I know Percy and Penny rave about your lessons, both feel they are learning so much about the Muggle world. Molly though was not to be denied the information she craved. I understand you're staying in Kingusi for Christmas. Rather than being in any way intimidated by the question, Jenny's entire face lit up at that. Oh yes, it will be wonderful. Normally it's just Ewan and I celebrating Christmas together. This year we'll be surrounded by friends, and people who we've started to think of as family. Ewan's never had that before, so this is already his best ever Christmas. Seeing him standing there tonight, surrounded by friends and all dressed up to go to a ball, we would have been here earlier but I must have cried for 15 minutes after they left. Jenny felt her hand being taken, surprised it was the one next to Molly. When Bill left for Hogwarts, I cried for days. I had 6 other children still at home but my heart was breaking because one of them was missing. His first letter home started the whole process off all over again. It's been the same every September when another one left. The day the twins got on the express, this house felt so empty. When Ewan left in September, I stayed with the McDonalds for a few nights. I had eventually to force myself back into my own home. Bill then took Jenny's other hand. Roy and Mary would have been sorry to see you go. They miss their Natalie too. Molly was now looking directly at her eldest son and smiling. There were tears in the corners of both mothers' eyes and all could tell her words were heartfelt. It's very hard for a mother to let them go. Children grow up though, not something any of us can change, or would want to. Where is this university? Both male Weasleys now relaxed. Molly was still going to ask questions, but the last vestiges of hostility had now disappeared. If there was one thing Molly Weasley could recognize, it was a good mother. Jenny Abercrombie fell squarely into that category. That made Jenny all right in Molly's book. Anything else could be dealt with over time. Roger arrived in the corridor outside the room of requirements to find the 3 champions waiting on him. He kissed Fleur's cheek in greeting before providing the French champion with a corsage to wear. Nodding in recognition to the others, he had a question for Victor. Your date not here yet, or have you been stood up? Miss Sapphire allowed me the honor of escorting her to the ball. He had of course noticed Sapphire there. Roger would bet he'd just done the same as everyone else and assumed she was with Harry. He then addressed his friend in her own language. You look stunning tonight, Sapphire. I hope you will honor me with a dance. And now blushing Sapphire was giggling with excitement. This was the biggest night of her life. Why thank you, Roger, and of course I'll save you a dance. They chatted for 15 minutes or so before McGonagall came out to say they were now ready for the champions. Her eyebrows nearly shot into her tight bun of hair when Victor offered Sapphire his arm. Like everyone else, Minerva had assumed that Sapphire was here with Harry. She was just about to tell the goblin female she would need to enter the ballroom now, as it was time for the parade of champions. Minerva was delighted and relieved Mr. Krum had offered his arm to his date before she'd put her foot right in it. We had decided on ladies first, so Miss Delacour and her date shall lead us off. She will be followed by our other visiting champion, Mr. Krum and his date. Centurion Crow and his mate, Miss Granger will complete the procession. I will lead you in and over to the head table. Centurion, I'm sorry but Dumbledore is there too. We arranged it so you are both as far apart as possible, and the seating becomes fluid after the first dance. Harry nodded his acceptance and McGonagall led him in. It gives me great delight to introduce the champions of Beauxbatons, Durmstrang and Hogwarts. The applause was thunderous and Sapphire sparkled on Victor's arm, her smile as dazzling as her accessories. Her magnificent jewelry had been supplied by the director himself, publicly signifying she had his backing for this event. Harry was behind his oldest friend and his eyes were busily scanning the hall. He certainly noticed those who had stopped clapping when they spotted who was on Victor's arm, just as he saw all their friends cheering like crazy. When his eyes caught sight of Dumbledore, Harry knew there would be trouble. The old wizard was bloody livid. Dumbledore was out his seat and heading toward the champions' party. Minerva moved to intercept while Augusta, Amos and Madame Maxime were hot on his heels. Out of the corner of his eye, Harry also spotted the Blacks, Tonks, Remus, Padma and Neville all on the move too. This is an insult to the Durmstrang Institute of Magic. I demand this be changed at once. Did you know about this, Minerva? I will not allow our school champion to have a creature on his arm. It's a disgrace. Minerva was just about to rip this old fool a new one, thinking she would concern herself with who the champions were bringing as dates, when she felt herself being brushed aside. Hermione made no attempt to stop him. Dumbledore calling Sapphire a creature meant there probably wasn't any way to stop Harry now. The smack was heard all around the ballroom as Harry backhanded Dumbledore across the face. You will apologize to Sapphire or face my blades. Those are your only options, old man. Seeing the boy in a temper had Albus using all his experience to calm himself, and make the best of the opportunity he'd just been presented with. Beating this whelp in a magical duel would certainly go a long way to curbing the goblin influence on their society. I will not apologize for telling the truth, so we will duel. Goblins don't duel, they fight. First blood acceptable to you. Albus just nodded. This was better than he could have hoped for. Victor tried to intervene before this situation got any further. Harry, Sapphire is my date. It should be me fighting for her honor. This earned Victor smiles from all of the champions' party. Thanks for the offer, but this one is on me. It's a goblin thing, Victor. I am registered within the nation as Sapphire's champion. Anyone trying to get to me through her will face my blades. Hermione was already loosening his waistcoat. Harry, why don't you just wear your tunic to these things? Save all this bother of me having to undress you. Hey Hermione, I thought that was your favorite part. Padma and Neville were now by their side, offering support and continuing Hermione's efforts to dispel Harry's anger. A worried Augusta asked the question that was on all their minds. Centurion, do you intend this fight to be in here? I have the safety of all my students to consider. It was Neville who quickly put her mind at rest. Gran, we fight in this room every day. Hogwarts will keep everyone safe. In this magnificent ballroom setting, it was easy to forget this room could become anything Harry wanted. Albus was in no way alarmed, though slightly confused at the behavior of Harry's friends. There were kisses of support from the girls and slaps of encouragement on the back from the wizards. At no time did any of them display any signs of anxiety over this fight. The Longbottom betrothed witch appeared as if she was barely holding on to her laughter. Black and Lupin were all smiles too. Even his assigned Auror bodyguard seemed was time Albus reminded them what a powerful wizard he was. The floor cleared and Hogwarts herself erected wards around the two combatants. A golden Harry had a shield, knife and sword all poised to attack. His opponent knew what those blades could do. Dumbledore had no intention of letting Harry get close enough to use them. This would be a magical fight, therefore there really could only be one winner. Albus assumed a classic dueling position, legs spread, right one forward and he was balanced on the balls of his feet. Miss Granger shouted, ready, and Albus was left to assume she said, fight. All his senses were shutting down as the pain overtook him. A column of rock, about the width of a bludger, had just shot out the floor and slammed with considerable force into his groin. That it then remained there was about the only thing still holding Dumbledore upright, his knees being more than ready to buckle. With his colourful robes reaching to the floor, none of those watching were aware of this, they just saw Dumbledore struggle to erect a weak shield as Hermione called, fight. A quick barrage of spells destroyed the shield before Godric's blade did its work. With one swipe it sliced through Dumbledore's wand, and also whipped off his beard just below his chin. Harry's knife then nicked the old wizard's cheek, drawing blood and ending the fight. Having done its job, the pillar then shot back into the floor just before Harry nudged Dumbledore onto his back. As he crumpled to the floor, Albus may have received the painful message but he had yet to decipher it. Hogwarts would protect her champion. A wandless Dumbledore was now lying on the floor in a fetal position, blood trickling from what amounted to nothing more than a shaving cut. Albus wasn't caring a jot that the hall had descended into wild cheering, Harry's name being loudly chanted, he felt as if he'd just been violently kicked in the nuts by a centaur. Sapphire, is your honor satisfied? A blushing Sapphire knew she had to answer. Yes, Harry. Harry knelt beside Dumbledore, speaking low so only the old wizard could hear. You chose to fight Hogwarts champion in a room she controls, your second big mistake of the evening. Goblins don't do pranks but I think my dad would have liked that. Remus and Sirius are certainly laughing their asses off. Hogwarts will always aid her champion if his cause is just, which it clearly was in this case. The behavior you just displayed is no longer acceptable inside Britain. We have changed but you clearly haven't. Old man, it's time for you to leave. Standing back up, Harry once more raised his voice so everyone could hear. Hogwarts, Dumbledore has decided he doesn't want to stay. Please show him out, but gently, remember his age. Vines grew out of the floor in a direct line from the exit to Dumbledore. They picked the old wizard up and slowly passed him along the floor toward the door. As their load passed, never more than 6 inches off the ground, those vines dissolved back into whence they came, the job done. The entire hall watched in silence as the former leader of the light was sliding along the floor in a heap while Harry stood with Hermione buttoning his waistcoat. The significance of this could not be any plainer. There was a new leader of the light in Hogwarts. Sirius couldn't even look at his godson without bursting into more laughter, Remus being only slightly better. Amos wasn't the only one unsure of what they'd just witnessed. Victor got in first though. VHAT just happened. How is this possible? Hermione was smiling at Harry as she lovingly fixed his tie. It was her who gave them their answer. Hogwarts creates this room because Harry asks her to. Training, ice skating, balls, whatever is needed Hogwarts will supply. Training aside, only a complete idiot would try to fight Harry in here. We all knew that, Dumbledore didn't. Professor McGonagall, I think we're ready now. Fleur took Roger's arm, whispering to her date as everyone returned to their seats. Say first morning I stepped into this room, Hermione asked it for somewhere I could change. I just never zoot what else it could do. When Sapphire took Victor's offered arm, not a word was said against this from anywhere in the hall. If Albus Dumbledore could so easily be defeated, no one wanted any trouble with Centurion Crow. Madame Maxine was trying to have a quiet word with Augustus so only half the top table heard. I was listening to what his mate said, as this happened before. Yes, a few years ago at the Ministry Summer Ball where Harry was awarded his Order of Merlin, first class. Umbridge took umbrage that Harry was dancing with Emma Granger, a muggle. She challenged Harry and then cut her own hand, desperate to then avoid what would have been an embarrassing defeat. Dumbledore was barred from that event, he left Britain only a few months later. He should never have returned. This left Olymp wondering just how long her champion would be in the lead of the tournament. The organizers were all quite pleased with the design of the second task, they would be announcing details and the date after the new year. She watched the Centurion chat with the other two champions and thought it was obvious they would help each other train for this task. The headmistress of Beauxbatons thought that alone would make this tournament a success, no matter who won it. Thanks for reading. 2 I discovered an app that downloads fan fiction to my iPad. Pocket Fiction is free but claims it offers an in-app purchase, probably to get rid of the annoying ads. I've yet to discover how to activate that. Emails to the developers have been unanswered so anyone out there know anything about this app? Filling in the blanks. Harry Crow. Were making slow but steady progress on the school front, trying to tear down the council's case brick by brick. A lot of readers have asked how they could lend support. If anyone has a Twitter account then following our page would certainly help, @Saveths. We have until mid-May to make our views on the matter known, then the council will make its decision. Chapter 98. Augustus watched Bella playing with Marvolo as he prepared their Christmas dinner. They may be having rabbit again but this was easily the best Christmas he could remember. What really sealed it for Augustus was the prospect of many more Christmases to come, and that brought with it the possibility of seeing his little Marvolo grow. Augustus was still working tirelessly alongside their master to try and achieve this aim. Their steady progress was making Augustus more and more optimistic of their chances. Their master's decision to leave Britain after he killed Potter was what really spurred his optimism on though. With Potter gone, it wouldn't take long for the whole Ginningets Ministry alliance to crumble, especially with Umbridge stirring up trouble within the Ministry whenever she could. In just a few years, Britain would be ready for his master's return, and their master wouldn't be returning alone. There were still countries in Europe who would support their cause, so their master had decided to embark on a recruiting mission after springing their trap. Potter's death would give the cause the victory they needed to be able to strategically withdraw from Britain with some credibility, and should also provide the springboard to have like-minded witches and wizards once more flocking to the Dark Lord's banner. Oh, Augustus baby, I think our little wizard just tried to say his first word. He thought their son might be a tad young to be speaking just yet, there was no way though Augustus was going to say that to his mate. And what word would that be? Love. I'm trying to teach our little genius to say, Master, I'm positive our little Marvolo just managed the first bit. He's saying Ma. Goldskin was escorted into the director's office, seeing Barchoke and Master Sharpshard were present too just increased his concern. I left Sapphire less than half an hour ago, she's fine and had a wonderful time at last night's ball. There was an incident however, and we're just about to watch some memories of it, the director felt you should be included in this viewing too. The first memory is from friend Longbottom. A relieved Goldskin thanked Barchoke for that news about his daughter's safety, and also the director for considering him. The memory started with Professor McGonagall introducing the champions, all felt a sense of pride at the way Sapphire confidently walked into that hall, only for Dumbledore to try and ruin her evening. While a surge of anger filled the room at Dumbledore's comments, all were impressed with the way Sapphire's many friends reacted, Harry especially. Hearing Victor offering to fight Dumbledore for his daughter's honor impressed Goldskin, Harry saying that he was registered as Sapphire's champion was a complete shock. No wonder the director was confident Sapphire wouldn't face a backlash inside Gringotts over this matter, letting that news filter out would certainly stop any challenges. The Centurion had easily defeated him in Cairo, and had been holding back at the time. Sharpshard's laughter soon rang around the office. That old fool is going to fight the Hogwarts champion in his own room. This should be fun, that room did everything but outright attack me when we fought there. None of the quartet missed Dumbledore's expression of pain just as Hermione shouted fight, watching his body language told all of them where the old wizard was hurting. Dumbledore crumpled to the ground to much cheering, from those in the ballroom memory and everyone in the director's office too. Ragnick, Sharpshard and of course Barchoke all knew they needed Dumbledore to remain at Hogwarts to pass information on to the Dark One. Harry's solution neatly sidestepped any issues that would have resulted from a full-scale fight between these two. After Dumbledore left, Barchoke stopped the memory and replaced the crystal. This is from friend Patil, she thought we might like to see it. After their meal, the three champions started the evening's dancing off, again to much cheering. Sapphire was sparkling as she waltzed around the room as Victor's partner, then they changed. In a move that appeared practiced, the three couples came together and all the ladies effortlessly and elegantly exchanged dance partners. A clearly happy Sapphire was now dancing with Roger. Barchoke was explaining to everyone they had been friends since meeting in Cairo. The move was repeated and now she was in Harry's arms, before switching back to their original partners just before the first dance finished. Their display of unity earned a standing ovation from the other students and staff. I'm looking at this, and still I can't believe it. Your daughter has sore feet this morning from dancing all night, she also has a smile as wide as a Category 1 vault door. She was amongst friends all evening and the Durmstrang champion kissed the back of her hand in thanks for allowing him the honor of escorting her to the ball. All of them from Kingusi who attended last night enjoyed themselves, we're just waiting to see what the prophet makes of this. Ragnick actually shared Goldskin's views on this ball, he too couldn't quite believe what he was watching. Even the prophet can't dent young Sapphire's stunning success. Your daughter's victory will see a gift from a very grateful director heading her way, Goldskin. Barchoke, brilliant decision to apprentice her to your department. After this, your department may see a lot more applications to work or apprenticeship there. Sharpshard, I think this calls for grog. He would let his mate watch those memories later. Raina would be as surprised and delighted to see this as Ragnick himself was. With Harry not taking part in the wand-weighing ceremony, the Yule Ball was really the press first chance to get a picture of all the champions posing together, and what a picture graced their front page. Augusta and Madame Maxime were included too, standing at either end of the three champions and the dates. Roger was sitting in the middle, with Hermione and Sapphire at either side of him, the three champions proudly standing behind their respective dates. A description of how all three champions had exchanged dance partners during the first dance featured far more prominently in the newspaper article than the fact Dumbledore was forced to leave the ball early. He was apparently yesterday's news. As Roger was sitting alongside Sapphire, and Victor standing behind, this was certainly a picture that would make it into her rapidly growing scrapbook. That the press simply accepted Sapphire's right to be there, even on the arm of Victor Krum, was a massive sign of just how far things had shifted in their country. This was also the signal for another celebration inside Gringotts. The British magical press talking in glowing terms about a picture that contained a French half-giantess, a French Veela, a goblin, Centurion Crow and his mate alongside one of the country's most prominent purbloods, Madame Augusta Longbottom was beyond belief. Today, however, any pictures taken would be strictly for the family. Crow's Nest was once more bursting at the seams with people as Remus and Tonks prepared to get married. Tonks had asked both Hermione and Padma to be her bridesmaids as she got married, leading Remus to select Harry and Neville. Remus had actually only made one request for today, he wanted to marry the real Nymphadora Tonks. His bride to be agreed to honor that request. The witch in question was being led down the aisle by her father and still easily recognizable to the groom's party who stood awaiting her arrival. Her hair might be jet black and brushing her shoulders as she walked, and her nose stood a little prouder from her higher cheekbones, it was still Tonks though. Her husband-to-be's request had also decided the bride's dress dilemma. Tonks was an Auror, it was a huge part of who she was, therefore she chose to get married in her Auror dress robes, her Order of Merlin, first class, proudly displayed on the breast of those robes. This also neatly solved the problem of what the bridesmaids would wear too, Hermione and Padma choosing their Marauder trainer robes, their silver epaulets and both medals shining brightly against the black dragon skin. Harry and Neville were similarly attired to their mates, while Remus had gone in the complete opposite direction. With Tonks' robes so dark, his were snow white. He was hoping his wife to be appreciated the gesture, some might even say prank. The dark creature wore white while the bride was in black. As Ted led his daughter past Sirius, only about half of those present in Crow's Nest heard the Marauder's comment. Don't worry, Tonks. They're not sheepskin, I wouldn't let him go that far. All three witches had cases of the giggles as Ted handed his daughter over to the waiting Remus. The Reverend Richard soon had things back under control, though he was smiling himself as the ceremony began. Neville claiming he had to make the last speech in the ministry saw Harry being elected to do it here. He wasn't nervous though as he stood to deliver the best man speech. This was all friends and family. Hi everyone, I hope you'll excuse me if I don't exactly follow tradition here, this is only the second wedding I've attended. I asked Dan, Sirius and Remus what a best man's speech is supposed to be, and received 3 totally different answers. Getting the feeling I was being pranked, I then consulted an expert. The first thing Reverend Richards told me to do was lose Sirius' joke about the one-eyed witch and the stuttering barman. This led to a lot more laughter than telling the joke would ever have generated, Sirius' pretend pout helping that laughter along. Reverend Richards told me the normal procedure was to talk about the bride and groom, preferably telling a few funny stories. This time he was interrupted by 3 simultaneous groans, coming from Hermione, Padma and Neville. Unlike the Reverend, these 3 have first-hand experience of a goblin's sense of humor. I'm told it is an acquired taste so I'll spare everyone here that humor today. All 3 nodding in agreement also got a few laughs. I met Remus on our island the first summer we holidayed there. It was Remus who taught me the pinky grip that put Lockhart on the ground in the bookstore, something I will always be grateful for. I have actually spent more time with Tonks though, or is that or Lupin now? I'm keeping the name Tonks, and also taking the name Lupin, it's just the other one I'll be losing. Her mock glare at her parents was simply ignored, they were well used to it by now. Tonks Lupin, I like that. Anyway, Tonks was with us the terrible day we faced the basilisk, something we were incredibly grateful for. She has also been my ministry bodyguard for the last 18 months, again something we're grateful for. This has given us a first-hand view of the journey these 2 took to become a couple. Hermione and I were even along on their first date, I'm not too sure just whose body was being guarded by whom that day however. For some reason this really set Sirius off, his loud laughter soon had others joining in. Remus was mock whispering to his new wife. Now we know why Sirius didn't ask Harry to be his best man. The couple though were wearing wide smiles that nothing was going to shift today. Harry also smiled at the Marauder, though this was more predatory in nature. I just hope my Uncle Moony knows what he's let himself in for. We've seen his wife charge Death Eaters and face down Master Auror Moody, I don't know which one was scarier. Without hesitation, Tonks chipped in with her answer. Mad eye. I just want to wish the couple much happiness, and even though we've considered Tonks family for a while, officially welcome her to the craziest family in the world. I give you the bride and groom, Mr. and Mrs. Lupin. At that, everyone stood and offered their toast to the couple. It was later that evening when Sapphire found herself dancing with her boss. So, young Sapphire, did you discover why my son changed his mind over the ball? Yes. A delighted Barchoke waited on the answer, and waited. So, why did he change his mind? Oh, I can't tell you that, it's a surprise. You do know you work for me now. Yes, but one day it will be Harry. I could never let him down. This drew a deep chuckle from Barchoke. Outstanding answer, Sapphire. I'm delighted with your work so far, as is the director. I received a letter from my father. He said the entire family is proud of me, yet all I did was have a great time with friends. Sometimes I feel a bit of a fraud. Seeing his newest recruit wear a frown had Barchoke worried that he might have inadvertently been the cause of it. Did you tell my children you were now working for me? I would hate Harry or Hermione to think I had you spying on them, this was just a bit of fun. They know that, sir, and you might have some others applying for apprenticeships too. Padma and Neville seem keen on leaving Hogwarts after they marry next summer, but not as keen on the university option that Harry and Hermione have their hearts set on. An apprenticeship is something they can at least understand. I have heard Master Pitsley say Padma has a natural talent for potions, that might be an option she would consider. With both of them having friends status, Padma and Neville's options inside Gringotts are extensive, especially with those 2 awards they wear on their robes. I shall have a chat with them to ensure they fully understand what options are available to all 3 of them inside Gringotts. This had Sapphire smiling, and saw her boss gently coming back at her. You have no reason to feel like a fraud. I too am enjoying myself tonight, it doesn't mean we ever stop learning, or working to further our cause. You would be happy if Padma and Neville chose to apprenticeship inside Gringotts because you would get to see more of your friends. Gringotts though would also benefit greatly from that. It is also an idea none of us had even considered before you mentioned it. Padma Longbottom apprenticing under Master Pitsley sends out all the right messages, and the name Longbottom should ensure her mastery would be accepted anywhere in the country. Thank you, sir, for explaining that. My apprenticeship means I get to see more of my friends. I love working for you, Ambassador. Victor has invited me to Hogwarts for his Quidditch match, and again for the second task. Hermione is asking Madame Longbottom if I can stay in the castle again, returning home the following day. My son has been asked many times why he puts himself in certain situations, he replies it's because only he can. You are now in the same position, who else but you could do what you just said? Perhaps now you may understand your worth to us, and why your family, your nation, are so proud of you. I want you to one day be able to stand at my son's side and be treated as an equal, we both know Harry won't accept anything less. You are well on your way to achieving this already. Harry as ambassador and you as his assistant ambassador will be a proud day for all of us. I promise to work my hardest to make sure that happens. As the music finished, and in a rare show of affection, Barchoke took Sapphire's hand and kissed the back of it. I know you will, Sapphire, I know you will. Harry meanwhile had spent the same dance with the new Mrs. Lupin, confirming for the 100th time that they would be fine, and wouldn't leave Kingusi without an escort. This saw him receive a kiss on the cheek. What was that for? I hope Moony's not the jealous type. That's for everything, Harry. Hosting our wedding, arranging the honeymoon, being my friend. Tonks, if I had to start listing all the things we had to thank you for, we'd be here all night, something your new husband would certainly object to. We're family, Tonks, no thanks is ever necessary. I know the nation are trying everything to get you in there with us at the end, how could I possibly even begin to thank you for that? With his arm around her waist, Harry started leading Tonks over to where Remus was standing when an idea struck. The final confrontation is coming, but we can't let that rule our lives. The four of us intend to spend the weekend before the final task on the island. I'd like to invite you and Remus along too. The Auror thought she understood what was being said here. Harry confirmed that with his next sentence. That is currently a secret between just the six of us. We want to keep it that way until a lot nearer the time, like the day before. My husband and I accept. I'll even help by saying you four need a break. Normally I would say you were too young. We know that's not the case here. Having that weekend to look forward to might help us focus on what needs to be done, so we can all enjoy many more weekends like that. We intend to be training harder than we ever have before. This is the final push, Tonks, and we will be ready. This seems rather an intense conversation for a wedding, and you're hogging the bride. Sorry, Sirius, just confirming to Mrs. Lupin here we'll manage without her while she's on the island with Moony. Sirius danced off with Tonks in his arms. It was another hand on his shoulder that caught Harry's attention. That answer didn't wash with either Sirius or me. Sorry again, Remus, but I can't say any more. Tonks will tell you everything later. You really do know her better than you know me, something I'm really sorry for, Harry. Henrika teaches us the past is there so lessons can be learned from it. Let it go, Remus, and concentrate on the future you have with Tonks. She really is a special lady. What age are you again, Harry? This drew a wry chuckle. It's not the years, Remus, it's the experiences. That day in the chamber changed all of us. Henrika was proposed marriage to the same day. Padma and Neville bonded a few days later while Tonks began to look at what she really wanted from life. I think that's when she started looking in your direction. I notice you didn't mention your name there, Harry. How did it change you? It took a moment for Harry to answer. Remus, I've never been so scared, before or since. Counting Parvati, there were 6 people relying on me getting them out of there alive. I didn't have the luxury of considering myself 12. I was a centurion with a mission that needed to be tackled. That all 7 of us got out of there might qualify for one of those miracle things I've heard Hermione mention. The dance had finished, but Sirius arrived back with a different partner. You two look far too serious. I brought someone to at least cheer one of you up. As the music started for the next dance, a now smiling Harry slipped into Hermione's arms as they took to the dance floor. Both marauders watched the happy couple weave their way around the ballroom. I swore an oath I would protect that boy, Remus. It really doesn't sit well that I can only watch as he prepares for the fight we both know is coming. We also know my wife is going to do everything she can to be right beside them. I intend to pour everything I've got into those wards, Sirius, leaving nothing behind for any fight. Let Dan, Frank or Barchoke shoot the bastards dead, we just need to give them that chance to do so. Sirius could only nod, having little else to offer on the matter. Apolline thought her decision was made. Today just confirmed the decision was the right one. They had been accepted from the moment the Delacour family had set foot in Kingusi, with every new arrival just treating him the same. This wedding was easily the biggest gathering yet, but both her daughters were still having a good time with the friends they were making. Henrika had also confirmed the Blacks would be in Hogwarts for a good few years. Both she and Sirius were pushing through new courses and would want to see them well established before even considering a move. Seeing how her youngest daughter was being treated here, and with Avila as one of her professors, they really couldn't send Gabrielle anywhere but Hogwarts. It was something Gabrielle had been dropping broader and broader hints about. Apolline would discuss with her husband about the best time to tell her. Preferably before her new friends headed off back home. They were getting ready for bed when Luna just had to ask her friend something. Sapphire, why is Harry having such a tough time with me having a boyfriend? I can see he's trying hard, but I thought he liked Colin. Thinking back to the ambassador's words earlier, Sapphire thought this was a perfect example of what Barchoke meant. All she was doing was hopefully trying to make one of her best friends understand their culture a little better, that it might inch goblin-wizard relations along another notch she considered nothing more than an added bonus. Harry certainly likes Colin, and you're right, he is trying hard. It's a culture thing, Luna, we goblins don't have boyfriends or girlfriends. Hermione told me when they got together, Harry had to ask Sirius for advice. He couldn't offer her a formal courtship, otherwise it would have been seen as him choosing to be a wizard. He hadn't considered asking her to be his girlfriend because that's just not something a goblin would do. If you don't form those type of relationships, how do you know someone is the one you want to marry, and spend the rest of your life with? Both girls were now in their beds, though it would be a while yet before they were ready for sleep. This was important to Luna. Her relationship with Harry had become one of the cornerstones of her life. She needed to understand him better so they could both preserve something that was very dear to them. Well, you've seen that we have friends, that's just the same. We can also be attracted to those friends. Roger is one of the nicest people I know. Fleur is discovering that for herself. When we goblins find our mate though, it goes way beyond any attraction. I'm told it feels like that person becomes part of you, that you simply must have them in your life. We then have the bonding ceremony, so everyone can see exactly how compatible the couple are. It seems a bit like you leave everything up to chance. What if you never find your mate? This saw Sapphire shrug her shoulders in answer. There are a few people who do that, but they seem happy enough. We goblins are what you would consider a monogamous society, Luna. We have one mate, and that mate is for life. Our own bodies will tell us when we've met that mate. The bonding ceremony will confirm that this is really the one. Even although they are younger than we would consider normal, Harry and Hermione are proof that the system works. Luna couldn't really argue with that. Padma and Neville could also be placed in the same category too. Okay, I understand that, but not why Harry's struggling with me having Colin as a boyfriend. You must know that Harry considers you family. This brought a smile and a nod from Luna. That was the very relationship she was determined to protect. A goblin male has protecting family instilled into them since birth. Harry wasn't born a goblin, but he certainly is one at heart. We are both lucky enough to be considered family by him. That means Harry will do everything in his power to protect us, for the rest of our lives. Him being a centurion just magnifies that inbuilt trait, something Hogwarts herself was first to recognize when she made Harry her champion. He's there to represent and protect her students. Sapphire tried to ensure Luna understood the next bit. If it had been you Marco had gotten into that cupboard, Harry would have slit open his gut and spread his entrails all over the corridor. Nothing or no one would have been able to stop him. Hermione wouldn't even have tried. She would understand his honor could accept no other result. There seems to be a gender imbalance in your culture where witches who have a few boyfriends are frowned upon while a wizard with lots of girlfriends would almost be revered. In our society, both would be shunned equally. Being in a relationship and still dabbling with another is one of the biggest blunders you can make in our community. You forego your honor and no one can trust your word. What is there left? Luna's voice was barely above a whisper as she answered Sapphire. Colin would never hurt me. I know, Luna, and so does Harry. You said yourself Harry's trying hard. We can all see that. He's trying to walk the thin line between letting you live your own life as a witch, while protecting you as his goblin honor demands. In many ways, I'll have it easier. When I meet my mate, that mate will understand and accept Harry's position in my life, just as Harry will accept him as my mate. I've been so wrapped up in getting to spend Christmas with Colin I never realized I was hurting Harry, in his own house too. Luna, any fool could see how happy you've been over the holidays, and Harry is certainly no fool. Seeing you so happy is the one thing that will have Harry accepting Colin as your boyfriend. Your happiness will be Harry's first concern. Colin leaves tomorrow. Try and find some time to sit down with Harry and talk about this. Remember, all this is as new to Harry as it is to you. You'll also be helping Natalie, Pauline and Orla too. Pauline already has a big brother, but you told me how Harry reacted to her after the attack last New Year. She's definitely someone he considers family too. Harry keeps saying goblins are a simple race, but I agree with Hermione. This is bloody complicated. Thanks, Sapphire. I don't know what I would do without you. We're friends, Luna. That's what friends are for. Both girls chatted away for a while, glad they had that out in the open. While Christmas had been wonderful in Kingusi, effortlessly extending to cover the wedding too, New Year had fallen a bit flat. The McDonalds, Creeves and Abercrombies had left the day after the wedding, leaving those staying in Kingusi rather reflective of what happened at this time last year. It really was quite difficult to celebrate on the anniversary of the biggest battle fought against the dark in decades. That everyone at Kingusi, bar their French visitors, had fought in that battle left the celebrations rather muted. Harry was drawing comfort from his chat with Amelia. It would seem as if their strategy was working. While the trio of criminals were busy working on this, they weren't attacking anyone else. His talk with Luna had also provided comfort. Luna had sat and explained as best she could how relationships worked in her society. Starting off with meeting someone you liked, becoming boyfriend-girlfriend and taking that relationship along slowly to see if it led any further as they got older. Neither had any idea if this relationship would grow past the stage it was at now. Both she and Colin were just taking things as they came for the moment, simply happy to be in each other's company. It was with heavy hearts though they boarded the Hogwarts Express to return to the castle, and it wasn't really because they were saying goodbye to their families. They would see them again shortly at the second task. The train speeding toward Hogwarts was more a symbol of the final confrontation rushing at them, yet the summer holidays seemed such a long way away. The four understood that if they didn't defeat Voldemort, they might never see Kingusi again. Harry was counting the second task as nothing more than a mechanism which would allow him to celebrate their father's birthday. While he would be careful during the task, he trusted those around him not to let anything untoward slip through the defenses. In the meantime, they would be training like never before. Their extra defense lessons would now see them fight 3 auras twice a week. Everything was now being tailored to helping them survive the final conflict. The next 5 or 6 months was going to be brutal, both in terms of training and what was waiting at the end of it. More and more, it was beginning to appear as if their special weekend away on the island might be the only thing they had to look forward to this term. If anything, Dolores was in a worse state than when Albus saw her last. Again they were in a private room inside the Hog's Head. They came again, and the bitch Lestrange was in a rage because I didn't have everything they'd asked for. You have to help me, Albus, otherwise I have no other choice but to approach Bones. I won't survive another visit if I don't have everything they want. Sliding a package over the table to the distraught Dolores, Albus used his most calming voice. His entire demeanor broadcasting that she had nothing to fear while Albus Dumbledore was on her side. Here is the last remaining book they requested, and all the details for the second task. While Krum is now a Hogwarts student, he's still representing Durmstrang. They had to give me all the details, and they will have to do the same for the final task too. The gratitude Dolores was displaying might have been embarrassing to anyone else on the receiving end of it, but not Albus, especially since he had engineered the entire situation. Dolores certainly wouldn't have been so grateful if she'd known he'd had the final book in his possession for weeks, or that he deliberately withheld it from her. He needed Dolores to understand she had no other option but to rely on him. Albus Dumbledore always got the job done. After she had gushed for at least 5 minutes, he was forced to intervene. Dolores, you need to listen carefully. Everything so far points to you being given another job to do before the final task. What you need to impress upon them is you might not get a great deal of warning of exactly when this task will take place. Their security is also very tight. You will need to know precisely what this job is in order to plan your way around that increased security. Albus, I don't think I can. My dear Dolores, all you will be doing is handing the entire job over to me. Even so, you need to buy me the time needed to accomplish whatever they ask you to do. Riddle and Rookwood are extremely clever wizards who have obviously been working on this for a very long time. They will understand you need some of that time to hold up your end of their scheme, otherwise the entire thing could be for nothing. They daren't risk being caught out if the organizers call the final task at very short notice. It's Lestrange, Albus, she terrifies me. That witch would kill you as soon as look at you. Quote ellipsis. And the other two will keep her in check. You are vital to their plans, Dolores. Without you, they have nothing. Remind them of that if you have to. I promise when this is over, you'll never have to see them again. If they survive the battle and are captured, the ministry has already sentenced all 3 of them to death. This seemed to strengthen Dolores' resolve, though there was one more thing she needed to know. What about Crow? I have studied this problem from every angle, yet still see no way of saving the boy. It was a once more resolute Dolores who nodded her acceptance of that. To see the end of Crow and Lestrange, she would do as Albus suggested. Her body carried scars that could be accredited to both of them. Dolores Umbridge, though, in the end would have her revenge. The 3 champions were in the High Inquisitor's office at Hogwarts, along with the task setters and their advisor, Henrika. Tonks, now as the ministry's main organizer for the tournament, was giving the champions the rundown on just what the second task was. Due to some quite blatant bias amongst some former judges, this task will be slightly different. Half your marks will still be awarded from the judges, the other 50% being determined by the time each contestant sets for completing the task. The quickest will automatically receive 20 points, 17 and 15 being awarded for second and third. Each of the judges can then award a maximum of 5 points, meaning there are 40 points available for the winner, while third could still see themselves earn 35. All 3 champions already thought this was a fairer system and said so. Now the task is in 2 distinct parts, needing you to nominate 2 volunteers. It will be up to each individual champion what order they tackle each part in. Let's just call them ground and air at the moment. You will start on a small platform in the stadium and each route leads you to the castle. On the ground, each champion will have to fight their way through various obstacles to reach their volunteer waiting at the castle for them. Tonks was deliberately staring at Harry as she said the next bit. There will be a clearly marked safe passage at the side of the course. You and your volunteer will use this to make your way as quickly as possible back to the stadium. The flying obstacle course is basically the same idea, only you need to pick your volunteer up from atop the astronomy tower and fly back along the other safe passage to the stadium. Only when you and both your volunteers are back on the platform does the task end. Like the first task, you will go individually. Fleur, Victor and then Harry will be the order. Any questions? Victor was thinking he would need a volunteer who was a fast runner, and another who was light. 2 names popped into his head. I'd like to choose Cedric and Sapphire. Understanding at once why Victor had made his choices, Fleur used the same method to make her own. I will, Avenue Roger and Gabrielle. Hermione and Padma, can I ask if the rules state whether a broom is allowed? Harry's question was met by puzzled looks from those not in the know. Madame Maxime was first to answer. Of course a broom is allowed. How else would one do this? Forgive me, madam, I just wondered if the rules specified a broom, or could they mean each champion was allowed one additional object of their choice? The largest person in the room just shrugged her shoulders at that. All champions must pass ZZ rough certain points at each challenge, using something like a portkey would disqualify you. Providing you do this, I have no objection to Z rule being one item. This saw Harry smile. Thank you, Madame Maxime. I was penalized in the first task for not putting on a show. I intend to rectify that this time. I can do no less, since it will be my father's birthday. Merd, we are in trouble. Fleur found agreement from her Bulgarian counterpart. Exactly VHAT I was thinking. Thanks for reading. The second task. Harry Crow. Chapter 99. Excitement was rife inside Hogwarts. Today was the first Quidditch match to be played in the new stadium. If that wasn't a big enough incentive to get excited about, Victor Krum would be playing too. Factor in that there would also be loads of parents here to see the match, and the level of excitement at breakfast was perhaps understandable. Ginny didn't seem to be sharing that excitement, however, as she slipped in beside Luna and Colin at the Ravenclaw table. Mind if I have breakfast with you guys? Between Ron threatening to throw up everything he's ever eaten because of his nerves, and Lavender then slobbering all over him in the name of trying to keep Ron calm, I couldn't eat a bite over there. My teeth gnash every time I hear her squeak, 1-1, at him. Why is Ron nervous? Shaking her head, Ginny answered the ridiculous question. Hermione, he's playing against Victor Krum today. Okay, everyone knows my knowledge of Quidditch could hardly be called extensive, but Ron's a keeper while Victor's a seeker. They may be flying in the same bit of sky, Ginny, but the only way Victor will be anywhere near Ron is if the snitch thing flies up the leg of those ridiculous trousers they wear. Padma's knife and fork hit her plate. Well, that's me done eating. Just the thought of Victor searching through Ron's breeches for a little golden ball has put me off food for the rest of the day. There were spit takes being done up and down the table as Ravenclaws discovered they couldn't eat or drink while laughing at the same time. Purely out of academic interest, Padma was rather relieved to notice that even Avila couldn't pull off having pumpkin juice spurting out her nose with any degree of elegance. Roger was choking with laughter himself while rubbing his girlfriend's back, the only good thing to come out of New Year, as he'd asked Fleur on the stroke of midnight. After getting her breath back from laughing, Ginny managed to answer Hermione again. Don't let Ron hear you say that. He's built this match up until it's a battle between him and his hero. Yeah, right. Well, we don't need to be Sapphire to work out the odds on how that contest is going to go. Harry interrupted his mate. Just in case you do, Sapphire's here, with father. Hermione was out her seat in a flash, all thoughts to do with Quidditch already forgotten about. They were all soon given a reminder though. There was quite the delegation visiting this morning, Bill being accompanied by his father, Percy, Penny and Jenny. Greetings were being exchanged before Ron burst into the group, dragging Lavender with him. Dad, Percy, you're here to see my first game. Sorry son, we have a meeting first. Your mum will be there from the start, and we'll be along as soon as we can. Ron felt the red mist descending but managed to shake his anger off. It was obvious this meeting involved Harry, and without Harry a certain Ron Weasley wouldn't be playing Quidditch today, far less going up against Victor Krum. He couldn't quite hide his disappointment though. That's fine, Dad, just make it whenever you can. This saw Barchoke intervene. We shall hold the part of our meeting that concerns your father first, letting him get to your game as quickly as possible. Wearing his first smile of the day, Ron bowed to the goblin the way he'd seen Harry do. Thank you, Ambassador. This is my first ever match and it would mean a lot for my father to be there. Lavender was then dragged back to the Gryffindor table. Ron felt ready to tackle some breakfast now. Arthur was left standing with his arm still around his daughter but his chin now almost hitting the floor. Jenny's arm was around Ewan and the mother could see something was bothering her son. It didn't take long to discover what it was. With Victor now being in our house, Hufflepuff are going to support Durmstrang today. Bill was a Gryffindor though, and 3 of his brothers are playing today. The boy's blonde hair was soon being ruffled by the eldest Weasley brother. Don't you worry about that, just go to the match with your friends and have a good time. Barchoke had signaled for Tonks to join him. Luna led Sapphire over to the Ravenclaw table while Ewan and Natalie led Jenny to Hufflepuff. Everyone else headed off to the room for their meeting. When they were all seated, Barchoke indicated for Arthur to start. The Muggle government didn't take too well to being told we would look after this matter ourselves. They're really struggling over your ages, and you being so heavily involved in this. They're asking if a representative can meet with you, and possibly your parents. Even the suggestion that you 4 are somehow being coerced into this has Amelia, Amos and the minister absolutely raging. The 4 were looking at each other for suggestions when Tonks exerted her bodyguard authority. If they want a meeting then we'll hold it here. I'm not chancing them trying to kidnap these 4, for their own good of course. Hogwarts won't let anyone touch Harry in this room, that's better than any security we could come up with. Harry was objecting to that plan on slightly different grounds. We don't want to be sneaking people in and out of Hogwarts too often. The last thing we need is Dumbledore getting suspicious. We intend to continue needling him so he's kept off balance. By all means bring this person to Hogwarts, but do it on the day of the second task. All the family will certainly be here that day. This presented another problem though, one that Hermione picked up on immediately. Not all of them know what's going on, and that's the way we want it to stay. Why have Luna, Susan or Hannah worrying over this when there is nothing they can do about it? Hermione aimed her question at their father. I'm assuming Sapphire now knows, since she works for you. Our department are heavily involved in this, she simply couldn't work there and not know. Jenny of course has no idea what's happening, and I think we would all agree that's for the best. Neville, please congratulate your grandmother on an astute piece of negotiating. That was a masterstroke she pulled to get her ball. Arthur was running the current suggestions through his mind and liking what he was coming up with. I could sit with this representative during the tasks. I would need your help keeping your mother at the other end of the stadium however. Bill and Percy quickly agreed to that. After the task, this representative could then meet with the people involved. Those meetings would have to be short. It's father's birthday, I won't let anything interfere with that. Harry's declaration brooked no argument. They had gone to a lot of trouble to get their father here on his birthday, they weren't about to then waste that by sitting in some meeting. With that part agreed upon, Arthur headed off to watch 3 of his sons play Quidditch for Gryffindor. Barchoke could then bring those remaining up to date on the Gringotts side of things. Finding a method of bypassing the wards is not looking promising. We're basically trying to build a Loki talisman, something that has been taboo in our society for centuries. It doesn't sit well with our people that they are trying to discover methods of bypassing the very things that protect us. There is also the fact that these attempts would usually be enough to see heads rolling along the floor. The director has called a halt to the research, while berating himself for having that one we confiscated destroyed. Harry hadn't really expected any other news. Gringotts wouldn't be safe while one of them existed. Destroying the talisman was the right thing to do, the only thing to do. That Neville agreed with Harry surprised no one. That he spoke so passionately about it did. Harry's right. Can you imagine what would happen if one of those devices fell into the hands of someone like Riddle? It's far better to know our families are safe, and then rely on Amelia getting those wards down. I also think we need to know when the final task is. With Gran, Tonks and Amos on the panel they should be able to decide it amongst themselves, long before involving Madame Maxime and making it official. Padma could see where her Neville was coming from with this, she just hoped he was looking forward to the weekend before that task as much as his betrothed was. Blood bonding was traditionally done as part of a couple's wedding ceremony. Neither she nor Hermione had been able to find any information on couples undergoing the ceremony years before actually getting married. Padma wasn't sure whether the bonding played any part in her feelings, perhaps it was the extreme danger they knew they would be facing shortly, something though was playing havoc with her hormones. Neville just needed to smile at her and she was ready to rip the shirt of his back. Only hearing from Hermione that she was the same, with Harry of course, kept Padma on an even keel. Agreeing with Neville that was a good idea saw Barchoke move on to the next matter. Since Harry has announced to everyone that day is my birthday, I really have to be seen inside the stadium. Ramrao is taking my place in the roof. You'll again have 3 fathers protecting you, and none will hesitate to put a bullet into any threats. All our intelligence and analysis is pointing to a portkey for the last task, but we won't be taking any chances on the 29th either. Umbridge has passed her latest package to Riddle, we're waiting to see what he gets back to her with. His father not being one of the shooters didn't bother Harry in the slightest. With both girls going to be involved in this task, he was certainly happy to put his trust in that particular trio to keep them safe. The ambassador's attention now turned to Tonks. Barchoke then gave out the best news he had for them. Tonks, we think your portkey can be adapted to take you to wherever Harry is, the portkey's blood binding passing straight through any wards. The room had provided 2 large sofas for the meeting. Tonks was currently sitting between Padma and Hermione, their respective partners on either side of them. Her arms shot out and hugged both girls to her, all 3 had tears in their eyes. Thank you, Barchoke, you have no idea how much this means to me. I'll tell you what it means to me, Tonks. The chances of these 4 getting through this just took a huge jump in the right direction. From the way Padma and my daughter are clinging onto you, they believe that too. That might be news you want to pass on to Amelia and Mr. Weasley. He can now tell this Muggle representative we have a responsible adult with us. A smiling Padma may have been wiping tears from her cheeks, but that didn't mean she was going to let such an opportunity slip by. Stretching the truth a bit there, Harry. Tonks, a responsible adult. Bill had the last word though. If she's going to be in this fight, then it's time she started training with you 4, and there's no time like the present. A Hogwarts elf appearing with her dueling robe gave Mrs. Lupin some idea of what she'd just volunteered for. Harry kissed Hermione, hugged Padma, Sapphire and a giggling Gabrielle before picking up his broom case to wait on Fleur saying cheerio to her younger sister. Watching the French champion smile as Padma and Sapphire took Gabrielle by the hands and walk away with Professor Snape was a massive turnaround from the last task. All three champions were looking forward to this. They left Hermione, Cedric and Roger at the main door of Hogwarts with Professor Sprout while Master Flitwick escorted the champions to the stadium. Their route was currently under canvas so none of the champions could glimpse what awaited them. Phileas explained that the canvas would be removed so the crowd could then see, since this would become the marked safe route for the ground hostages to get to the stage. Phileas shook all their hands as he left them in the changing room, a changing room that this time didn't have silencing charms on it. Hearing how your fellow champion performed was not considered an advantage for the second task, since they all knew what they would be facing. Fleur was excited rather than scared this time. She kissed both her fellow champions on the cheek just before leaving, crediting Harry for her change in attitude. I decided to take a friend's advice, just go out there and do my best. While waiting on Fleur's attempt at the course to start, Victor nodded toward Harry's case. I see you decided to go with a broom. Now Victor, that would be telling. Graham Cole thought he'd seen and heard it all. For the last 28 years, the psychologist had been working more and more for the government. It all started pretty innocuously, assessing Foreign Office staff for overseas embassy postings. As his reputation for getting it right grew, so did his security clearance. He now worked almost exclusively for the country's security services, assessing assets before and after they were allocated sensitive assignments. He was renowned for his cool and calm manner, no matter what he heard. At the moment, Graham Cole's cool head was in imminent danger of exploding from trying to process what was all around him. It had all begun when that Arthur fellow had asked him to touch an old boot. Humoring this strange request saw Graham transported from Surrey to Scotland in an instant, and things had just gotten weirder from there. Graham was here to discover why these people thought it was acceptable to let 4 children fight 3 deadly terrorists. All his preconceived ideas though had vanished by the time he was standing on Scottish soil, in front of the most magnificent castle he'd ever laid eyes on. The stadium that was their destination didn't look too shabby either. The food stalls were familiar territory, the little creatures serving the food though were a complete mystery to him, as was a good percentage of the audience. Only after being led to his seat in the stadium did Graham realize he was now surrounded by some of the very people he had hoped to meet. The name Emma Granger finally kicking his brain back into gear. The woman was holding a baby in her arms and made no attempt to hide her hostility that was aimed in his direction. Mrs. Granger, I understand you and your husband are dentists. Where is your husband? Will he be joining us? Sirius had erected a charm that meant anyone trying to listen into the group's conversation would just hear a faint buzzing sound. Knowing it was safe to talk, Emma didn't hold back. Indicating Smeeta and Alice, who were also part of the group, she told Graham where their menfolk were. All 3 of our husbands are currently concealed in the stadium roof, armed with rifles and ready to blow the head off these terrorists if they dare to show their faces here today. We will do whatever it takes to protect our sons and daughters, and Dan and I especially resent our own government insinuating otherwise. Seeing she apparently represented the view of everyone present, Graham decided honesty was not just his best policy here, it was the only thing that stood any chance of him receiving the information he'd been sent to gather. Mrs. Granger, you of all people must know how strange this is for us. We simply don't understand the situation. I'm hoping it can be explained to me today. Barchoke, Ragnick, Rayna, Amelia, Remus, Neville and the Blacks completed the group that surrounded Arthur and Graham. It was Barchoke who took up the explanation. The information you were given on the Potter killers is relatively accurate, though not complete. A prophecy was made that claimed a child would be born with the power to defeat Voldemort. Not one for taking chances, this so-called Dark Lord acted to ensure this prophecy could never come to pass. He murdered both Harry's parents but, when he used the same curse on baby Harry, his curse rebounded and destroyed Voldemort's body. This unfortunately left Harry an orphan, one that I immediately adopted, and I am prouder than I could ever put into words of my son. Sirius then took over the narrative. Voldemort is such a sick puppy, he had delved deeply into the dark arts in an attempt to make himself immortal. He was partially successful with his efforts in that he didn't die that night. Those measures have been gradually stripped away and he's now mortal. The bastard is still fixated on killing my godson though. He's set this entire scenario up as an elaborate trap, not knowing we're monitoring his every move. If only we knew his location, we wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation, he would already be dead. Mr. Cole, my husband and I were auras, almost a cross between your police and a soldier. We both fought Voldemort in the last war. There is no way on this earth we want our Neville involved in any of this. We all want to see this conflict end so people can get on with just living their lives. This is currently the only option available for achieving that outcome. That these criminals are concentrating all their efforts on this attempt is also the only reason why your people aren't up to their armpits in dead bodies, and these 4 know this. Graham switched his attention to the boy, though he used the term boy in the loosest possible sense. This young man physically appeared much closer to 16 or 17, rather than his reported age of 14. His eyes though seemed to belong to someone much older, eyes that were constantly scanning his surroundings. Graham didn't miss that his hand was also on the hilt of what appeared to be a sword. And what do you think of this, Neville? The shrug of his shoulders would be recognized by parents of teenagers the world over. Graham was merely being humored here. Neville apparently had far more important things on his mind. Voldemort wants Harry dead. He'll have to go through us first to get to Harry. It's as simple as that. Surely though, that terrible task shouldn't be left to the 4 of you. Graham understood he'd made a mistake when the teen's steely gaze now fixed on him. Instead of asking stupid questions, open your eyes and really see what's right in front of you. Amelia has this place flooded with auras, while Director Ragnick has warriors and centurions all around us. Those 3 bastards turn up today and we won't have to lift a finger, it will be all over in seconds. We don't think he'll come today though, otherwise I wouldn't be wasting my time talking to you. They all then heard the real reason for Neville's anger. Our parents are having a hard enough time dealing with this, they don't need outsiders making the situation worse. I'll give you some free advice however, upset our girls today and Harry will kick you out of the castle as quickly as your government withdrew your offer of help. Our previous deeds see us recognized as adults in both our societies. If yours can't or won't accept that, tough luck. Just stay out of our way. Alice had her hand on his arm now. Easy, son. You just said it yourself, nothing will touch them today. Neville merely nodded, his eyes returning to scanning for any signs of trouble. Graham never got to say any more as a stunningly beautiful woman made her way onto the small stage, the announcer letting him know she was the French champion. Watching as she climbed onto her broom destroyed every myth about witches he'd ever heard. The countdown was loud with the entire crowd being whipped up by the announcer, reaching 0 saw her shoot off that stage like a rocket. Not for the first time, Graham's chin was resting on his chest as this blonde bombshell zoomed over, under and between obstacles, all while flying hazards continually tried to knock her out of the air. It was a breathtaking display of aerial acrobatics that would make the RAF's Red Arrows display team appear as if they weren't really trying. Passing through the last obstacle saw her swerve onto the tallest tower in the castle, picking up a passenger who could only be her younger sister. Blonde hair streaked behind the siblings like a victory pennant as the broom was now piloted along a protected route at breakneck speed, coming to a screaming halt on the stage as the crowd were now going crazy. Her task though was only half done as she leapt off the stage with her wand now in her hand. Graham at least recognized what this was. There were large boulders dotted between the stadium and the castle, some offering concealment for animated soldiers that attacked. Fleur had to subdue them, fighting her way through to her second volunteer. As she reached Roger, Professor Sprout shouted go. This released Roger to act. He grabbed Fleur's hand as they raced for the stadium to finish the task. One last push, love. Gabrielle's waiting on us. You were magnificent. Needing what breath she had for the final sprint, Fleur didn't answer her boyfriend but instead gave everything she had left to the run. The crowd were roaring her home and a hyper Gabrielle was jumping up and down on the stage to encourage her sister to even greater efforts. Roger's arm around her waist swept Fleur up the steps and onto the stage, where both were immediately engulfed by a crying Gabrielle. Her little sister's wide smile though told everyone these were happy tears. To Fleur, that was worth all the effort she had just expended. Roger and Gabrielle's arms were the only thing currently keeping Fleur on her feet. She couldn't help but think Harry was right, neither scores or time mattered at the moment. Fleur was happy simply knowing she'd done her very best. The entire stadium was still on its feet applauding her efforts, the crowd only quieting down to see what marks were awarded. When Tonks, Amos, Augusta and a very proud Olymp all awarded 5s, the highest mark they could give, the applause became thunderous. Fleur was being led away by a beaming Roger and Gabrielle, with Madame Pomfrey needing to do nothing more than dispense a mild pick-me-up potion, as they headed to the seats reserved to watch Victor and Harry's attempts. Both girls spotted their parents in the crowd, their mother and father were still on their feet and applauding like crazy. Graham couldn't help but comment on the reactions of those he was sitting with. I thought this was a competition. You seemed rather pleased that the French champion did so well. Emma soon put him straight. Roger is one of Harry and Hermione's best friends, while the Delacour family spent Christmas with us in Kingusi. Sapphire's taking part in the next task, and she is certainly someone considered family by most of us sitting here. An angry Remus indicated one of the judges to Graham. That lady is an Auror and has been Harry's full-time ministry bodyguard since the Azkaban breakout. She is also now my wife. We married at Harry's Kingusi estate over the Christmas holidays, and spent what was left of those holidays honeymooning on his private island. You better believe we consider all 4 of these teenagers family. Thanks to some outstanding work by director Ragnar's people, my wife is going to be in this fight with them. If there was a way to get any more of us in there from the start, don't you think we'd be taking it? It was unusual for Sirius to be a calming influence, but that's what he needed to do here. A steadying hand on his best friend's shoulder reminded Remus they were all in this together. Surely this asshole could see how much this was costing the family. It was Henrika's turn to let this man know their views. She held her daughter in her arms as her emotions added weight to her words. Harry is Astrid's godfather, Remus' wife her godmother. Jamie is Harry and Hermione's brother while Neville and Padma are his godparents. What you need to understand is that to Voldemort and his Death Eaters, both these beautiful children are nothing more than vermin. Purely due to their circumstances of birth, he wouldn't hesitate to kill them both. We fight to protect our children, these 2 here and those yet to be born. The verbal assault, that's really the only way Graham could think of this, was temporarily halted by the arrival of the Bulgarian champion. Whatever his final report to his waiting superiors concluded, he was already certain of one thing. This was a very close-knit family who were clearly hurting from this horrendous decision. Any thoughts of the children being coerced in the slightest way to do this was simply a non-starter. All these adults clearly didn't want their children anywhere near this. It would appear as if they had no other option for stopping this homicidal madman. One thing even his government was adamant about, this maniac and his followers had to be stopped. Having only seen one person fly a broom before, Graham was in no way an expert on the subject. He didn't need to be though to instantly tell the Bulgarian was even quicker on a broom than his French counterpart had been. He was reminded of slalom skiing, and how the true experts could shave a little off their times by taking a slightly tighter line through the gates and maintaining every ounce of speed they could. The crowd were cheering like mad as he shot through the last gate and took aim for the tower. He hardly seemed to slow down as the goblin female jumped on the back of his broom and the pair streaked down the marked route to the stage. Victor dismounted the broom at a run, Sapphire's encouragement ringing in his ears. His training with Harry and his friends was now paying off. Not only did he feel fitter than at any time in his life, he had also practiced similar scenarios to this in that fantastic room Harry controlled. It seemed like no time at all before Victor and Cedric were racing down the safe route to reach the stage, and stop the clock. To great cheers, Victor completed the course 8 seconds faster than Fleur. Turning to his girlfriend, Roger didn't see the disappointment reflected there he'd expected. Instead, Fleur's expression was almost one of awe. I got within 8 seconds of Victor. This saw her receiving a kiss from her boyfriend. When I said you were magnificent, I was talking about your efforts today, and not just about you in general. Fleur then returning Roger's affection saw Gabrielle sigh. I cannot wait to come to Hogwarts. With all the judges already awarding Fleur 5s for her efforts, there was no hesitation in awarding Victor the same score. He had certainly earned it. As the applause finally began to die down, the 6 friends were all now congratulating each other on their efforts, while waiting on Harry's arrival in the stadium. It was now common knowledge that Harry had promised to put on a show. The crowd were expectantly waiting on this show starting. It was in these few moments of silence, Amelia made her opinion known to the representative of the Muggle government. Mr. Cole, taking these lunatics down is the job of my department, one I can assure you we intend to fulfill. Voldemort is going to try and sneak a device to Harry like the one you used to get here today. This will take Harry right into a supposed trap. His friends anticipated this though and took measures to ensure they would be at Harry's side when this happened. I don't mind admitting I cried tears of joy when I was informed our goblin friends had managed to include Auror Lupin in there too. Sorry Remus, but we all know her being there swings the odds more in our favor. Remus could only nod to acknowledge Amelia was right. His whole world however was now going to be in this fight, he just didn't know how he was going to survive if they didn't. What we need from you, Mr. Cole, is to inform your government we have no intention of letting them fight this battle for us. Harry is using himself as bait to lead us to Voldemort, the job is then to survive until we can get there and take care of it. Since these five are exceptionally gifted, and I intend for the time involved to be under a minute, you can perhaps get some idea of why we're backing this. If we had a safer option, I can assure you we would be taking it. There was silence from the group now as Harry entered the stadium. Graham had to admit the first impression Harry made on him was certainly not that of a 14-year-old boy. Dressed in a tunic that clearly displayed some kind of rank, and with a sword strapped to his back, the word, gladiator, was the first thing that came to his mind. An expectant hush fell over the stadium as Harry sat his case on the stage. Victor had easily won both Quidditch matches against Hogwarts opposition, no one had really expected anything else. He was currently in the lead here too, but this time his opposition was the Hogwarts champion, Harry Crow. As Lee started counting Harry down, you could almost taste the expectation in the air as the crowd screamed the descending numbers along with the announcer. As they got to 3, Harry opened his case and removed something that clearly wasn't a broom. It only took a few seconds for everyone to discover what this item was. At 0, a now golden Harry jumped off the stage and began with the ground course. The first dueling dummy that jumped out was blasted right back as the pump-action shotgun claimed its first victim. The second one fared even worse as it went down missing its head. The vast majority of the crowd had now seen guns being fired, at tiny clay discs though. Watching what this weapon could do to an opponent temporarily hushed the crowd. As Harry proceeded to make mincemeat of the ground course, Victor was using the lull in noise to ask Sapphire a very pertinent question. How is he going to rescue Padma with that thing? Wait and see, Victor, wait and see. The smirk she was wearing told the Bulgarian he'd already lost the second task. With the gun now empty, Harry dropped the weapon and his sword dealt with the last 2 remaining automated opponents, without using any magic. He soon reached Hermione. Ready to go, love. What kept you? With that, she raced past him before leaping into the air. Hover however was doing nothing of the sort, the Kestrel was flying down the safe route marked for their return. She was instantly joined by Swift as the crowd went wild. It was Hermione who touched down on the stage while Swift deliberately flew around her before tackling the second part of the task. The obstacles were laughable to the bird and, being so small, Swift didn't trigger any of the automated defenses. Severus was up on the tower with Padma, awaiting Harry, and had instantly figured out what was going on here when the other two transformed. It would seem you were about to be part of this show. Make it good, Miss Patil, make it something they will always remember. Padma was now standing on the very edge of the tower with her arms spread wide. Oh, we intend to, Professor. As soon as the Centurion passes over you, I will call your release. You are good too, go. Padma did indeed make it look superb. As soon as the Professor said that word, she dived off the tallest tower Hogwarts had to offer. The crowd that had been cheering only a second ago were now screaming in horror. Those screams became ones of relief and then amazement as they watched the third person today change into a bird. The speed that Padma had generated from diving off the astronomy tower carried Saber most of the way to the stage, and left Swift barely able to keep up. Hermione stood on the stage with her arms spread as Harry performed his favorite form of landing. With Saber transforming into Padma on the stage, Swift landed on Hermione's chest and Harry soon had his lips locked with his mate. The entire stadium was on its feet, going absolutely crazy at what they had just witnessed here today. Green sparks coming from the tower and the entrance informed the 4 judges that, like the other 2 champions, Harry's rescues had met with the rules of the competition. The judges again were all happy to award Harry maximum points, they really had no other option. His time was easily the fastest, making him the outright winner. Roger was too busy having a playful go at Sapphire to worry about any scores at the moment. You might have warned us, I nearly had a bloody heart attack when Padma jumped off the tower. A smirking Sapphire didn't get a chance to answer her friend as an amplified voice rang out from within the stadium, and it wasn't Lee's. I wish to lodge an official complaint. Not only are the rules of the competition being flouted, the very laws that govern our country have just been broken, in front of thousands of witnesses too. Albus thought this was his moment, he had them now. Their own arrogance would be their undoing. These 3 have benefited from being considered adults, they now have to realize that these benefits come with certain responsibilities too. All 3 are clearly animangi, yet none of them are registered. That is against the law, and carries severe custodial penalties. They should be arrested at once, not rewarded by applause and maximum points. Amelia stood to a now silent stadium. Sirius had cancelled his charm to allow her to be heard. Casting her own sorrowness, the head of the DMLE answered those allegations. Assistant Headmaster Dumbledore is of course correct. Amelia had to pause for the groans and cries of, no, to die down. She was also letting Dumbledore have his moment. Quote ellipsis. Being an unregistered animagus is a criminal offense. In his haste to see justice done however, the good professor has overlooked the circumstances here. Centurion Crow is just that, a goblin citizen and a centurion. The ministry has no right to insist any member of the nation register their abilities. Miss Granger is the centurion's mate, and also a citizen of the nation, she too has no need to register any abilities. Both of these proclamations were greeted by cheers, and Dumbledore's mood darkened with each one. Amelia was looking forward to totally ruining his day. Miss Padma Patil is not actually a British citizen, her family moving here less than a decade ago from India. She too has no need to register with the Ministry of Magic, though that will change when she becomes a Longbottom next summer. I'm sure the next Lady Longbottom will comply with our country's laws. I happen to know her future in-laws very well, and can state with some certainty that will be the case. Harry had a girl in each hand as the trio then bowed to Amelia in respect, having worked all this out beforehand. They had figured Dumbledore wouldn't be able to resist, and a public dismantling of his arguments should help keep him off balance. His fixation on Harry and his friends was now on a par with that of Voldemort, and they planned on treating him the same. When this was all over, Dumbledore and Umbridge were both going down too. They may not get the death penalty, but the odds currently favored both of them dying in Azkaban. Lee had quickly done the math and read out the combined scores. For coming second in the time trial, Victor receives 17 points, adding his scores from the judges, and the first task gives the Drumstrang champion a total of 79 points. This was greeted with great cheering from the stadium before they then quietened to hear the rest of the scores. Fleur received 15 points from the time trial part of today's task, added with her other scores gives the beautiful Beauxbatons champion 80 points. Along with the cheering from the stadium, a bewildered Fleur found herself being congratulated by Roger and Gabrielle. She was still in front of Victor in the tournament. The stadium now fell silent. This was the score they wanted to hear. Lee didn't keep them waiting too long. After setting a quite unbelievable time, Harry won today's task and is awarded 20 points. Some of those in the audience had already worked out the totals for themselves and were cheering loudly. Only Lee's amplified voice being able to pass that same information on to everyone else. Combined with his other scores, this gives the Hogwarts champion 82 points, and the lead. As the spectators now did the best to blow the stadium roof off with the noise they generated, Graham Cole found himself now beside Director Ragnick. He easily remembered Arthur's briefing on this person, classing him as both a monarch and government leader. Graham knew it was no accident he was now next to this particular goblin. As friend Longbottom suggested, I want you to take a good look around you. Goblins, witches, wizards and muggles sitting in this bright cold day but warmly accepting each other's company. This has not happened for centuries, and these 4 teens are almost totally responsible for this wonderful sight. The 3 on the stage had signaled for their 6 friends to join them. All 9 were now greeting each other and the applause just continued. Harry is a centurion, a not inconsiderable rank in our society that has never been held by someone not of goblin birth before. His mate, Miss Granger, has been taken to the heart of our nation like no one has ever managed before. So much so that, in their last battle with these dark wizards and witches, warriors were ready to throw themselves in front of curses if that was the only way to save her. Friend Patil is going to be the first witch or wizard ever to apprentice under a goblin master. Had Graham not already felt that what he'd witnessed here today was enough to send him into shock, this would have finished it. Ragnick could see he got through to this man. Our nation is taking a grave risk allowing this trap to be sprung. I will be there when it is, and would personally throw myself in front of a curse to protect any one of those 4. Our nation would survive my passing, the goblin presence in Britain might not survive theirs. There really was only one way Graham could respond to that. I think I have more than enough information to make my report. Let them enjoy today, and his father's birthday. I will speak to Arthur about taking me home. If it's any consolation, I think my government was wrong to withdraw its offer of help before having this investigation. I certainly hope I can be kept informed of how the final conflict goes. Ragnick found himself being joined by his mate. Raina had of course been listening to every word. She smiled as she told Graham the only thing they were certain of. Believe me, Mr. Cole, the entire world will find out how this ends. Goldskin and his family were sitting in the stadium, watching as his daughter had just participated in a quite astonishing event. His daughter was now being held up in their society of what it was possible for goblins to achieve. That she was a female just added to that sense of achievement. He didn't think he could be prouder of her. Dolores could only look on in disgust as the Pablood wizard was now clearly in last place, and Dumbledore had been verbally taken apart by a supremely confident Amelia Bones. She also noticed the Bulgarian Minister of Magic sitting beside Fudge for today's proceedings. Cornelius Fudge was beginning to take on the mantle of a statesman, and both ministers appeared to have enjoyed themselves. Disturbingly from Dolores' point of view, neither went anywhere near Albus Dumbledore. Even she was forced to admit Crow had been impressive today. Using a mixture of muggle and goblin weaponry, combined with those unbelievable animagus transformations, was a breathtaking sight. The Order of Merlin, first class, Centurion showed himself to the thousands present here today as a formidable opponent. Combined with his equally powerful friends, they just might be unstoppable. After witnessing this, she was beginning to doubt whether Albus could now accomplish his lofty claims. The only thing stopping Dolores throwing herself onto Bones' mercy was the utter certainty she wouldn't receive any from that hard bitch. Dolores was committed to whatever plan Dumbledore had formed, she simply had no other options. Thanks for reading. 2 I'm finding myself increasingly busy as we fight to save our school, hence the reason why this chapter is later than usual. Thanks to those few readers who supported our Twitter page, @Saveths. I completely understand the lack of response, as apathy amongst the parents is one of the greatest problems we face in our current task. Centurion. Harry Crow. This story has now passed the 7.5 million hits mark. My heartfelt thanks to everyone who has taken the time to read my efforts. I never, ever thought I would be writing chapter 100, but here goes. Chapter 100. Knowing that they had months of hard work ahead of them, the 4 friends were even more determined to enjoy Barchoke's party that night. The guest of honor was also thrilled to be spending his special day with his children and their extended family. The present that seemed to capture his heart though was by no means the most expensive. Little Danielle Dugan had raced ahead of her parents to hug Barchoke and wish him a happy birthday. He almost didn't need to open the present she'd gotten him, since Danielle began describing it in great detail before her mother even handed the gift over for unwrapping. I did a drawing of me and you, Mummy got me a frame and we put the drawing in it. Mummy did help me, a little. Barchoke could see the lovely ornate picture frame was really his gift. What it contained though was way more precious to the goblin. Here was a child's drawing, like the ones drawn by children all over the world since time immemorial. This one though featured the little girl who'd produced the drawing holding hands with her friend, Barchoke. It was never going to win any prizes in an art competition, but to the goblin portrayed in the picture it was priceless. Mummy helped me with the writing, I did the kisses though. It was indeed clear she'd been helped with the writing. The sentiment, however, was pure Danielle. To my friend, Barchoke. Happy birthday. Love, Danielle. XXX. This is wonderful, Danielle, thank you so much. I shall hang it in my office so everyone can see it, and know that we are friends. That just made both their evenings. All three of the trio involved in today's tasks had thanked the parents profusely for frightening off the government man so they didn't have to speak to him. Harry was beginning to think he might have made a mistake though by putting on such a show. The trio dedicated their efforts to Barchoke, but those same efforts were in danger of overshadowing his birthday. Luna and Colin had a tiff over it. Apparently he wasn't too happy his girlfriend had known they were animagi and didn't tell him. Luna had replied that it wasn't her secret to tell, and she was now waiting to see how long her boyfriend was going to sulk for. Ewan, Dennis and Orla were in total awe of the trio. Ewan asking if Neville could do that too was a question that had to be quickly dealt with. If Neville could do that, he would be breaking the law, since he's not registered. Harry didn't need to say any more, these three were quick enough to work the rest out for themselves. The friends then found themselves being joined by a rather grumpy Sapphire. It's bad enough some of the younger ones are looking at you four in awe, my own bloody family though are doing the same thing to me. You'd think they didn't know who I was. First one of them to ask for my autograph is getting a smack around the head. This resulted in laughter, along with Draco and Pansy joining the group. I was surprised you gave that secret away today, that's bound to make its way back to Voldemort. Draco's comments just saw Harry shrug his shoulders. Of our forms, Saber is probably the most dangerous. Actually, Neville can make a quite compelling case for Padma being the most dangerous of us in her human form too, but that's another matter. If you were getting attacked by a hawk, what would you do? This had Draco thinking. Well, that would depend on how much damage I wanted to do. Something like a flame curse would be pretty effective though. When you think about it a little more, you'll see you're spoilt for choice. Our forms are handy for surveillance and travel. In any magical fight, they quickly become liabilities. Yes, I'm certainly mobile as Swift, but I can't shield and activating my armor reduces my speed to a point where I would be easily picked off. Voldemort though will soon be factoring that ability into his plans, an ability I have no intention of using when we face each other. Pansy was certainly enough of a Slytherin to appreciate those tactics. He'll be prepared for you to use that, and probably surprised when you don't. This saw Harry nodding. He'll also be preparing a defense against the shotgun, something else we won't be using. Even if this only buys us a couple of seconds where it sees him hesitate, those seconds could be priceless. A droll voice came from behind Harry. A very astute analysis, Centurion, one I'm sure you don't want overheard. I trust everyone in this room, Potions Master Snape, otherwise they wouldn't be here. I know you were quite a bit away from the stadium today but I was wondering what you made of Dumbledore's outburst. Albus always thinks he knows more than everyone else. Can I assume, since Amelia so effectively destroyed his argument, that incident was planned? A nod was Harry's only answer but Hermione elaborated further. We have some very clever people helping us. Professor, you are certainly included in that group. I hate to think the mess we would make of it if we tried this alone. Never gonna happen. This was practically growled out by Neville, earning him a kiss from Padma. It had been hard for him to sit there today, waiting to see what would unfold. Without the threat of Voldemort gatecrashing, Neville would have been sitting back and laughing with the rest of their friends who were in on the animagi secret. His mate had no idea just how sexy she looked, standing on the edge of the astronomy tower before fearlessly diving off. Her transformation into Saber had the stadium going crazy, and Neville's chest swelling with pride. He had noticed some of the older wizards practically drooling over Padma but Neville wasn't worried in the slightest. Padma herself would kick their asses if any dared make a move or suggestion she considered inappropriate. His mate was one scary witch when she wanted to be. Hermione finally got a chance to dance with their father. How has your birthday been? Since this is the very first birthday that I've ever gotten the chance to dance with my daughter at, I would have to say it's my best ever. Thank you so much for helping arrange this. Oh, I can't accept any thanks, since this was a purely selfish act on my part. I wanted to be with you on your special day. I know it's something Harry really wanted too. They looked over to where Harry was sitting beside his godfather. Both had a baby on their knee. Those two are more alike than would seem possible. This drew a smile from Barchoke. Perhaps it's because both want the same things from life, things they perhaps thought they would never have. It was a very fortunate day for my son when he met you on that train. Because of you, all his dreams are coming true. Harry features heavily in my dreams too, father. That's why I could never lose him, and will be at his side in this fight. The nation would know when she and Harry completed their bond. Hermione's status would change within Gringotts. She was trying to lay the groundworks here so their father wouldn't be shocked when it happened. The wise, now 60-year-old goblin, managed to surprise his daughter. I couldn't imagine you allowing him to fight alone, even though that's probably what he was hoping for. Part of him knows he needs you, Padma, Neville and Tonks with him, another part however hates the very thought that he's putting you four in danger. I assumed, it would appear correctly, that you will complete your bond before the final task. Dan and Emma have made the same assumption. Accepting you were old enough to face Voldemort was a lot harder than something we all knew was going to be in your future anyway. You won't get any grief from there either over this. This news had tears welling in the corners of Hermione's eyes. It's your birthday, you're not supposed to be the one handing out presents today. That is such a precious gift, we really don't want to deceive anyone with this. We will be going to the island the weekend before the final task. Remus and Tonks will be there too, along with Padma and Neville. Barchoke could feel his daughter trembling as she said that. It was time to put her mind to rest. These four certainly had enough to worry about without adding something else to their burden. Again, not something unexpected. All the parents involved seem to be of the opinion that this is justifiable, considering what else you are facing. Providing you don't then expect to be living as married couples after that, I think all concerned will be happy to pretend it didn't happen. Personally, as long as you two come back to me after the fight, you can live your lives whatever way you want. Just come back to us, that is all that matters. Hermione had stopped dancing and was now just standing there hugging the wonderful person that she was proud to call father. Barchoke thought that was simply the best birthday present he could ever have. The Hogsmeade weekend was only 2 weeks later. People were already noticing the subtle changes though even in those 2 weeks. The four friends were already a pretty driven bunch, but that intensity had gone up a few notches. As their training had intensified and gotten more specialized, they were forced to exclude Victor and Fleur from these lessons. Both champions still trained with them every morning, having clearly felt the benefits during the second task, but now only participated on a Sunday with Roger, Cedric and the Weasley twins. The Hogsmeade weekend again saw Harry and Tonks taking charge of security for the students' visit. Neville, Padma and Hermione were once more riding shotgun on Crow's marauders. Since Valentine's Day fell on the Sunday, Harry and Tonks were worried that some couples might try to slip away for some alone time. There had been no Death Eater activity, but neither wanted to offer up any easy targets. Luna and Colin stuck with the group. Both were very proud of now being marauder trainers. With that position though came certain responsibilities. They got to spend the day together, walking around Hogsmeade in the company of friends while holding hands. The young couple were happy with that. Hermione didn't get to see Harry until their now customary walk back to the castle, the head count telling him everyone would soon be safely back inside Hogwarts. The four friends were going to have a quiet dinner together in the room tonight. Barchoke's revelations to Hermione if anything had brought the two couples even closer. Harry was making his way downstairs to meet Hermione and Padma in the Ravenclaw common room when he found himself faced with a nervous Roger, who'd clearly been waiting on him. Harry, I don't know what's the matter, but clearly something is wrong. If we've done something. Oh shit, sorry Roger, no one has done anything, it's just something we're dealing with at the moment. Our new training is brutal and it would seem we've let some of that intensity spill over. We should get used to it in a few more weeks. If you're sure that's all it is. A few of us were just worried about you four. We're fine, Roger, but there is something you can help us with. Anything, Harry? Well, you know the four of us are getting married next summer. Being the organized people that they are, Hermione and Padma have already chosen the bridesmaids. With the way things are progressing between Parvati and Blaise, it's looking like he'll be part of the wedding party too. That leaves Neville and I having to find one each. Would you be my best man, Roger? It was a stunned Roger who could do no more than state the blindingly obvious. You want me to be your best man? I don't think you'll mind too much if I told you Neville would have been my first choice. Since he'll now be a groom that day too, yours was the next name I thought of. You've been a friend to us since we first sat at the Ravenclaw table. We hope to continue that friendship for many years to come. So, will you do it? Harry, I'd be honored. A firm handshake of thanks later and Harry was on his way, leaving behind a Roger who'd gone from being nervous to utterly bewildered. This bewildered version finally caught up with his girlfriend at the entrance to the Great Hall. Are you feeling poorly, Roger? You seem, how do you say, distracted. Did you talk with Harry? Is that what is wrong? A quick kiss of greeting settled Fleur down and allowed Roger to lead her over to the Ravenclaw table. There is nothing wrong with me or Harry, love. It's just their new training that has them acting a bit different. Harry just asked me something that totally blew me away. He wants me to be best man at his wedding. A happy squeal from Fleur alerted everyone that something was going on. She didn't care though. She knew how much her boyfriend valued Harry's friendship. To see that Harry valued his just as much would easily account for Roger's current dazed expression. Fleur had also since learned it had been Harry's suggestion that Roger should ask her out, something they were both pretty happy about. Roger's good news was soon spreading throughout the hall, along with his explanation on why the four friends had seemed so distant lately. They all reached the same conclusion: there couldn't be too much wrong if they were planning for their weddings. Harry was currently telling the other three what had happened, leaving Neville shrugging his shoulders. I was originally thinking Colin might be a good choice. Seeing how he reacted after the second task has left me thinking I'd be better waiting a while. If he and Luna weren't still together next year, it could get really awkward, and that's the last thing we need. If not Colin, I was thinking of Cedric or Draco. All agreed with his thinking, although Padma had another concern. How did our friends pick up on this so quickly? I wasn't even aware we were acting differently. It's the bloody training. We've spent the last 3.5 years learning to fight. Now they won't let us. I know Amelia means well, but I think we stand a better chance of pulling this off if we stick to what we're good at. Shielding and dodging until they pull those wards down might sound right to them. It just doesn't feel right to us. A kiss from Harry soon had Hermione feeling a lot better, that and his reminder that this was a date, so no more talk of unpleasant things. They would be surprised to discover they had an unlikely champion of their cause. Amelia had been badgered until she had to come and see for herself. She was standing watching this and simply couldn't see anything wrong. The three sworn to secrecy auras were firing curses at their opponents, and hitting nothing but the occasional shield. Mad Eye, I just don't see what the problem is here. The plan is working perfectly. They survive until we pull down the wards, and then we'll deal with those bastards. Amelia, you know theirs is no such beast as the perfect plan. It's going well because none of them are hit. When one of them goes down, the whole thing crumbles. You're the one who told me about the bond between this lot, and how it was their main strength. That strength becomes a weakness when one of them goes down. They would literally do anything to help each other. She could just imagine the rest of them standing over whoever fell, taking whatever curses came their way in an effort to protect the downed friend. What are you suggesting, Alastair? Let them loose, release the shackles this strategy puts them under and allow them to do what they are simply brilliant at. At least let me show you what I mean. Since she was already here, Amelia didn't have a problem with that. A signal to Shaq saw him call a 5-minute break. Mad Eye intended to use those 5 minutes constructively. He headed straight for the defending group to have a quiet word. I can see none of you are really happy with this strategy. Personally, I agree with you. The best way to survive a fight is to take the other bastard out as quickly as you can. Something you lot have been training at since you were wee firsties. How about we show Amelia just what you're capable of? That put smiles on their faces as Mad Eye made his way back to Amelia. The five had some planning of their own to do. As Shaq called fight, a blitzkrieg of magic hit the three unsuspecting auras. One was taken out immediately, the other two were swiftly maneuvered into positions where they couldn't help each other and soon succumbed. Mad Eye shoved his stopwatch under Amelia's nose. It was stopped at 21 seconds. The auras weren't prepared. You didn't tell them the rules had changed. Amelia, there are no rules in a fight. Voldemort is only expecting Crow, so he's in for a surprise too. I thought that was a fair test, one those 5 just passed with flying colors. It's hardly a fair test, comparing 3 auras to what they're really up against. I'll give you that one, Amelia. What about me, you and Shaq? Do you think that would be a fairer comparison, and we would know what to expect from these 5? This was too important, she simply had to get this right, even if it meant facing the 5 of them in combat. Amelia nodded her agreement before getting ready to fight. Mad Eye handed his stopwatch to one of the auras who would now be sitting in the shielded area before deliberately picking a fight with their 5 opponents. Now children, let's see how you fare against some real opposition. Remember, I still owe you lot an ass kickin' from way back. He was deliberately winding them up so they would come at them with everything they had. Oh, and Crow, you won't learn anything letting this room do your fightin' for you. You have to admit one thing though, taking Dumbledore down like that, it was funny. As Mad Eye laughed at that, his own lack of constant vigilance then came back to haunt him. A starburst charm sent a wave of pain directly to his brain as his artificial eye couldn't adjust quickly enough to cut out the blindingly bright flash of light. His wand was in his hand and he had his strongest shield up, it was all to no avail. A golden Harry had raced over and physically swept the legs from under him before a stunner put Master Auror Moody out of the fight. Amelia felt as if she was fighting for her life. Tonks, Harry and Hermione were barely giving her time to breathe, far less do much else than try to survive the onslaught. She thought the odds had been even slightly when one of her curses got through Hermione's magical shields, only for her goblin one to deflect that curse away. That the girl had the presence of mind to not only do this in the middle of a fight, but also deliberately deflect that curse at Shaq was really frightening. That Amelia's own curse distracted Shaq enough for Neville to then take him down meant the fight was as good as over, their far superior numbers meaning Amelia soon joined her 2 colleagues on the floor. After being revived and helped to a seat, Amelia once more found a certain stopwatch filling her vision. Mad Eye was not happy. 28 seconds, they fucking took the 3 of us down in 28 seconds. If I didn't know how quickly they got me, I would think these 3 were tacking the piss to try and make themselves look good. The 3 auras Mad Eye was indicating toward didn't take any offense at his remarks, they were still too shocked at how quickly that had been over. Mad Eye was right though, this lent some credibility to what they had previously considered an abysmal showing. The 3 most powerful auras at the Ministry had only lasted 7 seconds longer. Mad Eye pushed home his advantage. Yes, we will keep practicing their Evadan, we would do that anyway, but we need to allow them the freedom of being able to slip the leash and attack too. Another few weeks of this and I'm willing to bet the Centurion here would have taken that decision out of our hands. Not surprised the scarred old Auror had figured that out, Harry thought he might as well confirm his suspicions. Amelia, we really appreciate everything you're doing to keep us safe, but we will be the ones in there. These 4 will be my responsibility. I have to make the decisions that will hopefully see us all safely home. We need to use the time we have to get Tonks fully integrated into our group, so she knows instinctively exactly what we're going to do in any given situation. Having just had her ass effectively handed to her, Amelia couldn't fault their logic or arguments. She also knew, in any real fight with this group, Goblin Steel would also be used. Harry, you have any help the Ministry are able to give. I know that, on the day, you will all do your best to look out for each other. That's really the most important thing here. Amelia, on the night they attacked your home, none of these 3 really saw how we fight. We have spent the last few years developing this method of fighting, and made damn sure no one outside those we trust have ever seen it. This will be our surprise for Voldemort. We'd rather pin our hopes on this than try to evade while you pull the wards down. Amelia could see the other 4 agreed with this, as did Mad Eye and Shaq. Harry though had more to say. The area we have to fight in will be determined by whatever they ward. Without a building or structure to tie those wards to, increasing the area weakens the wards. We think this fight might take place in an area not much bigger than the pit. Remember, those 3 are only expecting me, and certainly won't want to give me anything to take shelter behind. We need to use everything we have to gain any advantage, this is what we have. All 6 of the auras who had faced them that morning couldn't really argue against any of that. Amelia though had one last card to play, she handed Neville and Padma black dragon skin wallets. Both opened them to find freshly minted special Auror badges inside. This is to provide you both with a degree of protection. As head of the DMLE you are hereby authorized to do whatever is necessary to survive this battle. There certainly won't be receiving any censure from the Ministry, this just makes it official and stops anyone else interfering. She then turned her attention to Hermione. There is certainly a badge available for you too, we just weren't sure what the protocol is for offering one to the mate of a Centurion. Harry really appreciated the gesture but was quick to point out it wasn't really necessary in Hermione's case. As my mate, Hermione is classed as a citizen of the nation, there will be no need for a badge, unless she wants one. The lady in question took a moment to think the offer over. In Goblin society, females can't be warriors. This would actually legitimize my right to fight by Harry's side in that community's minds. I'm also pretty sure there has never been a Goblin Auror before. A smile from Harry encouraged Amelia to remove a 3rd wallet. Hermione Granger was now a special operative within the Auror department too. The entire Great Hall couldn't miss that it was a far happier group of 4 who sat down to lunch that Thursday. Harry answered Roger before he could even ask his question. I told you we would get it sorted. Dolores was desperate, bluffing with the crazy bitch. Lestrange wasn't her idea of fun or excitement. While Rookwood was reading the Prophet's report of the second task, his girlfriend wanted to know how Dolores was going to accomplish hers. I still have some friends in the Ministry. They have no idea what I'm involved in but know and share my views on Crow and the Beasts. Quote ellipsis. He's an animagi. It says here his form is a bird. Crow is actually a swift, a name he lived up to. As a bird, he's lightning fast and far more maneuverable than any broom. There's a book on those birds sitting in the kitchen. I thought our master would want all the information he could get. Anything to see Crow dead. Both Death Eaters could see how much Dolores wanted that to happen, they had just given her the means to do so. Place that on the cup, a sticking charm should do. You activate the portkey using the phrase written on the parchment. It will only work for Crow. Touching the cup will bring him to us. Bella had grabbed the newspaper out of her mate's hands the minute he mentioned Crow was an animagus. We were also going to get you to hamper the other two champions. It would appear that won't be necessary. Despite you marking him down, everyone recognizes he's won both tasks so far. The third task is always to retrieve the cup from wherever they place it, and through whatever obstacles are in the way. Touching the cup will be the last thing he ever does. His moment of triumph will soon see him die. We'll send his body back to his little mudblood mate. The press are sure to print pictures of her crying over it. That is an issue of the Prophet we certainly want you to get a copy of for us. Imagining the tearful scene was enough to make Dolores smile. She would certainly be buying a few copies of that issue. Behind the bedroom curtain, a certain beetle was imagining a completely different headline, one she would take great pleasure in writing. Rita Skeeter would get to tell the entire story of Voldemort's downfall, and the part Dumbledore and Umbridge played in it. Rita now knew enough about goblin culture to understand that, should anything happen to any of the 14s fighting Voldemort, neither Dolores nor Dumbledore would see Azkaban. Director Ragnick would demand they were both fed to the Gringotts dragons, and there wouldn't be a voice raised in magical Britain against that being allowed to happen. Minister Fudge would probably personally hand them over to Gringotts. Things at Hogwarts soon settled back into a routine for the four friends, a routine that saw some of their family visit the Blacks either Saturday or Sunday of every weekend. The family were determined to support their children in the lead up to the final task. Either the Longbottoms, Grangers, Pattles or Barchoke were inside Hogwarts once a week to see the four as they took the usual lesson with Sirius. It was a very proud Neville who showed his mum and dad their new Auror badges. The final task had been unofficially set for the 24th of June, meaning they would be leaving for the island after potions on Friday, the 18th. Thanks to Hermione's plan, this was the date that was at the forefront of the four teenagers' minds. The only day they allocated themselves off training was the 2nd of May, Padma and Parvati's birthday. Smeeta and Ramrao were the visitors that Sunday, and had brought some news that would take the four's minds off what they would be facing for a while. Parvati, I've been contacted by the Zabini family concerning a betrothal between you and their son. I have the forms here, only needing my signature, and I understand Blaze was hoping you would be wearing his family's ring to your birthday party tonight. The choice though is yours to make. Smeeta now had her arm around Parvati's shoulder, offering support and confirming what her husband had just said. The decision is yours to make. If you don't want this, or even think you need more time to make your mind up, we'll support you. Mum, Dad, I want this. Blaze has been fantastic with me, standing by me while I eventually grew up. He's sweet, kind and handsome. What more could I want? I notice you didn't mention love in there. Was that deliberate? I really like Blaze, Mum, more than any boy I've ever met. I think we could be really good together, and I would be satisfied with that. I can see us being happy together for the rest of our lives. Whether that's love I don't know, and honestly don't really care. I almost ruined my life with that romantic rubbish, not any longer. Blaze is now my best friend, and becoming so much more. I took my sister's advice, and she was right. Tears began running down Parvati's cheeks at that. Suddenly she was out her seat and throwing herself at Padma. She was clinging to her twin while trying to talk through her sobs. You're going to be my bridesmaid. You need to be there. I need you to be there. Promise me you'll be there. Parv, I promise I will do everything in my power to be there, and these three will be helping me keep that promise. She managed to get her crying back under some control. Parvati was in danger of setting a few people off. I know you will, Padma. You four have your own weddings to look forward to as well. It's just so hard, sitting here and not being able to help. Sirius practically growled his response to that. You are not alone in feeling like that, Parvati. We're all sharing that pain. This confused the four, though Padma as usual was quickest with her answer. You are helping us, immensely. Just knowing we have everyone's support means so much to us, and seeing some of our parents every weekend was a brilliant idea. Our family keeps growing. I'm gonna have another brother, and we're all happy about that. We may have the strangest family in the world, but it's also the greatest. Harry's smile at that lit up the room. They all knew who Padma already considered her brother, something a certain centurion was ecstatic about. His sister wasn't quite finished yet though. Kissing my betrothed as a 15-year-old is the best feeling in the world, Parv, just wait until you try it. She was currently sitting next to her twin, with Neville on Padma's other side. This was just too good a chance to pass up though. Parvati effortlessly slid onto Neville's lap and had both arms around his neck. Well, Padma, if you insist. Parvati leaned into a clearly panicking Neville, and gave him a sisterly kiss on the cheek. Once again, Hermione noticed the similarities between her mate and his godfather. It was hard not to, since both were laughing so hard they had slipped off their chairs and onto the floor. Every time they looked in Neville or Padma's direction, their laughter would kick off anew. Henrika had a giggling Astrid on her knee. Your daddy is such a silly wizard, isn't he, my darling? This increased her giggling before the entire room heard what came next. Dada, dada. Sirius had stopped laughing, his smile though was wide and one of wonder. Astrid was scooped into her father's arms as Sirius wanted to hear that sound again. Did my little princess just say dada? Let me hear that again. A pair of pudgy little hands smacked Sirius on either cheek, as if his daughter was emphasizing just who she was talking about. Dada, dada. The proud father was now dancing about the room with his giggling daughter in his arms. She's a daddy's girl, my little princess is a daddy's girl. His wife was trying for a miffed expression, and failing miserably. Oh please, have you seen the two men in her life? Her poor mummy never stood a chance. She found herself being scooped into her husband's spare arm and receiving a kiss while their daughter had an arm around both their necks. Harry was back sitting with his arm around Hermione, clearly moved by the scene in front of them. Quote ellipsis. And that is why we fight. He hadn't meant for anyone else other than Hermione to hear. His emotions were all over the place though, and Harry's voice was louder than intended. The entire room heard, and everyone currently in that room agreed. Albus thought what he held in his hands was a work of art, in more ways than one. It was specifically designed to be placed on the base of the Triwizard Cup. Its real genius though was the fact it made no attempt at hiding, it actually did the exact opposite. Hiding in plain sight was utter genius, as was just how this impossible feat had been accomplished. The attachment would fit onto the trophy like a glove, it literally had been made to measure. Its other purpose was to display the names of previous winners of the Tri-Wizard tournament, with even a space left to add this year's winner's name. Instead of trying to hide, it screamed, "Look at me." Albus couldn't help but chuckle at the thought of all three champions admiring the names on the portkey, and hoping their own name would soon join this illustrious company. That was never going to happen though. Dolores had even been supplied with her cover story to attach the portkey. The cup was currently being held at the ministry, in Dolores' old department. If she was unable to sneak in there and do the deed without anyone knowing, Dolores was to say she had it made especially for the tournament, and then forgot all about the piece after her involvement ended. The portkey itself showed negative to almost every magical scan, needing Harry's touch to activate it. That last part was the second reason why Albus thought this was a work of art, and also the reason why it had taken him over 3 weeks to decipher the bloody thing. That task being accomplished though, he had then been able to add a little touch of his own. It may raise Tom's suspicions, but Lord Voldemort wanted Harry Potter dead, he needed to kill the boy and wouldn't look a gift horse in the mouth. Tom would kill Harry, completing the prophecy, and then Albus would save the country. Save the world even. Albus Dumbledore liked the sound of that. Thanks for reading. 2 I think it would be appropriate to finish Harry Crow on the 5th of June, exactly 2 years after I posted the very first chapter. Since I currently don't have one word of the next chapter written, not sure if I'll manage that. I'll only know it's time to end the story when I have nothing left to say. Think I have at least 4 chapters worth still spinning around in my head. You'll just have to do the same as me, wait and see. It's time. Harry Crow. Disclaimer, JKR owns all things Harry Potter. Chapter 101. Quidditch fever had once more gripped Hogwarts. The last 2 round-robin matches had been contested over the previous weekends, resulting in this Saturday's final being between Slytherin and Durmstrang. With Victor and Draco being part of the large group of friends enjoying lunch that Monday, the conversation was never going to stay away from Quidditch for long. So Harry, will you be coming to Vatch the final on Saturday? I am looking forward to playing against Draco, surely you could miss training for just one day to Vatch your friends compete. We will be missing training this weekend, Victor, but won't be spending that time watching Quidditch. Tonks thinks we have been overdoing the training this term, and has ordered us to have a weekend of rest before I have the final task next week. To us, the best place to rest is on my island, we'll be leaving for there right after our potions class on Friday. Since Tonks is still on protection detail, she and Remus are coming too. This drew a quip from Padma, wanting to divert attention away for the real reason behind their trip. We're not sure whether Tonks is just saying we need a rest so she and Remus can have a holiday too. As Neville and I are included as well, we really don't care. There's no way we would refuse a weekend in the Maldives. Sorry Victor, no Quidditch match can live up to that. Pansy was quick to confirm she agreed with Padma's assessment. Too true, even with Draco playing, I'd still rather be on Harry's island. Her comments even found agreement from her seeker boyfriend. Pansy in her bikini or Victor in his Quidditch robes is no contest for me either. If there are any spare invitations going, you could count Pansy and me in too. This was something they wanted to nip in the bud. Hermione got in first. Sorry Draco, the idea is for us to get away and forget about everything for the weekend. Victor could hardly believe his ears. This must be some island, Harry. The Bulgarian was quickly assured it was by anyone sitting there who had visited it. Also wanting to divert attention away from this weekend, Hermione made an on-the-spot decision. We held a birthday party for these 2 there last year. I think we should do the same again this summer, and everyone sitting here is invited. You'll then be able to make your own mind up, Victor. While this delighted everyone, it also opened an unexpected can of worms. It was Morag who set the ball rolling. Have you made holiday plans for this summer yet? Looking around, their friends told the 4 this was something that had been getting discussed. Susan, Hannah and Luna were all now staring at their plates in embarrassment, something Harry was never going to stand for. I'm really sorry, everyone. All 4 of us have gotten so wrapped up in our training that we haven't made any plans for summer. Whatever our plans are though, you know we'll want to spend some of that summer with our friends and family. I think we should organize a family meeting for the following weekend. We can all sit down and plan our summer from there. Looking on as Luna, Susan and Hannah all broke into smiles was actually painful to watch. Harry could only hope they forgave him for not including them in the loop. Parvati, Pansy and Draco's expressions were rather strained, all 3 just hoping the entire family were available to sit down that weekend to plan their summer. Trying to keep the good mood going, Hermione made a point of letting Fleur and Victor know they were certainly classed as friends, and they would be planning to see them at some point over the summer. With a joint birthday party on a tropical island to look forward to, and the distinct possibility some of them would also be included in further holiday plans, talk of Quidditch actually took a back seat for the rest of the day. Blaise had noticed his betrothed flinch during the holiday conversations but waited until it was just the 2 of them to talk with Parvati about it. Do you want to tell me what's going on? There was all that talk of holidays yet you appeared as if that was nothing but bad news. You love those holidays. I know, and I'm really looking forward to them this year. I can't tell you any more, Blaise, it's not my secret to tell. I promise you this though, you will know everything before that family meeting, and also be included in it. After watching the ass Colin had made of himself with Luna regarding the Animagi incident, Blaise was certain this was the same scenario here. He was also certain the same players would once more be center stage and had no intention of forcing Parvati's hand on this one. Can you at least tell me that these concerns are to do with your sister, and have nothing to do with our betrothal? A passionate kiss later and Blaise's last question had been answered. He was also smart enough to figure out what was going on. Between all the training those 4 put in, and the event that was scheduled to take place between these 2 weekends, his as yet unanswered question just became a lot clearer. I'll be right beside you during the 3rd task. Thanks for understanding, Blaise, and I have this terrible feeling I'll really need you to be right beside me on that day. With Crow's marauders taking place that evening, the couple spent a quiet few hours alone together contemplating just what the future might hold. With the summer now well and truly upon them, Emma and Dan were enjoying the Highland sunshine by taking Jamie down to the playground. This was one of the parts Harry had insisted be left after the fair, and, although the carousels, puppet shows and all the other forms of entertainment were now gone, it was still a well-used facility. Both had gotten used to meeting the other parents as they too used the playground for their children, and Jamie certainly enjoyed sitting on a blanket with a couple of his goblin friends who were also too young for the swings and such. Harry would be delighted to know his Kingusi estate was becoming a real community. It wasn't too difficult to imagine Astrid Black sitting on that blanket along with Jamie and their little goblin friends, while the parents all sat having a chat in the sunshine. Even thinking about her other children nearly had the tears flowing for Emma. She and Dan both knew Hermione would do absolutely anything to fight by Harry's side and help keep him safe. They also recognized that, although Harry probably didn't want Hermione anywhere near this fight, they would certainly be safer together. Neither she nor Dan were too bothered about this weekend their children had planned. Both knew what would be happening during that weekend, but how could you complain when Harry was whisking her off to a beautiful tropical island? It was only a few months before Hermione could do so legally, and this time next summer they would all be embroiled in planning their wedding. What had reduced Emma to sobs was Barchoke informing them Harry and Hermione had made their wills. There was certainly no comfort from knowing Jamie would be the main beneficiary. The very thought of them needing to write their last will and testaments was far more terrifying than any hang-ups over them losing their virginities to each other, something that was always going to happen anyway. The mother in Emma was struggling with the decision that would put both Harry and Hermione in deadly danger. No amount of logical explanations would change that. She could only pray the five of them came through this unscathed. Emma simply couldn't contemplate any other scenarios. Another family were also enjoying the Scottish sunshine, though there were certainly no goblins within sight of the Flannan Isles. This was a very special day for the family. Marvolo Rookwood was now 1 year old. Augustus had risked a late-night raid on a muggle store to make this day special for his son. They even had cake and a few toys as presents. Their master wasn't one for sitting out in the sun, so it was left to just the three of them to enjoy Marvolo's special day. Since delivering the portkey to Umbridge, their only task left to accomplish was to kill the boy on the 24th, now only 9 days away. Augustus would have to say that his time spent here, this last year especially, was the happiest of his life. He had always thought his chances of having a loving wife and family were at best a pipe dream. Now he, Augustus Rookwood, had a stunningly beautiful wife and the most wonderful son imaginable. While he now thought their chances of pulling this off next week were good, Augustus certainly drew comfort from knowing that their son would be found if anything happened to Bella and him. Watching as Marvolo took his first teetering steps in this world, Augustus thought their boy deserved a better life than hiding out on this remote island. One thing Augustus was sure of, by next weekend Marvolo would begin that journey to a better life. He could only hope it was Bella and him who led their son to this promise of a better life. Harry was leading them off the castle grounds when they came across Parvati and Pansy waiting on them. Hugs were exchanged before the six left the Hogwarts grounds and portkeyed away. I suppose I should be jealous, knowing how they are going to be spending this weekend. Then I remember what they're facing on Thursday, and any jealousy gets its arse well and truly kicked. When Blaze and I have our first time together, I don't want it to be because we might both be dead by the following weekend. Seeing the tears running down Parvati's cheeks, Pansy soon had her arm around her friend. Draco and I are in the same position. Sometimes I wish we didn't know what was happening. Oh no, that's much worse. I've tried that and your imagination can paint all different pictures of what's really going on. It's much better to know the truth. While offering comfort to Parvati, Pansy couldn't really agree with that analogy. Perhaps it was because she couldn't think of anything worse than to willingly face the people who had tortured her father to death. The six found themselves facing 3 chalets with the lights on, and the path from the beach lit so they could make their way safely to their accommodation. Going from the long summer day at Hogwarts to night in the Maldives took a moment to acclimatize their eyes too. Sensing their nervousness, Tonks broke the awkward silence. Well, I don't know about anyone else, but I thought that was a bloody long week. I plan on spending a nice quiet evening with Wolfie here. I'm sure you four will be able to keep yourselves entertained. We'll take the middle chalet. That lets me do my job of keeping you lot safe better. With that, she dragged Remus away. Padma was glad it was dark so no one could see how much she was blushing. She grabbed her mate's hand and started dragging Neville off to the chalet on the extreme left of the row. Harry offered Hermione his arm as they headed right. He soon changed that to his arm being around her waist as he could feel his mate tremble. They entered the chalet and Hermione could see Harry had thought of everything. There was soft music playing in the background and there was a candlelit table set for a romantic dinner for two. Hermione hadn't come here to eat though. Harry, this is beautiful and so thoughtful. If you don't take me into the bedroom right away though, I'm going to rip that shirt right off you and we'll end up on the floor. Or Hermione, I like this shirt. Harry then found himself lost for words as he could see the lust reflected in Hermione's eyes. Wanting to let her know he felt exactly the same way, he ripped his own shirt right off and threw it away. Harry obviously got it right because Hermione launched herself at him, her hands wandering everywhere while their lips were locked. Without breaking their kiss, Harry lovingly scooped her up into his arms and headed for the bedroom. Their relationship had slowly progressed to the point where there would be no embarrassment tonight, just natural concern that they could each make the experience as pleasurable as possible for the other. It was understandable then that both had their attention on other things, neither noticing the golden glow radiating out the room at the exact moment their bond completed. Henrika found Sirius standing beside the daughter's cot. His gaze never shifted from Astrid and tears were slowly running down his cheeks. She wrapped her arms around her husband, not even needing to ask the question. Sirius though wanted to say what was on his mind. I feel oh so blessed, love. Having you and our wonderful daughter in my life are more than I ever though possible, probably more than I deserve. That same life has taught me though things are always in balance, there will be a price to pay for this happiness. I just can't shake this horrible feeling that the price is going to be paid on Thursday, by some of our family. I love every single one of those teens, and Tonks is not only family but married to my best friend. Not being able to do anything is killing me. I don't know how their patents are coping with this. I just look at our little Astrid and I'm the blubbing wreck you found standing here. Gently kissing her emotional husband, Henrika understood at once what the problem was here. Sirius was worried he was failing his godson, his family, and by extension the daughter. Both Astrid's godparents would be right in the middle of this. Using your own balance system, did it never occur to you those scales of life were overdue to swing in a positive direction for my wonderful husband? I know you've had a shitty life, love, and are struggling to accept you should be this happy. You are a loving husband, wonderful father, and Harry thinks you're the best godfather on the planet, after him and Neville of course. We've done everything we can, now all that's left to do is support the members of our family as best we can. Between now and Thursday, during that entire day and after too, we'll all need each other. Sirius's arms snaked around his beautiful wife. I'll need you way past Thursday, I need you every day for the rest of my life. Well, it's a good job you married me then, because I'm not going anywhere. Mum and Dad are arriving tomorrow too, supposedly to watch the Quidditch, but they'll be staying in Scotland until after the third task. What do you say about having an early night and trying to make them grandparents twice over? I would say that's a wonderful idea. Sirius's thoughts wandered for a moment before he told his wife where they had gone. You know, I don't think any of the family would mind if those girls came back from that island pregnant. As long as they come back from this fight on Thursday, they will be forgiven for just about anything. I agree, but there's no chance of that happening. Tonks made sure the entire situation was taken care of, for all three of them. This puzzled Sirius. I thought Tonks wanted a family. Oh, she does. Stop and think for a moment though. If she found herself pregnant, there isn't a chance in hell either Remus or Harry would let her anywhere near this fight. When this is finally over, you might not see Remus for quite a while. Tonks has a fair bit of leave stacked up from the last 2 years, and I can't see Amelia turning down her request to use it. Tonks intends to be pregnant before the new term starts in September. This actually coaxed a smile from Sirius. Remus is indeed going to be busy. I seem to remember you mentioning it was time we got busy ourselves. Let's go and see if we can come up with a little sister or brother for our Astrid. They left their sleeping daughter's room, Henrika thinking her mission was accomplished. Sirius was certainly in a better frame of mind than when she first entered. Due to the unprecedented circumstances, his friends didn't want Barchoke to be celebrating the completion of his son and daughter's bond alone. Since this would usually occur the same evening as the couple's bonding, the parents would normally still be at the celebrations. Ragnick, Sharpshard, Pitsley and the proud father all shared tankards of grog as Hermione officially became Barchoke's daughter, a citizen of the nation and the new Lady Potter. As with all events like this, reminiscing was at the forefront of their minds. It doesn't seem that long ago he was just a little bundle being deposited on my desk, now he's married his mate. I called him Crow and he used cunning. The bird would be proud of to turn that back on me. Had I known then what we know now, I would probably have called him Emir. The director was halted from saying any more by Barchoke's loud laughter. It took him a moment to recover before the ambassador could answer his three friends. I'm sorry, but you would find that as funny as I did if you knew more about the Muggles. Their queen has a grandson called Prince Harry. This did indeed set the other three off laughing. The quantities of grog being consumed might have had something to do with that though. Pitsley offered his opinion. Your son truly is a prince, Barchoke. He also chooses his friends as wisely as he picked his mate. They are such a force for positive change that Gringotts has already progressed beyond where I had even dared to dream was possible. Sharpshard's sentiment was of a completely different kind. He was well named Crow. The name for a group of them is a murder. That's what it will be on Thursday. We'll murder these honorless child-killing cowards where they stand before they can hurt anyone else, and then I intend to be drunk for a week. I don't think the nation has such a grog reserve, old friend. Barchoke still raised his glass though and toasted with the rest of them to that. That wonderful outcome might see Barchoke drunk for a week too. It wasn't the first time Harry had woken with Hermione in his arms. It was the first time though doing so while both of them were naked. Just thinking of last night saw his arms tighten even more around his mate, causing Hermione to make a noise similar to that of a contented moonlight. He kissed the top of her head as Hermione snuggled in even more, if that was possible. I could get used to waking up like this for the rest of my life. Only one more summer to go, Hermione, then that's exactly what will happen. I hate to say this, love, but I think we need to get up. Harry, you mention us both needing a shower. I swear you'll be sleeping in the other room tonight. Or, I was looking forward to washing your hair too. Unless you intend to spend the entire weekend in this chalet, we should get up and ready for our run. There was a moment of silence while Hermione considered her options. Staying in this chalet is a very attractive option. Looking at his naked mate, Harry certainly agreed with that. Quote ellipsis. But we still have to face people. A run and then breakfast with everyone sounds good. How about an afternoon siesta though? I knew you were the brains here. That sounds wonderful. So does getting my hair washed in the shower. Let's go. Meeting Padma and Neville could have been awkward, but both girls grabbed each other by the hand and then raced ahead, leaving Harry and Neville no choice but to follow on. There was no awkwardness between the boys either. They may have ran in silence, but the shit-eating grin Neville was wearing told everyone he was very happy with his life at the moment. The occasional bout of giggles coming from the girls meant they were being discussed, but again Neville just smiled at Padma as if she was an angel who'd fallen to earth just for him. They must have run over a mile before Neville broke the comfortable silence. Harry, we are the two luckiest blokes on the planet. There was no argument coming from Harry on that subject, yet he recognized that his brother in all but blood had more to say. I'm not scared anymore, Harry. Oh sure, I'm still frightened of what could happen when we face these bastards, but I'm not scared anymore. Padma did that. She made a man of me in more ways than just the obvious. My journey started when we first met. You offered me your hand in friendship and introduced me to the most wonderful witch in the world. I'm trying to say thanks, Harry, for everything. Nev, are we lucky? Hell yes. Do you need to thank me for anything? Absolutely not. Friendship and family is a two-way thing. You've more than held up your end of the bargain. His smile might not be able to widen any further, but Neville nodded in acknowledgement and thanks. Hermione thought this weekend would show us what our future held, and make us all fight harder to make that future come true. As usual, my beautiful mate was right. Next summer those two become our wives, and I will do absolutely anything to ensure that happens. I don't give a shit whether it's a magical spell, goblin steel or a muggle bullet that puts Voldemort down, just as long as the bastard goes down. Hermione taught me that we really are lucky. The two witches must have finished their conversation as, with a jump that didn't even break their stride, Hover and Saber took to the air. Buff and Swift were right behind them as they flew around the island in formation. Tonks was delighted she won her bet. Told you, Wolfie, not only are they exercising as usual but will be over here for breakfast. Puts that supposed werewolf stamina of yours to shame, you didn't get out of bed for 2 days. Remus kissed the teasing witch. I didn't get out of bed because a certain auror wouldn't let me, and I thought my legendary stamina more than proved itself over those 2 days. That it did, lover, that it did. Now, I need you to lock your marauder side away, you will not tease any of these for today. Or, you're spoiling all my fun. Be a good little Wolfie and I promise to make it up to you later. You can tease me as much as you want. A kiss later and their bargain was sealed. The Quidditch matches at Hogwarts were proving to be incredibly popular, with today being the final, and Victor Krum playing for Durmstrang against Slytherin. Dolores chose this time to make her move. Since she was effectively breaking into her old department, the Department of Magical Games and Sports, Dolores couldn't think of a better opportunity to carry out her task. Armed with the Dark Lord's portkey, and her cover story, she was pleasantly surprised to discover the department was totally deserted. She had a small chuckle to herself at the irony of the situation. The department was empty because they were all away watching the Quidditch, a match that wouldn't be taking place at all if it wasn't for Crow's interference. Dolores savored the delicious thought that Crow was playing a part in his own downfall, and that now there was no chance of her being linked to the kidnapping. Her revenge was going to be oh so sweet. She placed the plate with the names of the past winners carefully on the base of the cup, a sticking charm making it appear as if it had always been there. Activating the portkey caused the entire cup to glow for a second. After that, Dolores' scans couldn't read any magical signature from the trophy. Having ridden her luck, Dolores got out of there as quickly as she could. Dolores was quite proud of herself for accomplishing what was another difficult task. Now all that she had left to do was look forward to Thursday and practice a concerned expression for when the goblin lover was whisked away from the stadium. Not as easy as it sounded, since Dolores would really be wanting to stand up and cheer. Even those not close to the four could easily see the difference when they walked back into Hogwarts on Sunday evening. They appeared happy, refreshed and now didn't look as if they had the weight of the world on their shoulders. Their friends would have to wait though as the quartet had bolted to greet their Swedish visitors, having not seen Moa or Lucas since Christmas. The two visitors were delighted to see the four looking so well, and would be able to pass on that news when they left Hogwarts for Kingusi after dinner. They would of course be returning to the castle with the rest of the family on Thursday. Taking their seats at the Ravenclaw table gave their friends time to catch up. Fleur summed up the feelings of all those not in the know. Mon Dieu, you look fantastic. Harry, you could make a fortune renting out this island if a weekend can do that. It was with a cheeky grin Hermione answered her. Fleur, we consider that island one of our homes, it's for family and friends only. Oh, and Harry already has a fortune. I think my lady is forgetting that is our fortune. A blushing Hermione was still smiling as she kissed her husband, the Potter ring having magically appeared on her finger after they completed their bond. Thankfully, like Harry's head of house ring, only people who knew about it would be able to see that magic now considered her Lady Potter. The couple were now considered married in two of the societies they inhabited. Their wedding next summer would complete the trilogy. While catching up, it didn't take long to discover that Victor had won the Quidditch tournament for Durmstrang. All of their Hogwarts friends, with the possible exception of Roger, were now hoping Harry would get his hands on the Triwizard Cup. None picked up on the involuntary shudder that passed through the four every time lifting that particular trophy was mentioned. Albus took particular care with dressing this morning. Today was the day he would return to his rightful place in magical society, and it was important he looked his best. That bastard Crow slicing his beard off had called for an entire change of image. Instead of his flowing silver locks and beard, both were now neatly trimmed to make him look more like a warrior for the light, rather than the elder statesman his previous image projected. He had also avoided choosing some of his more outlandish and eccentric sets of robes, though deep purple with gold trimming couldn't really be classed as demure. Like Dolores, he had also been practicing projecting a demure and heartbroken demeanor. Albus was sure he could even manage to shed a few tears over Crow's dead body. Knowing all eyes would be on him later, Albus checked his image one more time in the full-length mirror and was satisfied with what he saw reflected there. It was time to head to the stadium. Albus wanted a good seat. One way or another, this would end today. Fleur and Victor were in the changing room, waiting not only on the third task starting but also the third champion showing up. When he eventually arrived, Harry wasn't alone. Hermione, Padma, Neville and Tonks all accompanied him. Victor recognized something was wrong right away. It was the expressions they wore. As a professional sportsman he'd seen that intense concentration before. They had the game faces on and someone was in deep trouble. He was pleased and relieved he managed to concentrate on their faces, since all wore skin-tight body armor that emphasized every curve of their bodies. Victor thought he was looking at three of the sexiest girls he had ever seen, and that was with Avila in the room too. Since two of them currently had razor-sharp swords strapped to their backs and the third was an auror, Victor's restraint in not ogling them was understandable. Throw in Harry, Neville and these girls were also friends of his and it just couldn't happen. That didn't mean it was easy though. It was the Vila amongst them who broke the stunned silence. What is going on, Harry? Are all of you competing? Fleur, Victor, I'm really sorry we couldn't tell you sooner. There is no third task. Vat, are you making this the joke? No Victor, we're not joking, this is certainly not a laughing matter. It was Voldemort who arranged for my name to be put in that goblet. He wants me dead and this is all part of his scheme. Voldemort thinks he's tricking me but we've known every move he's made. I also want to assure you both that you were never in any danger throughout the tournament, well not from Voldemort at any rate. Three of our fathers have been concealed in the stadium roof for every task, armed with guns that were a lot more accurate and powerful than the one I used in the last task. Had any of them appeared, they would have been cut down in seconds. This does not make sense, Harry. Both ours and Victor's ministers of magic are currently explaining exactly what has been happening to Madame Maxime. They will be here shortly to confirm everything I've said. She will need to take her seat in the stadium because Voldemort has people helping him, and they're here today. Victor, one of them is Dumbledore. This had the Bulgarian champion sitting down. Are you sure, Harry? Positive, though even Voldemort doesn't know that part. Umbridge was tasked with getting a sample of my blood. We think Dumbledore told her how to do that. Her personal elf stole my bloody towel after one of our morning practice sessions with our blades. It was a really bloody towel, since these three also bled on it. You knew, and still did this. Fleur, this has been handled at the highest levels of our governments. It's not just us against Voldemort. We all want this to end. Today is our chance. The cup has been transformed into a blood-bound portkey that will take me to Voldemort's trap. He doesn't know we're setting one for him. Again, I hope you can forgive me for keeping this from you. Fleur flew at Harry and had her arms wrapped protectively around her friend. You are ready to face Voldemort but worried about what we think. You silly man, do not worry about us, just concentrate on what you have to do. As Fleur stepped back, Victor almost pushed her out the way in his haste to shake Harry by the hand. You have nothing to worry about with me. I want to go too. Durmstrang's honor demands that I do. At that, Amelia entered with both ministers and Ragnick. Mr. Krum, we expect them to be trapped behind wards we will have to pull down. We would welcome ones we could trust to help with that task. She hardly got finished speaking when Fleur jumped in to add her name to that list too, raising a smile amongst the four. They were sure the rest of their friends would understand too. All four bowed to Ragnick. The director was actually wearing armor. It would appear that he too was determined to be part of this fight today. Cornelius was shaking all their hands, but this was not the handshake of a politician. I swore I would stand beside you when you faced him, Harry. I'm here today to make good on my promise, along with everyone we can muster. Most of them don't really know what's happening yet, and won't until we announce it. Amelia also wanted to make sure there were no misunderstandings, though her instructions were simplicity itself. When you hear me scream, down, that's exactly what you do. Hit the ground immediately, because the stuff flying above your head will be lethal. Borislaw was shaking Victor's hand. We fight today to avenge our countrymen these bastards murdered at the Vault Cup. The British have asked to deal with Dumbledore and I agreed. We do not want him back in our country anyway. Durmstrang will have a new headmaster and deputy in September. Checking her watch, Amelia signaled to Cornelius. Minister, it's time. She then hugged the 14s and Tonks before the entire party headed out the dressing room to enter the stadium. Albus wasn't listening to the inane banter coming from the commentator, nor was he too bothered that the third task appeared rather easy. He would surely have come up with something more challenging than a maze. No, his entire concentration was focused on the tunnel that would lead the champions from the dressing room into the stadium. This was why he was totally surprised when someone sat next to him. Albus, I told you to return to Bulgaria and forget about Harry. You didn't listen, and now no one can help you. Before he could answer, Albus felt cold metal being pressed into the back of his neck as the seat on his right side was suddenly occupied too. This time he could see that Alice Longbottom now had a gun pressed into his side. Frank might struggle with his speech but everything else works just fine. You need to believe he's ready and capable of putting a bullet into that fucking manipulative head of yours. My godson, his mate and our children are about to go and face Voldemort, and you help those evil bastards get to them. You have no idea how much I want to put a bullet in you myself. Give me an excuse, Albus, just give me an excuse. Cornelius, Borislaw, Barchoke and Amelia walked into the stadium. Harry's party and the other two champions followed on. An Auror handed a microphone to the minister as Lee's routine to warm up the crowd came to an abrupt end. As you can see, we have a slight change of plans today. In fact, the third task has just been cancelled. There wasn't a sound from the crowd. The Aurors and Warriors now streaming into the stadium might have had something to do with that. Cornelius then proceeded to tell everyone exactly what was going on. The Wizarding Wireless had been denied the right to broadcast this event live for this very reason. Centurion Crow's name was placed in the Goblet of Fire by Dolores Umbridge, acting on the orders of Voldemort. That did raise some noise. The three Aurors who normally trained with Harry's group had been tasked with arresting Umbridge. They found themselves having to try and defend the witch. There had been a group of Crow's marauders sitting a couple of rows behind her. Dolores was taken down before the three Aurors could get there. Two had to shield while the third levitated the unconscious witch out the stadium. Some very accurate spells though left her barely recognizable as human, far less as a witch called Dolores Umbridge by the time they got her out. At any other time Cornelius would have enjoyed watching Dolores get taken apart by students, not today though. Madame Umbridge was not working alone. Albus Dumbledore was advising her on how best to help Voldemort. Have you anything to say, Albus? All eyes may now be turned in his direction but this was not how Dumbledore had planned it. He still hoped to talk his way out of this though. If I am to be publicly accused, I would at least think these good people deserve to hear what proof you have. He didn't get to finish his impromptu speech, Alice's Grow interrupting him. Wrong answer, we don't have time for your games today. This is for the greater good, Albus, just not yours. Dan had removed some of the power from their bullets, not wanting anyone else injured should it pass straight through the old goat's body. There wasn't a loud bang but Dumbledore's scream made up for that as the elbow of his wand arm was just shattered. Okay, Severus, do your stuff. If he puts up too much of a fight, I can easily put another bullet in him. I've got 5 left. Albus was in a great deal of pain and shock when Severus just added to that, by standing and attacking his mind. Normally he would have been able to repel Severus's attack, but things weren't normal. The pain emanating from his shattered elbow was intense. There were also guns being pressed into the back of his head and now his right knee too. The horrendous agony from his elbow was irrefutable proof the people who held these guns were more than willing to use them. While Albus and Severus fought their battle of wills, Cornelius explained to the crowd that the trophy had been turned into a portkey to whisk Harry away to where Voldemort had prepared his trap. Telling the crowd that Professor Snape was trying to get whatever information Dumbledore had out of him, since Voldemort would get suspicious if his trap wasn't sprung soon, saw an unprecedented swell of support head in Severus's direction. It was a now heavily perspiring Severus who once more sat down. He certainly needed a seat. A few deep breaths were also required to center himself before casting the sonorous charm to give everyone the news. The Portkey is set to take the Centurion to a field overlooked by a statue of a knight on a horse. It's at a place called Bannockburn. This caused great celebration amongst the crowd, and when Minerva McGonagall shouted she knew exactly where that was, even the family were cheering. Severus though had more to say. He held his hand up for silence before continuing. Dumbledore here added his own little twist to Voldemort's plan. He built a stunner into the Portkey. Should Harry touch that cup, he will arrive in Bannockburn unconscious. The sound of a gunshot was clearly heard this time. A.N. Thanks for reading. A.N. 2 What? Would you rather have the cliffhanger in the middle of the battle? Next chapter, the fight, with no cliffy, I promise. A.N. 3 Thanks to all those who asked how the very real battle to save our school is progressing. Latest news is now available on our blog page. 3ws.notomoga.org.uk